just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar, and it's you can feel finals footy just around the corner. The big fella, all of us actually, both me and Timmy, we were late this morning. The traffic was unbelievable. Timmy, how was your weekend, mate?
Yeah, it was good till sort of Monday morning, starting the week, and the traffic on the way in. Who'd have suspected that? Who'd have suspected there'd be heavy traffic in Sydney? Didn't they?
The great Hamiso.
Hello.
Yeah. Matty, how you going, bro?
Good. I live around the corner, so traffic isn't a problem for me anymore, which is great.
Alrighty, thank you everyone for filling out the survey. Recently, we asked you to do a survey. You've filled it out, thousands and thousands. Thank you so much. We've given the prize money to the two winners, so Congratulations to the two winners. And we have listened to your feedback. So what we're going to do is we are restructuring the show just slightly, not a lot. We are going to bring in a brand new segment called Beak's Bag. That is right, Beak's Bag. What is Beak's Bag? Beak's Bag, Beak's mail bag, obviously. So basically what we're going to do at the start of each show, we will answer fan questions. So you go to YouTube, you put in your fan questions for next week. So this starts next week. What you do is you go to YouTube, you go to the comment section, put in your question, obviously leave your name there too, and then we'll pick one community question. We'll pick one community question for each show. We'll talk about the topic, go through it, everyone. And the question that we do choose will win a $50 gift voucher every single week. So whoever gets picked that week, they win a $50 bloke gift voucher. So a new segment at the start of the show, starting next week, called Beak's Bag, Beak's Mailbag, obviously. So head to the YouTube comments right now, leave your questions, and we'll go through them next week. We'll pick one, and we'll go, and each week we will pick a new question. So make sure to leave your comment in the YouTube comment section. You must leave your question in the YouTube comment section. So can't wait. That all starts next week. But let's get into it. Let's face a bit of music. Brought to you by Sportsbet, our friends over at Sportsbet. Let's see how we went as tipping over the weekend. And as always, guys, give us a follow on the feed. I got a few up on the weekend. But let's get straight into it, shall we? Face the music. Brought to you by our friends at Sportsbet.
You took the Sharks to the line. You nearly had a big same-game multi get up as well. Just a quick announcement before Face the Music. Coming this week, ahead of UFC next week. You're heading over there.
Yes.
For the first time, UFC same-game multis will be appearing on the Sportsbet site. So I'm sure there'll be a couple on your feed as we get a little bit closer to next week. But changing the game. Very exciting this week. So
explain what the punter can do.
You can basically build your own bet. There's going to be all sorts of round-specific markets, all sorts of stuff. They're probably going to be out Wednesday or Thursday.
Yep.
Of course, you've got your methods of victories and all that sort of stuff as well. But
same fight multi.
Yeah, surely it's same fight multi.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a same-game multi, but for fighting.
Correct.
There you go. There's the punchline.
Wednesday, punchline, pun intended. Very nice. All right, let's get into the results from this week. All right, so kicking off with Thursday night footy. South 16 were defeated by the Storm 28. Everyone had the Storm winning, which they did, so there's a point there. Everyone also had the Storm covering the 14.5, which they did not, so a point for everybody so far. Friday night, 6 p.m, Titans 0, defeated by Sharks 44. Everyone here tipped the Titans, and they lost by 44 points. So you come here for the expert analysis. Matty got it the worst of everyone here, the Titans 13 plus. So a little bit of reflection for Matty there. Eels 34.
Were there any line points or not at the start?
No, everyone just went Titans 1 to 12. Everyone got it wrong. So not our best there. Then we've got the Eels 34 defeated by Panthers 36. What a game this ended up being. Everyone, of course, had the Panthers. No surprises there. Only Timmy had the Eels covering the 16.5. Huge line, 2 points for you there. Timmy, well played. Raiders 24 defeated by Manly 46. Everyone had Manly winning and covering the 3.5 for 2 points, except me. I only had Manly winning that one. Cowboys 18 were defeated by Broncos 42. We all took the Cowboys head-to-head. Denon and Matty had the Broncos with the start. So you boys get a point there. Dragons 10 defeated by Dogs 28. Everyone had the Dogs winning. Denon, Timmy and Matty also had them covering the 3.5, so 2 points for you boys. On to Sunday, Dolphins 33. What a game this was. Defeat Wars 32. Timmy was the only bloke with 2 points there. He had the Dolphins head-to-head and the Wars to cover the 7.5. Rue, Timmy and myself had the Dolphins head-to-head for a point. Denon, you had the Wars. You didn't get a point in that one. And then to bring us home, Knights 34 defeat Tigers 18. Everyone had the Knights. Guru, Timmy and Matty had the Knights covering the 10.5 for 2 points. So here's how we finished round 23. Matty, off the canvas, he had a three-peat on the bottom of the ladder the weeks before. 11 points this week, so well done to Matty.
Hey.
Thank you.
Sensational bounce back from you. Timmy, in a pretty good vein of form at the moment, 10 points for you. Roo and Denon had 9 points, and myself, not my best, 7 points. So we're getting close to the end of the season. One lucky panelist will most likely be joining Hainsey in the Chook Pen around 27. I think it's between me and Matty, but we're zeroing in, of course, with a haircut at AC Flow in Bondi to look our best with Hainsey for the big game as well. So zeroing in on it, but that's how we landed this week.
There you go. That's Facing the Music, brought to you by Sportsbet. As always, a massive thank you to Sportsbet, and also a massive thank you to KO. I will be heading tonight. I'm flying to Perth for UFC 305. Israel Adesanya versus Duplessis. Duplessis. I think it's spelt Duplessis, but it's actually pronounced Duplessis. So Adesanya versus Duplessis. It's going to be an incredible fight. I cannot wait. I'll be heading over there. Thanks to KO. I'll be creating content all week, guys, so stay tuned to the podcast feed. Roasty doesn't even know this, but might do some podcasts with Roasty over there. He's not aware. We just talked about it in the green room.
Breaking news.
Breaking news for him too. So I'll be doing content all week over in Perth. Don't worry though. You'll still get your Captain's Run show on Wednesday. You'll probably get a replacement show on Thursday for the DMP. So maybe me and Roasty will put something out, and I'll still be on Morning Glory this Friday with Matty Johns. So don't worry about that. You'll get all of that plus the content thanks to KO over at UFC 305. We're going to leave a link in the description. If you're going to buy the fight, grab it through the link, guys. It shows KO, the bloke community.
Are you going to share a bit of your rugby league wrestling nous with Izzy Adesanya?
Yeah.
Teach him a bit of that.
Yeah, mate,
He's got his ground and
I'll
pound.
teach you about the underhooks, mate.
Yeah.
He doesn't know much about the underhooks. I'm all about the underhooks. And also, just quickly as well, in regards to the show, what we're going to do heading into finals footy is we'll before we go into the review, we'll speak about the biggest topics in rugby league. Usually what we do is we go straight into the review and we kind of meld in the biggest topics as to, like, let's say it's a big topic about the Eels. We'll wait to the Eels game and then we'll talk about it when the Eels game is on. Instead, what we're going to do is if there's a massive topic in rugby league leading into finals footy, we'll talk about it before the review starts. So let's say there's 2 or 3 huge news stories, a player's leaving or a player's rumoured to be leaving, or a big call happens that we want to talk about. So, for example, the alleged bite between Flanagan and Critter. We'll talk about it before we kick off into the review. So the review will be specifically about the game. But let's get into a bit of Team of the Week, shall we? Brought to you by Bloke Beer. Grab a case of Bloke Beer from your local independent liquor store. It's beer for blokes that turn up for family, mates, and good times. And also, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have an OG drop. That's right, a brand new merch drop. We're calling it the OG drop because it's a mixture of 2 things. OG, but also a Father's Day drop. And that is happening on the 26th. Correct, Matty? Yep. The 26th, so Monday, 6 p.m. Not next week, but the week after, Monday, 6 p.m. The OG drop is happening, and Father's Day drop. Monday, 6 p.m, guys, you want to be there. When we reveal what we're dropping, you're going to absolutely love it. Alrighty, Team of the Week. At 1, Turbo. Scary scene seeing Turbo get back to close to his best. At 2, Sharp on the wing for the Knights. Geez, absolutely electric. At 3, Stags. 4, Herbie Farnworth. 5, Stone Street. Outstanding for the Sharkies. 6, Luke Brooks. Tell you what, hasn't he found some form in this back end of the year? Just timing it perfectly, and how exciting for him. It looks like he's going to play finals footy. And what I love about this season for Brooks, it hasn't really come easy. He started the year really well. Went a bit quiet there for the mid-season. Wasn't bad at all, but just a bit quiet. And then he's picked up the slack over the last few weeks and been outstanding. At 7, boo. Toby Sexton. Getting booed. It's unbelievable. And he's killing it. Toby Sexton at 7. What a game on the weekend. And another example of being patient. And also the Bulldogs. So the Kings are staying patient. Staying patient with young halves. He's a 23-year-old. If he hadn't got the lifeline of the Bulldogs, we don't know where he would have ended up. Everyone rid him off. Everyone was like, nah. Went at the Titans. It didn't work out. They kicked him to the curb, said, see you later. He goes down to the Bulldogs, doesn't even get a start there, has to grind out in reserve grade. Even at the start of this season, wasn't the starting 7, but Sexton comes through and he gets the 7 jersey. And I believe that him coming and getting that 7 jersey has been the difference for the Bulldogs this year. You can actually mark when he came into the side, before and after. Before, they were a gritty, tough side with good defence, getting wins here or there. After, they turned into a top 8 final side. At number 8, Jensen the Jet, scoring his first try in 7 years. He now has 2 tries in his NRL career.
Off the nudie run.
Oh, yeah. 9. It's the Psychopath. It's the Psychopath from the Dolphins. At 10, Rudolph from the Sharkies. At 11, Preston from the Bulldogs. 12, Nikita from the Sharkies. At 13, I'll let you announce at 13 from the Sharkies.
Yeah, well, the Kuma Stallion, Jack Williams, in the green room picking the team before the show, we nearly came to blues because there was chat that Jack Williams wasn't going to get named as the 13 in team of the week, and I just said, I won't have it. I'm walking if this doesn't happen.
He threw his weight around. He threw his brother Williams. It was between Kurt Mann and Williams. We gave it to Williams. Easily the best game of his career. He was in everything. An incredible performance from Williams from the Sharks. At 14, we've already named it, but it's Mann from the Bulldogs. Incredible try. The try that essentially broke Dragons' back, or at the very least got them, into a position where you felt like they could win comfortably. At 15, Hayes from the Bulldogs. At 16, Carrigan. And at 17, Brian To'o, who was this close to getting in the wing. We just thought that his key moments when they needed a win, he came up with them. Incredible getting out of his own end, then a try that got them back into the game against the Eels. So To'o gets 17 jersey. Now it's time for our hungriest player, brought to you by our partners over at Menulog. Our friends over at Menulog this week, they're going to give you $7 off Mexican food this week. Minimum spend $20. Use code STAGS. That is right. Tony Staggs is our hungriest player of the week. What an incredible performance. And the thing with Staggs is that when he plays like this, he's up there with the best wingers, the best centers in the game. He's so explosive. He's so dangerous. Now, I do think the last few weeks, his effort can't be questioned. He's been really trying to rip in to lift the Broncos off the canvas. Defensively, their reads on that edge hasn't been great, but they fixed it this weekend to a degree. His attack, though, against the Cowboys was basically the difference. He single-handedly wrangled the Cowboys back in to give the win for the Broncos. I thought it was easily Tony Staggs' best game of the year. And if he can just land somewhere like around here each week, he doesn't necessarily have to play like he did this week every week, but close to it, he can get back to his best.
Yeah, and the big matchup, one of the best matchups of the weekend and just head-to-head battles was Tony Staggs going up against Valentine Holmes, and you've got going up against an Origin backline playing Val Holmes, Staggs, who's had moments in the past. And I'm with you, can be a few defensive misreads this season, but particularly over the last month in attack, he's been awesome, and in a pretty lean spell for the Broncos, he's been tremendous. I do think, I know they made a grand final last year and almost won a comp. I do think it's up to the Broncos and the players around him and Adam Reynolds to put Tony Staggs in positions to get these one-on-ones, because he's near impossible to stop when he's in a mood like he was on the weekend. And, mate, he gave Val Holmes an absolute bath on numerous occasions. What was his best performance all year?
Yeah. What I love the most about his performance is we know he can do all the incredible strength and the bumping and all that kind of stuff. It was the try, his best try, where he bumped a bunch of people. He popped up on the other side of the field. And that's the thing that we've had with Staggs is not pretty much questions around his effort areas, is like just getting involved in the game, forcing your way into the game. And so they made that line break with Reece Walsh. He gets tackled. And I reckon Staggs from, maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago probably just stays on that side and goes, all right, that's not my job. But the Staggs that's trying to lift the Broncos off the canvas, he goes, nah, I'm getting involved. Goes on the other side of the field, gets the ball, and only Staggs could have scored that try. And it all come off the back of his effort to get across to the other side of the field. And that's what I love so much about the Broncos' performance on the weekend, and it was all on the back of Staggs, is that okay, yes, was it still rough around the edges? For sure. But it was the ticker. It was just the effort that you want to see week in, week out. And I saw Staggs, he was incredible on the weekend.
Unbelievable. Good to see him getting back to some of his previous form. And yeah, you're quite right. It was a big battle with a lot of people looking forward to. Holmes versus Staggs. And Staggs came out well and truly on top.
Incredible performance. So Staggs is our hungriest player of the week. Use code STAGGS, STAGGS, for $7 off Mexican this week. Minimum order $20. Massive thank you as always to our friends over at Menulog. $7 off Mexican. Oh yeah.
I've got one more code here. You might want to give it a go on Menulog for the hungriest player. May or may not work. Get 4 to 6 weeks off your 2024 season when you order Critters Nose and use code Kyle at checkout. T's and C's apply. Limit of 1 nose per customer. So give it a go. Kyle Flanagan. May or may not work, but worth throwing out there as well.
It may or may not work.
Yep.
It may or may not work.
It
Most likely it won't work. Definitely. Alrighty, guys, let's get into it. It's so hot right now. It's so hot right now because we've got a hot take. I might need to take this jumper off, baby, because it's getting hot. All right, I got a hot take, boys. I got a hot take. And I'm going to get, there's going to be a lot of, let's just say I'm getting pizzled in the comments, but I'm okay. I'm just going to put myself out there and put myself at the will of the comments, which is a dangerous thing in the internet these days. Here is my hot take, boys. Taumalolo is in my greatest 17 of all time, period. Boom. There I said it. Jason Taumalolo is in my greatest 1 to 17 of all time, period. Not just NRL era, of all time. Most likely he would come off the bench as a front rower for me, but he is my greatest 1 to 17. Here is my case that I put before the court. In 2018, the third time in 4 seasons, Taumalolo won Dally M Lock of the Year. Taumalolo had so much impact in that position that for many years, other clubs tried to replicate it and put essentially a front rower in the 13 jersey. We've seen it swing back the other way, but that's how impactful he was. He dragged them to a grand final. There's another 2 grand finals. He won one, and a lot of people argue that was the greatest grand final of all time. Then obviously 2017, but I'll take it even further. Yes, there were plenty of other players in that Tongan side that changed the game. But the main guy that made that decision to go across to Tonga, not just to go and play for Tonga and get people in, they're the first Tongan side to beat Australia. Taumalolo was a big part of that. And so I just think Taumalolo at his best, granted, I understand he's a bit older now, I get all that. At his best, he is in my 1 to 17. On top of that, he has a record for the club, 6 Player of the Years for the Cowboys. On top of all that, this is how good he was playing. They gave him a 10-year deal, and a lot of people were like, yep, I understand it. A 10-year deal. Taumalolo, for me, at his best, is one of the greatest forwards of all time, and I would have him in my 1 to 17.
Just to add to the resume, he also won a Dally M. Not a Dally M Lock of the Year. He won a Dally M.
Dally M. And how often do we see forwards win Dally M's?
I believe he was the first.
Well, could you
I will
check that?
Yeah.
So there you go. There is my scorching hot take. Not just NRL era, of all time. He would make my 1 to 17. Now, he may not start. He'd probably come off the bench. 1 to 17. Boom. There I did it.
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot. And he's coming on as a front rower?
Most likely as a front rower.
Of the NRL era, absolutely. He would be in my 17, potentially even a starter since 98, that is. It's so hot because it's of all time, you're saying.
Boom.
I really struggle and find it tough to compare players in different eras because the game has changed so much. So, of all time, we're putting him up against players like Glenn Lazarus, as Arthur Beetson, some of the great front rows of the game who I think are arguably probably your starters. Now,
Lazarus and Webke would be probably like Beetson and Lazarus, probably my starters, with Webke and Taumalolo off the bench. Again, I'm not locked into that 4. That's just probably, so just putting it out there.
Like if you drop 2015, 16, Jason Taumalolo into the 80s, he's the best player in the game. He's unstoppable because, as you said, this freakish physique of his, this athleticism as a middle forward. As you said, he'd run for 300 metres with ease at times at his best in his career. For the same note, I look at someone like Arthur Beetson, who was not known for being, the most in-shape player of all time and front rower, but he was an incredible talent. If you dropped Arthur Beetson in the modern era, he wouldn't be working a day job. He'd be training twice as hard. If he was a bit lazy as a big bopper, that would have been kicked out of him. He would have just been even more unstoppable. So I'm reluctant to put him in my
In
greatest.
defence of
all
that,
time.
he doesn't have to be better than Arthur Beetson. He just has to be in the top 4.
Yeah. You're not necessarily picking him. I said you're not picking him as a starter.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that he's better than those guys. I'm just saying in my 4 front row rotation, and also the way I would look at my bench with the fact that he could play 13, even though,
Yeah.
he's a front rower, he would be in the rotation.
And my other argument against it would be I look at someone like Bradley Clyde, one of the greatest, if not the greatest lock to play the game, a couple of Clive Churchill medals through that dominant Raiders era where he was one of the pin-up boys of the game. Lock forward, in the modern day, he could be that sort of slightly smaller bodied front rower, as you've said with Jason Townley making the move into the middle. So potentially he sneaks onto the bench, but I couldn't have him in my top 17 of all time. I think modern era, since 98, absolutely. All time, I find it way too hard to compare the boppers of the 80s and before to Taumalo.
There you go. Timmy's not on board.
That's why it's a hot take. 115 years of the game. This is, Kempy's top 4 rotation that he's got here for the front rowers and locks. Disappointing not to hear Keith Galloway mentioned there in your top 4. Did some
Great Keithy.
Did some great things at the Sharkies and, of course, the Tigers. Look, you can definitely mount a good case for him. I mean, the 10-year deal for me is the big one. Like, to see any player get a deal like that, a half or someone like that you're looking to build a club around, that's rare. But to see a front rower or a lock forward kind of get that kind of deal, that really stands out. That's the first time we ever saw that happen. So damaging at his best. Like we were discussing in the green room, there was times where he was running 300 metres a game. In the engine room. He's an absolute machine. Look, of all time, I'm probably leaning with Timmy. I probably could say of the modern era, a walk-up start.
No.
It's a very big call to go best of all time. So
Oh, no. Okay.
I don't know if I can have it.
Matty.
Statistically, he would outnumber the props of the pre and earlier for sure. But the game's changed.
Ooh, okay.
So just back to the Dally M players, there were a couple of forwards that won in the 80s, but since then, not so much. So he did.
So when was the last time a forward before
89.
89. So you're looking at like...
Non-hooker related.
Sorry, not hooker related. Yeah, obviously.
Of course. So what are you looking at? 89, 90. So you're looking at like what? 30 years roughly. 35
30 years. He did it 5 years ago, so call it 25 years.
25 years. Okay.
This is so unfair, but not playing Origin works against him, in my opinion.
It hurts. Imagine him in Origin.
Yeah, for sure. And like you think of Arthur Beetson, he basically started Origin.
Yeah.
Like he was, he's pretty much the same as Dally M. Dally Messenger of the
Have to remember
early 1900s.
He would be in the same team as he would be in the same team.
I'm just saying it works against him.
Yep.
I'm just saying it works against him because you're right. I think of people like Petro, people like all these forwards who have never won a Dally M. But then you've got people like Petro who killed it in Origin. You've got people like Webke who killed it in Origin. Lazarus who won all those grand finals.
So am I going down 3-0? Am I going down 3-0?
Jason Taumalolo is undoubtedly in my team of the NRL era and probably a team of the last 30 years. I just find it really hard to lock him into that 4-man rotation.
The more I think about it, when you kind of say peak Taumalolo, so absolute prime.
Yeah. So I'm going down 3-1. Oh, no. The take was too hot. They couldn't handle the heat, baby.
It's a risky run with these hot takes.
It's risky. All right. Well,
to be fair, I reckon if people agree with you, it wouldn't be that hot a take. I think you almost need people to disagree.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see in the comments section. Obviously, guys, be respectful. It's just an opinion. But that's my hot take. I went down 3-1. I fought the good fight. I went down 3-1. I know Rue would back me up. Rue would back me in. Actually, I don't know. Would he? Maybe. Probably not.
I can Rue would.
Okay. All right. Well, next week we'll ask Rue. So we've gone down 3-1. All righty. Big news, guys. Allegedly, Flanagan has bitten Critter. Allegedly. The footage suggests, in my opinion, that it looked like his mouth did close around his nose.
Yep.
His schnoz. Thoughts about the whole situation, boys?
Yeah, pretty damning evidence. It looked pretty grim to the eye, didn't it? I mean...
If it wasn't my beak,
I think...
would have gagged.
Wouldn't have been able to close.
I mean, I think he bit him, didn't he?
And so, I guess, anyway. In regards to what should happen. Now, I know there's an argument from people saying, like, Critter had his face in his face and, I think it all depends on how often does that happen. Is it grubby to rub your head in someone else's head? Yes, it's grubby, but it does happen quite a lot in rugby league. Like, that's a wrestling technique that you use when you're just trying to put someone off their game, you're just trying to make them feel uncomfortable. doesn't make it, you're not playing in the most true spirit of the game. So people that go, Critter had his head in his face. Yes, he did have his head and his nose in his face. He did. But you actually, if you look at a lot of tackles regularly, you'll see that maybe once every 2 sets, and it's just about putting the opposition up there. So not to excuse it, but the reason why I say that it happens regularly enough for me to go, biting is definitely not the answer.
Yeah.
And so, if this was something where, I don't know, it was so unregular that Stephen Crichton did it to him that he reacted like that, maybe that would have mitigating circumstances. But for me personally, that happens pretty regularly on the field where a player will rub his face. It's just a typical wrestling technique. Yes, it's a little bit grubby. In my opinion, it does not excuse it. It's not a mitigating circumstance. For me personally, I think he should get, he should get a fair whack. You just can't have it in the game.
Well, Jack Whiten got 3 last year, and I find them very similar, personally.
Yeah. Campy, if your argument is that Stephen Crichton shouldn't have had his head in his face and been rough like that in the first place, you probably never played a game of rugby league in your life, because one of Wrestle 101, and it sounds bad, but it is what it is, players are taught, make the attacker and the ball handler as uncomfortable as you can, and that is to get those levers in underneath. It's to get your head in between their neck and rub it on their face, and when you're on the receiving end of it, it sucks. It's uncomfortable. That's rugby league. It's not meant to be. It's not soft, is it?
Yep.
And as I said, it sounds bad to people who haven't played footy before, but that's what rugby league is. You make your opposition uncomfortable on the ground. Mate, you at the top level would have been taught that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the wrestle, getting your head in. I personally would never do it because I'm just not that kind of player. What am I trying to staunch someone? But it happens to you all the time. Forwards will rub their face in. They want you to get off your game. They want you to get pissed off, get up, start pushing, give away a penalty.
You're also in an era where if you did it to someone, they could come and punch your head in for 10 minutes in the bin, and nowadays they can't.
They can't do that. So I just, can't excuse it. I personally think it needs a fairly decent whack.
Yeah, I think he'll get one as well. I mean, they interviewed Stephen Crichton straight after the game, and he had a few war wounds there. There's a bit of blood all over the face and all over the nose and all that sort of thing as well. So I think Kyle will be, he'll got a couple of weeks off, which will hurt the Dragons a little bit. But you can't be biting, can you? And it's never really been a grey area, has it? Every time someone's kind of been accused of it, they've probably done it like it's, you kind of cop a bit of a whack. So, yeah.
I'll tell you what, Critter, big noses are in now, baby. It's all good. It's all good having a big nose, baby. Don't stress.
How many weeks do you reckon?
It's hard to put that out there, but probably around your 3 or 4, I'd say. Again, just an assumption. I don't really know how they grade things in this specific area, but I'd say probably around the 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's tough because it's been referred straight to judiciary, so it's kind of you don't really know how they're going to judge it.
It's just, I haven't looked it up, but you mentioned 3 weeks for Jack Whiten last year. It's just in line with other biting incidents in the game, and you look at that and go, whether you nibble on their nose or you take a chunk out, biting's biting, so just keep it in line with what's happened in the past, right?
Yeah.
So it could be out till finals if they give him 4 weeks.
I tell you what,
big out.
It's
such a dumb
and the
thing.
Dragons do not have halves depth at all. They're lucky they've gone so long this season with Flano and Benny Hunt staying injury free, but they've got Jesse Marshke, who I think might have played there once or twice earlier in the year and went all right. He's due back from a hamstring injury hopefully this week, but whether he comes in fresh from return from injury or whoever it might be, with them fighting for a final spot, it's a big loss.
It's just so disappointing because Flano's had such a bloody good year.
Yep.
He's been so good for the Dragons, and just a brain explosion. I know he said that he didn't do it, but the footage is pretty damning.
Yeah.
It's pretty damning.
Yep.
And I just think that the Dragons, the last thing they needed, everything is going so well, and we've been talking all year about how incredible Flano's been. There's been no headlines. That's what we were talking about last week. There's been no headlines. Yeah. He's been crucial. He's been underrated. And then do this, and it's just all that good work. It doesn't necessarily erase all that good work, but you'd come so far, no headlines, no dramas, and now all of a sudden there's this big drama around the head. Flano.
Yeah, when they're sitting ninth as well, they're on equal wins with the Dolphins. Pretty important that they've got their best kind of side out there on the park every week. So could actually be quite a significant.
Yeah.
Well,
I will say Marshke's been pretty good.
He has, but
he's no
I don't know when his last game was, but he's been out for a decent chunk with that hamstring injury, I believe, and it also coincides with looks like the Dragons will lose Moses Sully for a few games at least as well. So the best thing about that edge has been defensively, they've been so sound this season. So to lose those two, big outs.
Anything else, boys?
No.
Okay. we've been holding off talking about this because you don't really want to give these things legs because it's just rumours and speculations. But it's just one of those things where I feel like it might be. We spoke about it last week on Packer Up Boys. On the DMP. Mitchell Moses. There's been whispers about unhappiness, releasing, and all that kind of stuff. It's really hard when situations like this happen because, so basically, some people are saying, well, why hasn't Mitchell Moses come out and denied it? And I understand why the audience may feel that way because it's like, well, it's simple as that. Just come out and deny it. But the problem with that is that, well, let's say it's not true. If you start just responding to every story that a journalist brings up, then you're just biting on the bait. Like that's exactly what the media cycle wants. Like start a story and not to suggest, and maybe this story is true, but let's work on the assumption that it's not true. That's like the media, that's how the cycle works. Put out a story, force someone to respond, then them responding becomes a story and it just stacks on top. It's exactly, and so it's this weird balance between, Mitchell Moses, let's say it isn't true. If he comes out, he gives them what they want. If he doesn't talk about it, he gives them what they want. Very hard situation. And also, like, who's to suggest that it's half true? So, for example, maybe Mitch Moses is frustrated with the administration, but he's not so frustrated that he's actually considering leaving his contract early. So it's very easy to kind of hide behind the fact, well, he actually is frustrated. Yeah, that's a very different conversation. Being frustrated with an administration that I think we can all agree hasn't handled retention since grand final very well is very different to I'm so frustrated, I'm literally going to walk out of my contract immediately. So I just wanted to just put that out there. Me personally, I think it lands in the camp of Moses is frustrated with an administration that hasn't been at their best for the last few years, and I understand why Mitchell Moses would be frustrated, but I don't personally believe that he would walk out of his contract 2 years early just because of that frustration.
Yeah, I mean, off the bat, I don't know the intricacies of what's happening, what the actual word is, as you alluded to, Kempy. I agree, though, that it sounds like why wouldn't he be frustrated? He obviously was dominant at Origin level. I thought even for Parramatta this year, in between sort of injury stints, he was really good as well. You're in this club that on paper should be playing finals football and they're like bottom of the table or not far off it. They'll miss finals 2 years on the trot. As if he's not going to be frustrated. They see like some great names from the club leaving the club. As you said, battles around retention since that 2022 grand final. He probably is frustrated, and the journos might have got wind of a little bit of that. Trying to make mountains out of molehills, looking for a release. Maybe he is. I don't know, but
the reason why I kind of feel like that's what's happened is that when Hooper, the one that essentially broke the story, he said. First, he said, it's just my opinion. I think that he is going to ask for release. But then when pushed on it, he said, no, the rumours are getting around. And so, by him saying the rumours of frustration are true, then my opinion is he's going to ask for a release. It protects you from... They're actually two different things. It's reporting on frustration and then his opinion saying that he might ask for release. All of a sudden, they get put together. Mitchell Moses wants to ask for a release. When they're actually two separate things. Here's Hooper's opinion of a situation, the result of a situation, of the frustration. The problem is that sometimes journalists can intentionally make that connection vague, so the story is much more salacious. Whereas Mitchell Moses frustrated at the club, but still not going to leave. That's not a salacious headline. That's of course he's frustrated.
Yeah, agree. Well, it's an interesting one though with Moses. I remember, I think Riles got signed as the Eels coach around just leading into Game 3 of Origin, I think was the time. And I remember, I think Moses got asked about it while he was in camp. What have you made of the appointment? Have you had a chance to chat to Riles yet? His response, I won't get it exactly word for word right, but he kind of gave the impression that he hadn't actually spoken with Riles yet, and I'll make sure I have a bit of a chat with him and catch up. But I would have probably thought that a key player at your club that you're probably building your club around, your number 7, might have been at least a little bit kind of involved or consulted in the process of who they kind of go after as the coach. I don't know whether there might have been a little bit of maybe he wanted somebody else. I don't know. But I found it really interesting the way that he answered that question at the time. And this was, 4 or 6 weeks ago. So for a couple of weeks later, maybe there'd be a bit of a story around he's not super happy. I don't know, just when you go back and listen to that answer, it kind of makes a little bit of sense, to be honest.
I mean, if it is the case that they haven't spoken to their main player, like their main guy, the player they built a club around, like that is poor management. That is poor management. Surely that he's in the conversation. No, he doesn't necessarily be at the board meeting for selection, but surely at least in the conversation.
Yeah, well, I had Rosie coaching down at West Illawarra a few years ago, having a game, and one thing the man did not lack was personal skills with being able to chat to players, and he's just a bloody good bloke, real good communicator. So I would find it hard to believe that going in there and taking over that, said the most important player on the roster, Mitchell Moses, there wouldn't have been a conversation had at some point.
I think what you're trying to say is more the administration speaking to Moses before selecting the coach. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I thought that maybe he might have been a little bit involved in the process. Again, not at a granular sitting in every boardroom level, but kind of being like, here's the style, or
what do you think?
Yeah, what thoughts? At least a little bit involved.
But surely Riles has spoken to him by now. I mean,
they definitely would have. By
he's a player. He gets it. He gets it. What do you reckon, Matty?
Yeah, it's interesting because he's got the player option in 2027. That means he can chat from November 1 next year. And given now he's had his Origin series, I know it's been frustrating for him that they've missed the finals 2 years in a row, but they get a clean slate this preseason with Jason Riles. So I find it, I don't not believe that there's whispers that maybe he wants to release, but I reckon he'd be more likely to say, all right, we've got a roster that could play finals footy, we get a clean slate next year. If things are the same in a year, I'll agitate for release, and worst case scenario, I'll stick out my 1 extra year and move on. I just don't see why. I mean, you all make good points as to why he might want to go now, but I just reckon it's a clean slate. If they're sitting second last or in the bottom 4 this time next year, and there's nothing to look forward to, then I'd start agitating.
I don't think. See, my personal opinion is I don't think he is.
Yeah, I don't.
Considering a release. I don't. I think that he's frustrated. But I don't think he's considering a release at all. I think that he is. I think that if they are in the bottom 4 again next year, and we actually discussed this like 4 or 5 weeks ago when I said if Moses goes up and wins that series, and then the Eels are sitting in the bottom 2 or 3 next year, I do think that's when he'll be going, mate. I'm not spending my last few years in the bottom of at the bottom of the table. So I don't think right now. I don't think he's thinking about it.
And look, if body language is anything to go by on field, I know he's obviously been out injured for a few weeks since Origin, but prior to that, I haven't seen a moment or year of Mitchy Moses in club football where he hasn't, where he's shirked a task in defence and missed a bad tackle, but that was uncharacteristic, or he hasn't taken a short side or chased a kick or whatever. His on-field performance for Parramatta has just been 100% effort. So I'm like, if there is generally agitation, a player wanting to leave a club, and again, I know this was 5-6 weeks ago when he was last playing, but there's normally some sign on field of them going, I don't want to be here, or a lazy effort. There hasn't been one thing all year on field that suggested that to me.
Yeah. I think, we're so focused on Mitchell Moses and, what he's doing on the field and blah, blah, blah. But, also, the administration hasn't been great the last few years. And if he isn't happy, then we should be looking at the administration and say, well, maybe there are things that you need to fix. Like, why is the focus solely on Mitchell Moses? Is he staying? Is he leaving? Instead of the administration of the Para Eels, who, on the ground level are great. Their contact, like their social media and their administration, and as a club, that's all good. But in regards to roster retention, recruitment, all that stuff, maybe they do need to look at that and go, okay, why is Mitchell Moses frustrated? Instead of us focusing so much on should he leave? Should he stay? I think it should be administration. Why? A few years ago, were you in the grand final, and now you're at where you're at, when you've got a player of Mitchell Moses' calibre who pretty much outside of this year has been injury-free the whole time. I think a lot of questions have to be asked of the administration, or at the very least, not necessarily the lower, as in, the everyday kind of administration of, the social media and all that kind of stuff and the business side of things. I more mean the tippity top. I think questions need to be asked. And you look at other clubs as well, like the Rabbitohs, when the whole drama happened with Demetrio, a lot of questions were asked of the administration. It's only natural. So I do think that if he is frustrated, instead of focusing on shouldn't he leave, the focus should be on the administration may need to look to improve to create a better environment where he isn't frustrated. Because at the moment, I agree with you, mate, he's playing like he is totally committed.
I think as well, the whole Roosters link, Sam Walker's off contract. No doubt Sam Walker's listening to all this. Sam Walker can speak to other clubs from November 1. I'm sure they're at the 11th hour of extending him for a huge extension. So, like, surely that throws a little spanner that these rumours are going around.
Well, the Roosters are apparently baffled by the link. They don't know where it's come from. But it does make it a bit weird for Walker when you're sitting there going, what's happening here? So
someone's probably linked it like, all right, maybe his best mate's Tedesco, or the Roosters are a good club, go there. Like, it's probably not a real one, but it's still been around. That's the thing.
The problem is sometimes, whether it's administrations, players, player managers, all the information getting leaked for specific reasons. Like, it's like, you know, the link to the Roosters could be getting leaked to put pressure on the Para Eels to upgrade him, and then all of a sudden that link is actually not real, but it's being linked. But the effect is Sam Walker is sitting there going, hey, what are you talking about? You're connected to Mitchell Moses. You're about to extend me for a period of time. And so you just don't know where the incentive is coming from. Anyway, we'll move on. On to the review. Let's get into it, shall we? Any other big news you boys wanted to talk about over the weekend?
No.
No. All right, get into it then. Storm defeating the Rabbitohs. As I said earlier, actually, guys, don't forget, next week, Beaks Bag. Ask your questions in the YouTube comment section. We'll pick one. Each week when we pick one, we'll give you a $50 bloke gift card. And we'll, at the start of the show, we'll announce the question, and then we will discuss the topic at the start of each show each week, or in the first, 20 to 30 minutes. Alrighty, Storm. Just quickly on the Eels thing, there are a number of people at the club that have spoken to Mitch, and there is nothing to suggest he is anything but committed to the club. Ultimately, he's contracted to us until the end of 2026, and we all hope he'll be here for much longer than that. I always hate when they say, he's contracted to the club. Like, I hate that, because it's like you don't want to have to force him to say. Anyway, that's what the Eels have said. Now let's get into it. Storm defeat the Rabbitohs 28-16. Spoke about this last week on the Packer Up Boys. Bit of a weird situation for the Storm, because you want them to be a bit more ruthless. You want them to be able to put sides away. They come out in the first half, they completely dominate, then they come out in the second half, and it was terrible, very un-Storm-like. But it was only 3 weeks ago where they completely put the Roosters away. And so it's if you're just looking at it by a week-by-week basis, they lost the week before to the Dragons. They struggled in the second half against the Rabbitohs. You'd almost be going, geez, this isn't a premiership-ready side to go on a finals run. However, the fact that the Roosters went down there and got absolutely dominated by the Storm suggests to me that they are ready, that it might be a case of, and Sandor actually spoke about on Packer Up Boys, where the Storm will intentionally increase their workload at training around this time of year and then pull right back as they go into finals footy. It may be a case of their training loads have increased a little bit. That's why they're a bit flat at the moment. I still have them absolutely as a premiership threat. Penrith Panthers are number 1. Storm are still number 2 for me. The biggest questions I guess I have out of this game, and it actually all revolves around Nelson, is that all year we haven't really seen these moments from Nelson. And granted, I understand that he hasn't been played on an edge. But even his impact off the bench has been solid, but the game hasn't been a Nelson game. Whereas I feel like on the weekend, it was a Nelson game where you're just going, mate, this guy is unstoppable. The try he scored, whether you're playing on the edge or in the middle, like they can still set that try up. And so it's one of two things. The question is, why haven't we seen that Nelson earlier? Then the second question is, geez, if he is like ready and raring to go heading into finals footy, and this Storm side can now plug him into his best, that's a real premiership threat.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to assess here, because I've been a little bit critical of the Storm this season and copped a bit of stick for it, rightly so, about whether or not they can win the comp. I mean, they can win the comp. They are absolutely among the top 3 contenders in the competition. And I can't wait. It's hard not to speak about this game and the Storm without just throwing forward to Thursday night, because they get an early grand final. It's a game with a near full-strength roster. Xavier Coates out. They're not missing too much. Against Penrith, in Penrith, essentially for that minor premiership. It's a massive game. And as you said, big one against the Roosters down in Melbourne a month ago. That was a great win, but they've just lost to the Dragons. We spoke about it last week. Dragons are really good, but they still lost to a bottom 8 side at home. On the weekend against South Sydney, a decent first half. Craig Bellamy coach sides are 80-minute footballers. They don't take the foot off the gas. They finish their job off. They should have won this by a lot more. And it ended up being a 12-point margin. You say, well, it's a bit harsh. They still a solid win and pretty comfortable. And it was, but you throw Latrell Mitchell back in that team for the Rabbitohs and their attack just clicks a little bit more. That scoreline could have been very different. So they got the job done. And you mentioned what Sandor said. I do think they probably viewed two softer games. We speak out every week. It's a long, long season. You can't be up and about every week. It was coming off that Roosters game, which was a big victory for them and a big game. We're about to find out just how good they are against Penrith on Thursday night. Yeah. And I hope their middles come and stick it to them. And, mate, I had the exact same point coming out of this game. I question whether their middles can match, the Panthers on grand final day to win a comp. But you add Nelson Solomona in there, who's been quiet all year. He's looking better. That try he scored on the weekend was dominating. If he can get back to near his best, well, they've been top of the table all season, essentially not without him, but nowhere near his best. He is the X factor for them. If he can keep up that form, who knows? And
this is just an internet comment, so I could be wrong, but I mentioned this on Packer Up Boys, and one of the comments was apparently mid-year he went away for like a few days, like in their bye or something, and did his own army camp or something like that, and he's come back, like he's openly said, like refreshed and ready to go, fully focused in. And like, look, the evidence would suggest he has come back fucking fully. Because as I said, like when Nelson plays his best, the spotlight is on Nelson. It's a Nelson Solomona game. Like the whole game is almost just around him. Not necessarily where he's taking all the runs, but every time he gets the ball, something is happening. And I felt like at the very least in the first half, we did get a taste of that. And I just wonder if they are plugging him in to do that. What do you got there?
Yes, so he went to sunny coast for a week, put himself through intense days of training, and he actually was quoted. It's a bit like Dennis Rodman. He goes to Vegas for 48 hours. I need to go to sunny coast for a week. Everyone is different. That's what works for me.
There you go. How long ago was that?
The article's in late July, which is 2 weeks ago. So very recent.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. What do you reckon about the Storm?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. He's definitely was outstanding on the weekend. He put a cryptic Instagram post up not long ago as well. It was almost like saying end of a chapter or something like
Apparently
that.
that was bait. He's come out since then and said he baited the media.
Oh, mission accomplished, Nelson.
Gotcha.
Playing 4D chess down there. No, he was tremendous, and I think you're right. If he's firing, that probably just elevates them to contenders kind of status. So it's going to be interesting to see how he aims up against Leota, Fisher-Harris, and co on Thursday night. That'll be.
Is Fish ready to go yet? Do we know?
No, I don't think so.
I wouldn't be playing Fish if I'm Penrith.
No.
But against the other
even
boys.
Leota,
for sure.
going to Penrith and doing all that sort of thing.
And that's sorry, Hammy.
No, I didn't have too much more to say apart from, they did what they had to do probably obviously in the first half and then obviously scored that try at the start. But it's interesting you touched on that, the additional training. I wondered whether that may have been a factor for the Storm because they've been pretty famous for kind of doing that at about this time of year in the past couple of years, kind of really going. Bellamy goes pretty hard with the guys if they're in a position like they are now, and I wondered whether that might have been a bit of a factor on Thursday as well.
And that's it. When you compare the forward packs, they don't have to go out there and be better than the Panthers forward pack. They've got so many points in them this year, and they've got the best spine in the competition. Points aren't going to be an issue. They just need to match or be thereabouts a Penrith Panthers forward pack. The points will come. They're good enough. It's as long as they don't get blown off through the middle.
Yeah, because that really isn't their strength. Like, I mean, it is a strength, but all their money, all their focus is in Grant, Pappy, Munster, Hughes. And so, as you just said, like they don't necessarily have to blow teams off the park. They just have to be good enough to give their spine a platform. And
I'm going to say the same thing about Manly Sea Eagles later on in the show, but they don't have the biggest name middle in the competition. They don't need to dominate the middle. They just need to hang in because their points out the back are as good as any team in the competition attack-wise. So they just need to match Penrith.
Well, I mean, look at Bulldogs. That's literally what they do is hang in there.
Yeah.
They literally just hang in there and they get the job done. So, Melbourne Storm, I do understand the concern of the last 2 weeks is like, the best Melbourne Storm sides that we've seen, they don't do that. And so I don't know whether it's just, it's unfair to compare this current Storm side with the Storm side from 5 years ago because it's a totally different side. Like it's literally a different side.
They've had 2 really underwhelming weeks in my eyes. if they come out and don't even necessarily have to,
They don't have to win.
They don't have to beat Penrith. If they come out and put up a good fight against Penrith in Penrith, and it's a tight game, the last 2 weeks mean nothing.
Yeah.
Because they go basically the Roosters win, a few down weeks, whatever. Penrith, that's all that matters.
And Penrith beat Penrith at the start of the year as well, helped them to nil. If they play Penrith and they lose 20-12, like I'm okay with that from a Storm perspective. Because granted, I understand that Cleary has been out and he's just back a few weeks. But you have to remember as well, Munster's been out for ages. He hasn't played as much footy with Hughes. That's going to take time for that to click. It's going to take time you could definitely tell Harry Grant a bit unsure whether to go Hughes, go Grant. And I think that it's actually going to be Munster's one of his tougher kind of campaigns or finals campaigns, because I do believe at least this year, Hughes is the man now. I don't think since Cameron Smith retired, Munster's been the man. Whereas I think Hughes is the man, at the very least this season.
We spoke about it last week, and it was completely on show against South Sydney. Their attack was so clunky. They didn't know where to go, but as you said, Harry Grant, it's always been, when Munster wants the ball, go left to him. It's like Jerome Hughes is the dominant half in this team now. And, he's on track to potentially win a Dally M medal this year. And it just changes with Cameron Munster back in the team. Just all the ball movement, the timing of the runners, everything was off in this game for the Storm. And that was a bit of a concern moving forward.
You could see Munster getting a little bit frustrated when he didn't get the ball.
It happened 3 or 4 times where it's like Harry'd go to dummy half and he was about to go to Munster and then he'd see Hughes or whatever and it'd just fall in between them. And you saw Munster time and time again just put the ball in my hands, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's a tough balance, and it's one of those things where it may take Munster going, okay, yes, career-wise, I'm the main guy here, but the way this season has worked out, because I think, I don't know if we all agree, but me personally, I think Hughes should win the Dally M.
Yep.
He's locked in for me.
Agree.
Yeah, as it stands right now,
he should win. I think it's out of him and Tedesco.
Tedesco. Edwards would have been up there, but he obviously got injured. Yep. He's been out for quite a while now. But yeah, definitely between him and Tedesco. I personally think that Hughes has been better than Tedesco this year.
Yeah, and
even though Teddy's been good.
I think Teddy will lose votes to Sam Walker and a team of stars. I'm not saying Melbourne don't have a team of stars, but Munster's missed a lot of the season, has been okay when he's played. Pappenhausen's missed a lot and sort of been okay. I think, Harry Grant obviously get a few, but I think Jerome Hughes is just racking up the sixes.
Okay, in regards to performances, Wishart has been good. Mate. Comes on, replaces Josh King, basically plays as a front rower. I just marvel at how much the game has changed. 10 years ago, you would not be bringing Wishart on as a front rower. He comes on and just rips and tears. I mean, there was one stage, he had 5 runs for 81 metres. And that, when I say it was the Nelson show, it was such the Nelson show that his first line break was purely off the Rabbitohs wigging out that Nelson was out the back. Purely off Jackie Wyden. And I forgot who was inside Jackie Whiten, maybe Cheekham, whoever it was, just completely focused on the big fella. And Wishart just went, boom, straight through the middle. Mate, what do you reckon? Top 3 players for the club this year?
Yep, absolutely. If there was a Dally M most improved player this year, it'd have to be him, wouldn't it? He's played almost every position. He's just been so good when he's been out there. They looked, silkier probably a couple of weeks ago when he was playing 6 rather than Munster. Obviously, it's going to take a bit of time for those 2 guys to click again, but I think he's had an amazing year.
Yeah.
Or do they still give the utility of the year? Or it's bench player of the year, isn't it?
Is there a bench player of the year?
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do.
Get rid of it.
No.
Rush, the Jazz.
Because they now do team of the year, so they do 2 centres, 2 second rows.
Okay. I was going to say, did there used to be a utility of the year, or am I thinking of bench of the year?
I'll look it up for you. I think you're thinking of bench.
That rings a bell, because he'd have, if they've still got
it,
he'd have to be...
surely be in there,
wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Surely, I mean, there'd be a few
Him or Connor
other
Watson?
boys.
Actually, like that.
Old boy, Connor Watson.
The game was...
He's got Pirate of the Year, I think.
Pirate of the year? Well, him or Angus Crichton.
It was almost his first touch when he came on.
Oh,
and
mate.
the Bunnies were in the fight there for the first sort of 20, 25 minutes. Came on, show and go, set up the try for Pappenhausen, I think it was.
Yeah,
He's
so good.
Awesome.
So good. And when Melbourne are just so good. You see a player like a Wishart, and he comes in and plays his first debut, and you go, I think this guy is going to almost be forever cursed at not being great at one thing. And then before you know it, he's the 6 in a side that's on top of the table as a minor premier. Basically, at one stage it was almost a guaranteed lock, and then they had the loss to the Dragons. Their ability to improve players is just, it's just genuine. Like, I can't get my mind around it. I can't get my mind around it.
And he wasn't just like in there, just like doing a job. He was actually like
playing mad.
Yeah.
In the top 3 players each
Well,
week.
you look at it. We just spoke about a bit of lack of clarity around the halves and who's the dominant one and whatnot. When he was there, and it was Wishart in that 24-8 win over the Roosters, it was Wishart and Jerome Hughes. The roles are just so defined. It was Jerome's number one. Tyron Wishart is to Hughes what Jerome Luai is to Nathan Cleary. He's second fiddle. He's a 5'8". He knows his role. Yep. Then Muntz come back in, and obviously Muntz is your starting 5'8" for the Storm, but the roles become murky. Yep. But when Wishart's there, they know who the man is.
I thought Pappy's was actually ended up being Anderson's try, but the kick return, like we always speak, like if you're a young fella watching or a young woman watching, like oftentimes you will think it is skill. Like, so they scored that try because Pappy was incredibly fast. No. They scored that try because all 4 of the Storm players did the hard work early, got back early, and I actually had it in my notes from last week when the Storm played. They lost, so I didn't bring it up. But like, that's what makes the Storm great, is the fact that Pappy can do a kick return and have basically a backline move on the kick return, not play 2, not play 1. Like, literally, he catches the ball, he hits an overs line, he can look across and see 3 players outside him. And so, yes, there is an element of Pappy's speed that got him that line break. But without the hard work first from himself and the players around him, he doesn't make the line break. Anderson doesn't score. Without Anderson getting back the way he did and obviously passing to Pappy, but then also immediately supporting, just great stuff to watch.
The kick chase, it's just, in the modern game, I mean, forever to be fair, but fullbacks are just so elite and so quick and such crafty ball players. If there is a slightly staggered line on that kick chase, you're just inviting trouble, aren't you? Because they will capitalise on it.
Absolutely. So, look, mixed game for the Storm. They get the job done. Hopefully this really is their yardstick. This week coming is their yardstick. And if they come out and play really well, I think we can all go, probably this was the plan with the Melbourne. That they kind of looked at their next 4 games or whatever about a month ago and said, okay, these 2 games here we probably should be able to get away with if we do increase the load of the players. Let's aim towards this Penrith game where we can get a really big scalp. So we'll see how they go. Onto the Rabbitohs.
Sorry, Timmy. No utility player, but they did have interchange player only for 3 years. But
okay. Onto the Rabbitohs. I like that they showed a lot of fight. I think the biggest negative was the fact that they had a 68 or 69% completion rate. The really good thing for the Rabbitohs is the fact that 12 weeks ago we were sitting here going, this club needs a complete clean out. Like, it is disaster areas. And then they've managed somehow, some way, even with some injuries still, to not necessarily like set the world alight, but just play at a standard where you go, okay, you can see the vision for next year. You can see how Wayne could come in here and go, he goes here, and all of a sudden they go from bottom 4 all the way up to potentially even top 4. And that's what's exciting for the Rabbitohs, is the fact that the year has gone from it's a disaster that may take 2 or 3 years to clean up to this might just take a preseason to clear up. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that they'll be ready to win a premiership next year, but at the very least, they should be, I believe, ready to play finals footy next year.
Yeah, they have an enormous injury toll, the Bunnies, at the moment. They're playing for nothing at this time of year up against the team coming first in the competition with a lead attack. 22-4 at half-time, you said, oh, God, like this could be 60-4 by full-time. And the Bunnies came out and won the second half. That's all you can ask at this stage. Like, Matty will be able to elaborate on it more, but they're having a crack. They're digging in. They're not throwing in the towel. They were outclassed in this one by a better side with a much fresher squad. But I think they can hold their heads pretty high because it was a brave second-half effort.
Well, it had every opportunity to go put up the white flag coming out second half, and they didn't. I mean, you look at their backs as well, like Fletcher Myers, 169 metres. Milne, 140 metres. Richie Kenner, 143 metres. Jai Gray, 127. Jackie White, 159 metres. Like, it's not easy to do against the Melbourne Storm. Like, it's not easy to get those numbers. Like, usually when you look at a team, you'll be like, oh, crap, like only one player got over 100 metres against the Melbourne Storm.
And keep in mind, the back five that would have started the year, Latrell, AJ, Munro, White and Campbell Graham, none of them playing in the back 5 at the moment.
And the beauty of that is come next year when they said they're going to roll out a squad round 1 next season, a starting 17 that should, in my eyes, be playing finals footy. I know it sounds silly right now, but their injury toll's been ridiculous. Just getting a lot of extended game time into these players that they've been able to do this year, that's going to be invaluable for them moving forward.
Yeah, I really like the fact that we now know Keon can play in the middle. I know he doesn't want to play in the middle, but geez, that squad, full strength with him in the forward rotation, in the front row rotation, for me, it's a scary side to play. Totola, Keon, Jairo, Cam Murray,
that's one like you leave out of all this, and it's always we've had no Latrell, Campbell Graham's been out all year. It's like Totola, he hasn't been here for months.
Literally, and like we always speak about, the front row is one of the most underrated parts of rugby league. Like every team that's at the tippity top, they got the best essential front rowers. Like you look at the Penrith Panthers, they have the best front row pairing in the competition. Like they are the key to everything that Nathan Cleary puts on. It all is off the backs of Fisher Harris and Leota. You go back to the grand final, they went off for 20 minutes, like the usual stints. Broncos come back in the game. Leota and Fisher Harris come back on. Guess who completely wrangles momentum back underneath back to the Penrith Panthers and gives Cleary the platform to do what he does? It's Leota and Fisher Harris. And if you lose a guy like Totola, who in the plan, when you looked at their roster in the planning, they would have planned for Totola to be their big dog, their main guy this year. Like he was their main guy. You could see Burgess getting a little bit older.
Put it this way, 2022, he wins South Player of the Year. He's played 21 games since then.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. So I actually really liked what I saw from the Rabbitohs. Very easy for them to just go, man, stuff this. But they didn't. They didn't hung in there, so good on them. Okay. Before we get into Sharks Titans, don't forget all 8 games are live and ad-free during play on KO. Some key games this week: Manly versus Warriors, Bulldogs versus Dolphins, and Cowboys versus Raiders, exclusive to Fox League and available on KO. And don't forget, guys, KO is sending me over to Perth for $305. We'll get a link in the description. If you're going to buy the fight, make sure to buy it in the use the link in the description. I'll be over there doing content all week long, so stay tuned for that.
Mr. 305, Pitbull.
Oh, did you hear the news where he apparently has bought a stadium and it's called a Pitbull Stadium? But they should call it the Pit.
Oh, yeah.
Like it.
The Pit's a great name for a stadium.
Well, that'll be the nickname for sure.
Surely the Pit.
Got to get your bald cap and a little flavour saver for UFC.
Little moustache.
Yeah.
And don't forget as well, Sportsbet, brand new feature, same fight multi.
Yeah.
It's the same game multi, but a fight multi.
Correct.
Boom.
Hit Flo Denon on the feed for his same fight multi.
Give us a follow. Yeah, because I'll be smashing the same fight multi. Smashing it. Give us a follow on the feed. Give Hammy a follow on the feed. Alrighty. Sharkies defeat the Titans 44-0. What an incredible win from the Sharkies. First of all, I want to say I don't know shit about rugby league. Because last week, I was up here talking about, okay, I've waited as long as I can wait. The Titans have turned a corner. Desi's done it. And just like clockwork, get absolutely pulverised by the Sharkies and make me look like an idiot. So there you go. I say a lot of dumb things. Might have been the dumbest thing I've ever said because they got absolutely smashed 44-0 by the Sharkies.
At least you didn't take Titans 13 plus like Matty.
I won the week, mate.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's talk about the Sharkies first. I love this style of footy from the Sharkies. And I think that they should focus on, like when Nico and Trindle play, they play a little bit like this, but nowhere near as direct as this. Whereas I think Fitzgibbon's ability to go, okay, we don't have Hines, we don't have Trindle, let's just go straight through the middle and just play a pure power game. At one stage, they had their ruck speed was so much faster than the Titans. Like the Titans genuinely couldn't keep up. They were down to 3.07 seconds average play the ball speed. And I think if you in Origin, you're looking at some Origins are around 2.99. I think the grand final last year was around the 3 second mark. That's how fast the ruck speed was. And so if I'm the Sharkies and Fitzgibbon, I'm looking at that and going, how can we keep this game plan but just add Hines and Trindle onto it rather than the reverse of it's a Hines-Trindle game plan that we add the power game onto it? Because this is a point of difference. Like when you see Manly and you see the Bulldogs spreading the ball a lot, getting to edges and all that kind of stuff, that's one style of footy. But this is the complete opposite, and it actually suits the way they play, and I thought they did a great job. Now, you could make the argument that that kind of power play may not work against the Penrith Panthers because they've got such a big, strong forward pack, but that's where you go, well, how do you make it so it's tweak it a little bit with you sprinkle on top the Hines and Trindle. I thought they were outstanding, and I think that surely they take something away from that game plan because they were phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm so off the Titans. I will talk about the Sharks, I promise, but you just finally have full faith and belief in them, and they dish up this tripe. The Sharkies, on the other hand, I think what leans into that, Kempy, is that Craig Fitzgibbons has always picked a 4-forward bench, and he doesn't really tend to go with a utility there because he thinks he can cover it in different ways if players go down. But the 4-forward bench, and two of those forwards being Royce Hunt and Tommy Hazelton, two explosive front rows coming through the middle, and that's it, mate. They were just relentless in this. They could not stop the momentum through the middle, the Titans. They just obliterated them, and isn't it fascinating? Like you said, they really simplified their game without Braden Trindle and Nicho Hines in their regular halves. But Daniel Atkinson, who is now 2 from 2, leading a team by himself, a bloke who no one had heard of coming into the year.
And Brayley finally playing like he's the main guy pretty much.
Like, there was the Storm game, 25-18 down there without their regular halves, and they beat Melbourne. And then in this game, Titans came in as favourites, and the Sharkies just pounded them. So Atkinson, that's incredible from him. It was a faultless performance from the Sharks, and you add into it, and you'll probably talk about it soon, Campy, but with how badly they tried to get that penalty counter to a more squared up in that second half, the Sharks had everything against was just penalty Titans. I think they ended up winning the penalty count quite convincingly, and the Sharks still managed to keep them scoreless. It was a flawless performance.
It was something like 18-6 or something like that. I cannot we'll talk about the penalty count at the end because I cannot for the life of me see how a team can be dominating 30-0 and be needing to give away penalties in the ruck. Anyway, we'll get to it later. At one stage, this is how dominant they were. The run meters for the Sharks was 700 meters compared to 268 for the Titans. I thought it was probably... I know it's against the Titans, so it's very hard to kind of go all in with this is a season-defining win or whatever, because it's not. You need to do that against the top-tier sides. But it's one of the best Sharkies performances I've ever seen, in the last few years.
And it is what it is. Yes, the Titans were terrible, but from the word go... I spoke before about the Storm dominating the first half against South Sydney and they couldn't finish the job. The Sharks did that and more. And it's said, yes, the Titans are poor. The Sharks made them look poor because they never let them into the game, never gave an opportunity to wrestle back any momentum. The Titans were firing with, they had AJ Brimson back, a strong team, playing for a final spot. They had everything on the line. So sometimes you got to just look at it and go, the Sharkies were way too good.
It's way too good. And I thought Blake Brayley's best game in a very long time. And you got to see him, because it's such a Hines dominant side, Brayley's job with him is just to shovel in the ball, get in the ball. Whereas in this situation where Fitzgibbon would have said, Brayley, it's got to be all around the ruck. One of the tries, the Hazelton try, I'm pretty sure it was a Hazelton try, it wasn't even really a line break. It was genuinely just, we played such high tempo that we fell over the line. There wasn't any magic, there wasn't any crazy, sneaky plays of deception. It was, we're going to run so hard, so fast, that you're not going to be able to get off the line. And by the end of this set, we will literally just fall over the line. Just an outstanding win for the Sharkies. In regards to performances, as I said, I thought Brayley was one of the best games he's had. But I've got to say, Jack Williams, what a performance from Jack Williams. And, it makes that question tough because Cam McInnes, he was named at 9, but basically played as almost a front rower to a degree. Very weird kind of where to place him. I tell you what, with Jack Williams playing like that, he's playing like that every week. You find a way to keep him there.
If you can, as I said, if you can replicate that, yeah, you might have to. And I don't know what it is, just something in the waters down in the snowy mountains. They just breed tough athletes.
Oh, man.
But, mate, Jack's build, it's so suited to the modern day front rows. I know he played lock, but he's playing essentially as a middle forward and a prop forward. He's got speed. He's agile in and around the ruck. He's got really good leg drive. he just suits it so good. And he played big minutes on the weekend, ran for over 200 metres, scored a try, one of his best games in the top grade. And as you said, it's a pretty stacked Sharkies forward pack, but if you can replicate that, he's going to be hard to drop to the bench.
Like this, and this is a key stat that I love. Like we've talked how good they were in attack, because they were incredible in attack. 5 line breaks to 0. That Titan side, with the stars that they have in it, with how good they look with the ball in hand, didn't get a single line break. And what was so impressive is just the desperation on their line that the Sharkies showed. I just wonder, like, is there a way, because there's one thing that maybe Williams has over Cam McInnes is probably a bit more explosive running game. So I just wonder, is there something to tweak there, especially when you look at, they're actually quite big. Like Royce Hunt, he's a massive forward. Kafusi, quite a big forward. Then on the bench, Rudolph had easily the best game of the season for Rudolph. I thought he was outstanding. But like, I wonder if there is a way to almost keep Hunt as a pure impact 20-minute player and give Williams more time on the field. Maybe even keep Hazelton. Hazelton played 39 minutes. Maybe you keep him around the 30-minute mark to give a guy like Williams time to get on the field. Because like, the funny thing is that even though they had Hines and Trindle out, they actually had enough probably forwards to keep Williams, to have Williams on the bench. So I just wonder if there's a way to kind of squeeze him in the side.
And Matt, I don't think you want too many minutes in Royce Hunt. Like, the longer he plays, and it's not even a massive knock on him. He's a big boy. Like, some lazy things coming to his game, but as an X-factor forward for punch off the bench, like almost like that Spencer Lenny type role, he plays it really well. And Jack Williams is a really fit middle forward and can play these bigger minutes. I think the question as to whether he starts and, you know, they play Cameron McInnes in a slightly different role, it comes back to, all right, do they want to play this all through the middle explosive, will knock down the front door like a Canberra Raiders, and to a lesser degree probably the Brisbane Broncos, like with Pat Carrigan at lock, or do they want that sort of Sydney Roosters ball-playing lock with a Connor Watson, who's more of that Cam McInnes mould, used as the link man, which they've obviously done in the past, and, you know, they want to get good ball to Nico Hines. How do they want to, which style of pack do they want? But as I said, the 4-forward bench, to me, suggests let's just belt you down the middle.
Yeah, well, I mean, they went down to Melbourne and did it. They've done it to a red-hot Titans, and look, Titans played terribly, but part of the reason why they played terribly because they were completely dominated in the first 20 minutes. And I just wonder, in the modern game of rugby league, like Williams suits, like the amount of teams that we're looking at having, like Nathan Brown's resurgence, this mobile front rower in the middle, 13 kind of player. Williams suits that. Like, you look at the Bulldogs, like Curran in the middle. Like, I just wonder if he suits, as I said earlier in the piece, is like, is there a way to kind of just grab what they did on the weekend and sprinkle Hines on the top rather than it be Hines and sprinkle this on the top?
To be fair, you can just start him at prop if you really want to. Yeah. And he can be 55, 60 maybe pushing it. But like, he can be his minutes fluctuate all year, but he's around that sort of 40-minute mark. You can play him 50 to 55 minutes as a starting prop and have Cameron McInnes at lock if you want. Like, if that's, you can have both.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but they essentially did that on the weekend, really. What do you reckon of the Sharkies, Hammy?
Well, I think the way you just summed it up there is spot on. You know, if they can keep this going and then sprinkle those guys back on top, I don't know. This was just such an impressive performance. You know, you've kind of got to think, why would you try to go back to any other style of kind of play? So, yeah, very, very impressive. Obviously, I'm with you guys. I thought Jackie Williams was unreal as well. Britton Nicker as well. I thought he was really good. Just gets better and better. And even just like all the other stuff that he does all the time, but his little deft touches, his little try assist that he had as well. Like, I thought he was outstanding too. But
I loved how he went after Fafita too.
Yeah,
not many blokes go after Fafita, and there was one point where just jammed him under his ribs. The other boys came in, they drove him back 5 meters. They got up smiling. Like, very rarely does a defender go after Fafita, and to a degree, win the battle.
Yeah, no, he was unreal, Nicola, I thought as well. We're probably going to get to him. I'm sure you guys have got a bit to say about Stone Street as well, but how good did he look? Unbelievable.
And it was just his deft touch as well. Some of his, like, he's actually quite a big athletic player. And when you're so big athletic the way he looks, again, I'd have to meet him in real life to get his kind of measure of him physically. Usually you don't have that deft, grubber inside and stuff like that, but he does. Like, he's an exciting. Obviously, you've got Mulatalo to come back in. He's one of the better wingers in the competition, but I like what I see with Stone Street.
When he scooped up that ball to run away and score the essentially length of field try, he was so low to the ground. He was like a baby giraffe finding his legs for the first time. And he managed to get himself upright and keep himself going. It was like, he's a really balanced runner. He's a really good athlete, isn't he?
Yeah,
There's a big future in Sammy Stone Street. He was excellent.
Cracking rugby league name too. Stone Street.
Oh, man.
Set your watch to that one.
And so, like, again, the positive for the Sharkies is last year you had Ido sitting in New South Wales Cup. Definitely an NRL standard outside back. Now you've got the great Stone Street, most likely sitting in New South Wales Cup. Definitely NRL standard. Like, what a replacement to have if Mulatalo or Katoa are not there.
Well, if a wing goes down, Stone Street comes up and has just ticked every box thus far in his short NRL career. If a centre goes down, you can shift Siva Talakai out there as well. They have so many great options, don't they?
It's interesting to see what they do because he's on contract until next year, Stone Street, and he's definitely an NRL player, so I wonder if he'll stay.
Yeah, going to be tough to keep him. Really tough. Because, like, Mulatalo, I mean, if he's going to put pressure on anyone, probably Katoa. Definitely not on Mulatalo at this stage. But, yeah, I mean, Katoa's been there and done that for a while now, so very tough. What an incredible win. What a great win. And once again, like, I personally feel, I feel the Sharks, they don't get the appreciation they deserve. Like, I understand that, yes, are they still a step away from a premiership? Probably. But I tell you what, there's so many clubs out there that would take the Sharks finishing over the last few years over what they've got currently. You know, in and out of top eights and, you know, all that. Whereas the Sharkies, just building nicely, get out in Fanua Blake next year. I think it's a great win for the club. On to the Titans. Far out, man. They make it impossible to gauge when you analyse the game and you're trying to talk about the Titans. Like, I felt like we had been so reluctant all year, like the whole season, we'd been reluctant to say the Titans have turned a corner because of the history of the club of how often you feel like they've turned a corner and then the next week they go, boom, and they put up one of their worst performances. And they do it again. And so, like, how can I sit here and say that this Titans team is better than last year when they go and do stuff like that? Like, right now, so on the ladder right now, they are 13th. Last year, I think they ended up around the 14th mark. Could you please check for me, Matty? So they're 13th, but the Warriors have a game in hand, so they're actually 14th. I just don't know. Like, that was such a disappointing performance, and I don't know where it came from. They'd be going so well. Look, if they got beaten by the Sharks, fair enough. 44-0, not a single line break. How does that happen after the last few weeks of footy you've been playing?
They finished 14th last year.
14th last. So they're in the same spot right now, in the same spot as where they finished.
Well, if they win one of their last however many rounds are left, they would have had the same amount of wins because they won 9 last year, they're on 8 this year.
Jeez. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I can't make any sense of it either, mate. And as you said, like, if they lost 30-10, I'd be like, oh, it's disappointing, but great Sharks performance. But 44-0,
not a single line break.
And it was the inability. Again, I keep saying credit to the Sharks, but it was just the inability for the Titans to wrestle back any momentum in this game. Like, just about every game of NRL you ever watch, at some stage the momentum has to swing, even if for a brief window, and then it's up to the side coming from behind. Can they make use of that momentum and get themselves back in the game? That window didn't happen for the Titans. And
they were given 18 penalties. Yeah. The penalty count was 18-8.
Can I run you through some specific numbers around that? So the first 30 minutes, when the Sharks were up 30-0, and then they kicked off, Titans got a penalty. At that point, the penalty count was 6-3 to the Titans. The next, from the 30th minute after that to the 76th minute, the penalty count, and this is including 6 agains, was 15-0.
15 friggin' penalties, 6 again. And when I say penalty, guys, we're including the 6 again struck infringement.
So 6-3 in the first 30, 15-0 the other way, and then in the last 2 minutes, the Titans got a couple.
I guess we'll talk about it. How does that happen? How can one team give 15 penalties away in a row unless you know what I'm going to say?
Unfortunately, mate, I'll say it for you, it's refs getting square ups because at the end of the game, especially in a one-sided game, it can't afford to look like a team that's done 44-0 and then the Sharkies win a penalty count, 14-1, and so it's bias and all that. So they know they can square up the penalty count and nothing will be said about it. And it happens time and time again. It happened in Origin
This
too.
wasn't even squaring up, though.
Yeah.
18-8.
Well, mate, we saw it in Origin too, and we see it time and time again because when it's lopsided and a one-sided result, saying if it was lopsided towards the Sharks, there's blow-ups and also nothing's going to change either.
Yeah, but then the thing, though, like, let's say it was lopsided for the Sharks and the Sharks won the penalty count. That would make sense. They won 44-0. So
How
they
do you
were
not win the penalty count when you win 44-0?
Exactly. And not only how do you not win it, how do you get 15 penalties in a row against you? How does that happen? Anyway.
Through the...
It's not good enough, man. It's just not.
So inside 10 metres, that'd be the 6 again. Yeah. It's like that was 1-1. The speed, the domination they had through the ruck, the Sharkies, how do they not have more than one there?
Yeah. It's just genuinely mental. Anyway.
Sorry, ruck infringement. Yeah, right.
Anyway, here's what it is. But yeah, with the Titans, there's bad performances and then there's those performances. Like, I don't know what happened there. Like, how can they go out and play like that with the amount of legs up that they did get 15 penalties in a row and they didn't get one line break? That's incredibly alarming. Incredibly alarming.
I'll just borrow your tinfoil hat for a second there, Kempy, if that's all right, mate. Brian Kelly missed the game due to illness. Was he thrown up or was he dropped for AJ Brimson?
I'm not sure. I mean, is it flu season? I don't know. I think it is. Maybe. It is very good timing to get Brimo back into the side. Because
they had to get him back in there somewhere. It was always going to be a dilemma on how to do it. And he might have been ill. I don't know. But they said they had to get him back in somewhere, and far out. If Kelly was dropped as a result of getting Brimo in, that is stiff.
Oh, man. This is hard to talk about because there's really no positives. I mean, I think Brimo had one really good try saver early on. But outside of that, it was so poor. Poor errors. Some defensive lapses of mistrust inside because they haven't played many together.
Dave Fafita, lazy game. There are a few efforts from Marker where I think one was for the Hazleton try, just didn't get off the line, no intensity. There was another one that they scored off, and I think it was at Mark, and it was just very blasé, but getting square and getting where he needed to be. Some of his contact was ordinary. It was... I've hardly said a bad word about Dave Fafita this year. This was one of the bad games.
In the first half, the VB hard earned indexed, not a single Titans player in it. How does that happen? And the worrying thing for the Titans is that they have this, we wrap them up, they have these incredible wins, and we're all sitting there going, yep, how good. But they're 14 still. How can we honestly sit here and say that they've made progress? And I sound like an idiot because I am the one last week saying that they had made progress. So I'm the one that's an idiot. I'm the one that's wrong because I thought they had. But how can you say that when they dish up a 44-0 performance like that?
Yeah. Their best and their worst is so far apart. So a couple of weeks ago, obviously, they lost to the Tigers at Leichhardt, famous victory. Then the week after, they put 66 points on the Warriors. Absolutely tear them apart. Last week, they had a great win against the Broncos. Then they dished this up this week. The consistency is the concerning thing. The one reason I will say they are a better team this year than they were last year is because if you write off those first 6 games at the start of the year where they went 9-6, they didn't win a game in their first 6. If you were to look from that point on, there has been improvement from the same point in the season last year. But
the only problem is that let's say you go, okay, what I'll do to the Titans, I'll give you that first 6 because you had a new coach.
Yep.
And you turn a corner. But then I can't also give you the inconsistency. You know what I mean? If you've turned a corner, you get that first 6 of the season, but you don't also get me going, oh, okay, at the end of the season, you're really inconsistent still, but you also have the 6 at the start of the season. You know what I'm saying?
Fair point,
it's either one or the other. You actually, you just can't give both. You can't give both. It is genuinely perplexing. Take away the fact Desi's coaching. Does that look like a typical Titan side that we've seen for the last 5 years?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't know. Look, maybe Desi needs another preseason. I'm banking on Desi another whole preseason with them that they will be better.
Yep.
But honestly, it's going to take probably a whole year of good footy for me to be able to say they've turned a good. Like they pretty much need to be where the Dragons are right now, or better next year, for me to be able to say I think they've turned a corner.
Yeah.
Like just really, really poor, really poor. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
So depressing. I was so excited last week. So excited. Like
we all backed him.
We all backed him. We were so
Matty
pumped
was
about him.
particularly excited about what he saw.
Because
Don't let him on that go, Hammy.
the problem is that let's say they come out and for the next month they go really well, we're still going to be like, well, the game's coming. Like this bad game, it's coming. It's coming.
If it's a one-off, I'll give it to them because there aren't many sides in the competition, particularly those ranked probably 6 onwards this season who haven't had just a blowout game or a terrible
Didn't they
result.
get beaten by the Tigers though recently, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah. If they can be consistent for the next month to finish the season, they've definitely turned a corner. Because just about every team has had, maybe outside the top 4, even then you'd make a case, have a terrible result in a terrible game. Long season it happens. What can they do for next month?
Yeah. Hopefully. I hope so. Because, as I said, I was so stoked for them last week. But unfortunately, at the moment, it doesn't look like they are a different side than what they were the last few years. They look like the same side that has these like really good runs of footy where you go incredible, and then they just have they have 2 or 3 weeks incredibly poor, incredibly good, incredibly poor. And the concerning thing is that given we go, okay, those first 6 rounds, we'll give you that because you're starting with Desi, but in return, you can no longer be super inconsistent. You don't necessarily have to make finals footy, but instead of losing to the Sharks 44-0, you lose, 26-10, and you go, okay, so they're still around the 12th, 13th mark on the table, but the blowouts aren't there. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's not looking like a team that has improved drastically on last year at all.
Yeah.
Alrighty, just before we get to the Panthers v Eels, breaking news: the NRL is reportedly set to add an exciting new crinkle to the game. Grand final day with a series of events to be staged in the lead up to the decider, including a sprint race between league's fastest players. Sydney Morning Herald had reported the NRL CEO Abdo informed the league's 17 teams of the plan, which has been dubbed the Mini Olympics by some club executives. There's still plenty of water to go under the bridge before it's made official, but similar to the skills challenges in the NBA run during the All-Star weekend, events such as goal kicking competition, longest kick, and a sprint between forwards may find themselves on the itinerary for Grand Final Day either this season or next. What appears likely, though, is that the first edition of the race to crown the game's fastest man and women is set to be held in 2024. Okay, I like it. We've been calling for this for ages. A sprint race, 100 metres, to figure out who the game's fastest man is. Now, granted, doing it on Grand Final Day, I don't like it because the teams that don't make the finals, they haven't trained for at least 4 weeks. A lot of them be away. A lot of them be like, look, I'm not cancelling my trip over to Europe to come and sprint for the week. But let's just assume, like I personally think, and I think we all agree on this, we spoke about in the green room, doing it on Magic Round is the best week to do it. They're all there. It's only 100 metres, blah, blah, blah. They're all fit. It's good to go. I think Magic Round is a much better setting because, as I just said, they are literally all there. They're fully fit. They're in their peak condition in the middle of the season. And also it's Magic Round. So, you've got, like, every team's fans is there to, watch it. So, anyway, I think Magic Round. But that all aside, let's assume that every player will be there Grand Final Day. Who would win the fastest in 100 metres currently standing? Now, I'll throw some people up. Mm-hmm. You've got Khan Pereira. You've got Saab. You've got Tabuai Fido. You've got the Fox, all named. You've got Xavier Savage. You've got Cooler. So there's plenty of people to pick from. Me personally, though, I reckon Khan Pereira wins the first 50, maybe 60. And Saab, once he hits top speed, wins the race with Savage and Cooler. They're my top kind of 5. So Savage, Cooler, Khan Pereira, Saab. Saab wins it because his top speed, I reckon, is probably the most out of the lot. Even though Savage, state champion, he's a state champion. Cooler is also a state champion in the 100 metres sprints.
Yes. Firstly, to the NRL, congratulations. Like, we've called for this for so long, and the concept is brilliant, and I hope they do like goal kicking challenge and stuff as well. As you said, Kempy, like Magic Round's the time to do it because people are going to be on holidays. They're not going to stay around for a 100-metre run and this and that and cancel their holidays. But they put it in place. It's brilliant. Hopefully one day we can get it to Magic Round where everyone's in it, everyone's up there, etc.
Magic Round. Imagine that you could charge for the tickets to watch that.
It'd be incredible. But yeah, look, they're doing it, so good stuff. Guru and I had this conversation a week or two ago, and I'm with you. I think Jason Saab, and you just look at the big boy stretch out. He's got Usain Bolt written all over him. It would be slower out of the blocks than the other boys, and he definitely won't be leading at the 50. I think there are so many elite speedsters over 40 to 50 metres that would be leading halfway through, and I think you'd see a few of the big rangy blokes come over the top, and Jason Saab's number one. I think he wins over 100 metres. The Smokies there are Tolotau Kola, who eye test to me doesn't look as quick as some of the others, but
I think he's put on a bit of weight too.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But like the times that he used to run and all this, and like in actual sprint events,
and Savage as well.
Yeah, and Savage, they suggest that it's probably them. The other real smoky one there, and again, I haven't seen it eye test wise, but I've heard a lot that's Jojo Feeder's faster than Khan Pereira at the Titans, and
that's
people are pretty
key.
adamant.
And that's the difference is like, there's footy speed, footy fast, but also top speed. Top speed is your key. And so, like, Khan Pereira I reckon Khan Pereira wins the first 60. Even a guy like Reece Walsh the first 20 would be like up there with the best. His actual top speed is actually not that quick. His first 20 is unbelievable. First 10.
If Reece Walsh was in the race, I think barring Khan Pereira, I think he probably leads after 20 Reece Walsh, then comes last.
Yeah, because his top speed isn't that great. I just think Saab at top speed would be hard to beat. Now, granted, though, maybe he takes too long to hit his top speed, and a guy like Savage or Kola. I agree with you, though. Numbers-wise and what they've achieved, it actually should be a race between Kola and Savage. If you're looking at what they've actually done in athletics, Savage and Kola would be like genuine. Like, if you stripped a bit of weight off from the footy weight that they put on, would be like those two boys could have probably pushed for sprinting for the country if they had stuck specifically to that. Who do you reckon?
I've got a couple here, and I take your point around a few people are going to go away if they don't make the finals. So if there's a couple of players who are going to go a little bit deep into the finals, but their team I don't think is going to make the grand final, Saab ticks that box for me. I think they'll probably be thereabouts. The other one is Dom Young, potentially. I think we haven't even spoken about Dom Young. He's doing a bit of training with Roger Fabry.
Dom Young, I reckon 200 metres would be interesting.
Yep.
Big, powerful, have that a bit more power to get that last 50 to 100 metres.
Yep. Training with Roger, though.
Okay.
See what he can do. And Tabuai Fido, he's another one there who you spoke about briefly, but when he gets going, he gets it right up there. I hope they make a full event out of it, though. Like when they walk out for the 100-metre final, they've got like the AV kind of thing with their team colours behind them and all that sort of stuff. Like, it'll be a great event.
I know Roger would like this, but he could literally like stand and wave a flag like a race car girl.
Yep.
He'd love that. He would love that. Who do you reckon, Matty?
Yeah, so I reckon, as you guys said, over 10-20, Reece Walsh out the blocks. But yeah, I say someone like Saab winning the 100 metre. It's funny, a few years ago, I would have said Addo Carr over 40. No one's touching him because I remember it was Bulldogs versus Titans game. And I think he might have took an intercept. And he actually got chased down by Jojo Fafita and like just before the try line. So Jojo Fafita is an absolute dark horse.
I'll tell you who, take all the weight off him. If he was in his prime, Jimmy the Jet.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He would be. He's one of the fastest I've seen in real life. Where I've just gone, if you took that weight off him, this footy weight, and you just train him at sprinting, his explosiveness is just
over
unreal.
40 especially. Like crazy.
I was at Olympic Park in, I reckon, 2010 watching a prelim final Holden Cup prelim final between South Sydney and the Canberra Raiders.
Oh, I was there too.
Wow. And the bunnies were stacked. And Jimmy the Jet took off from his own try line down like a 2-metre corridor of defence. I've never seen a bloke move quicker in my life.
Yeah, it was from his own dead ball line.
Yeah.
He is so explosive. Like his fast twitch and explosiveness. Super
I will
quick.
say as well, as much as I'd love to get it on Magic Round, good luck getting the clubs to tick that one off.
Well, it's only a 100-metre sprint.
Yes.
I'm just thinking of Tommy Turbo at the Manly Corsa.
Well, you wouldn't
This
enter
wouldn't be
Tommy
it.
Turbo.
Yeah,
You wouldn't enter Tommy Turbo. If anyone's under an injury cloud, you just don't enter him.
Yep.
And also, like, you make...
I agree.
The reason why that happened is because he's not warmed up. Like, a prime athlete that's lighter, without a lot of muscle mass, that warms up, properly, probably not going to. That's not going to.
And I agree. And I want it
to
happen. I can just see the red tape from here.
But I mean, why would they do it for grand final day but not Magic Round?
Because they're not in season.
So you reckon they'd be still like if they do something they're okay because it's not
Well, pre-season's 6-8 weeks away.
I think if the NRL said, guys, if you don't have trust that your player can't run 100 metres at top speed, what the hell are they doing on a footy field?
Would the
I know what you're saying though, Matty. I know what you're saying.
would the Beak have got a start in the final 8 back in the day?
I back myself. Literally, God made my face to be aerodynamic. So what are you talking about? Literally made by the gods to split the air.
Would he have podiumed?
Would have won, mate. What are you talking about? Hey, podiumed over here. Give me a break. Oh, jeez, no respect. No respect.
No, you would have podiumed at the Broncos.
Would you have worn the controversial green bloke speed suit used in the?
I would have had
15.7 is the time.
You know what?
With the speed suit.
They may not have even entered me because this is performance enhancing. So they may have been there may have been some once I won the race there might have been some challenges from other teams. But yeah, look, I love it. I hope they do it regardless of how it all works out. Just do it, and all the other stuff like a passing drill. Imagine a kicking drill. How like
It'd be brilliant.
It'd be brilliant. Like who can land the most inside this certain.
I'd like that, like shuffleboard almost.
Oh my God.
Actually, Hammy, you've won 2 grand final day sprints.
Been there, done that. Not grand final day. And now this was, to Dennis's point, mid-season when all the mascots were at their fittest. This was the AFL mascot race at the EJ Whitten halftime race. As Woofer 2012, 2013. Go and look them up. I did go back to back. Yeah.
You went back to back?
No
we'll
big
get
deal.
we'll get that footage up for the snippet.
No big deal. Stop bringing it up. Not important. I did go back to back, but I was in the middle of the season, so it's a good point that you make. All the mascots were at their fittest, and that's when you got to see the best athletic displays from the mascots.
It is one of the greatest pieces of content I've ever seen. And you see them all line up, and they're all having fun with it, and people come out of the blocks doing, like, cartwheels and all this sort of stuff, and you just see the woofer just ready to go and just pounce at 100 mile an hour. I've never seen a bloke more in the zone. A dog in the zone.
It is high quality stuff. It's almost like a prophecy that you would end up on the biggest sports podcast. Like that moment is what glued you into this path of your prophecy that you end up because you were such a dribbler that you're in a fucking mascot uniform racing.
A lot of people told me I was wasting my time, wasting my life when I was doing it. Look at me now.
and then weren't you going for 3 consecutive and the other mascots conspired against you and tackled you?
Yep, I protested and it got thrown out, unfortunately.
So we love it. So what I love about this administration for the NRL is like they do listen to the punter sometimes. Like they do. There has been a lot of parts of our game that the punter has yelled about a lot that this administration has gone, you know what, we're going to do something about it. For example, the wrestle. Like we hated it. They did something about it. So good stuff from the administration. Alrighty, let's get into it. Also, don't forget, in a couple of weeks, not next week, but the week after. So, oh my God. The 26th, 6 p.m, the OG drop is happening. A brand new merch drop. Trust me, you want to be there. Father's Day drop, the OG drop. Very limited supply, but guys, this is one. This is the one. Trust me, it's one of my favourite pieces that we've ever done. If not, outside of jerseys are their own. The OG jersey for me, the original jersey, which we're not dropping, but that's my favourite. But outside of that, this is the number one. So that is not next Monday, but the Monday after, 6 p.m, limited number. We will reveal what we're dropping. The OG drop, the Father's Day drop, we'll reveal it probably next week. Alrighty, Panthers defeat the Eels 36-34. Holy. So I'm sitting there doing my notes going, wow, I'm seeing chinks in the armour. I'm seeing a complacent Penrith Panthers, something that we have not seen for quite a while. I'm seeing, Dane Laurie going for flick passes that he should never go for. I'm seeing Jerome Luai not backing their defence by reaching out and trying to get the ball out of their own in goal, whereas I feel like a Jerome Luai in finals footy probably doesn't do that. Many decisions where I'm going, I'm seeing a complacent Penrith Panthers. Something that we had not seen for a very long time. Now, if there is any team in the history of sport that had every right to be complacent, it's the Penrith Panthers. It is actually a miracle that we haven't seen them be complacent before. It was the first signs of it. I was starting to look, I think there's cracks here. I think some of their edge defence needs a bit of work. And then they go, you know what? We're going to kick into gear here. We're going to kick into gear here. It was genuinely, you could see the moment where they said, okay, we really need to, we need to win this game now. Everything changed. Cleary, honestly, I reckon he picked up an extra 2 Ks of just move, the amount of time, he would make his play and he would be sprinting back into position, make his play, sprint, the intensity lifted from probably a 5 to a 10 out of 10. And I've never seen a team be able to so easily just say, boys, we need to win this game, and then actually just do it. Just be too fast, just be too strong, be too good. I've never seen it happen. And that's what we saw with the Eels versus the Panthers. We saw Panthers go, we need to win this, and every single player just go, we're just too good for the opposition. The Eels literally just couldn't do anything about it. They were just too good. It was an incredible comeback from the Panthers. I can't recall a time I've ever seen it. And if you want to look at the glass half empty, they can't keep doing this. They did against the Dolphins. There's been a couple of games where the Panthers have come out a bit lackluster, a bit underdone. The problem is if you keep doing this, then you may get into the habit of, we can just win the game with our attack. You look at the Brisbane Broncos. We all agree they kind of fell into that at the start of this year where they go, we'll just win this game with our attack by the end of the year. So the Panthers can't afford to make this a trend. But I tell you what, the fact that they can do it, it is phenomenal. A crazy back into the game. Eels, I feel so sorry for them because they played a bloody good game, such a good game of rugby league. But Panthers just showed they're another level. They're another level to every other team in the competition right now.
Yeah, and look, I won't sugarcoat it in any way, shape or form. The Penrith Panthers were really poor in this game. They were extremely complacent. They would have been absolutely rinsed by Ivan Cleary in the sheds after the game. You could see
looking in the box, he was pissed.
Mate, they were terrible. This is a near, real bottom tier side in the competition at the moment. The Parramatta Eels, at least, looking at the table. And Parramatta should have won this game. They'll be filthy. They couldn't close it out. But it was also remarkable that they just turn it on and score 3 tries in 6.5 minutes. They're incredible.
Yeah.
This was a terrible game for them. They still got a win.
They couldn't have played worse.
No.
It was genuinely the last 8 minutes, or just say 10 minutes, is when they really played at the intensity they know they should play at. And they just went bang, 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 couldn't be stopped. Game over.
Remarkable victory. An incredible game of football. And overall, it won't matter for Penrith. If anything, it'll be a really good wake-up call that they need. It's you know how you say, at the end of every season, teams that are on a string of wins, they need a loss at some point as a wake-up call. This was almost better because they didn't have the loss, but they got the wake-up call, especially leading into a potential minor premiership game with the Storm next week. The one thing that we are seeing recurring for Penrith that is a massive concern, week in, week out, it's the right edge defence. And
got that on my notes
mate,
here.
It's
big concern.
It's Isaac Tungo. He's forgotten how to tackle. He's shot for confidence. He doesn't know whether to jam, whether to hold, whether to slide.
And I think it's Cleary too. I think Cleary is
he's not alone.
He's struggling to that connection to trust each other.
Yeah.
I think it's just not there at the moment.
And that's it. One poor performance from the team, you're okay. They'll click into gear next week. It'll be a wake-up call. But we've seen all season, Tungo's edge defence it's just fallen off the face of the cliff.
Dolphins tore that edge apart with Katoa just going at it all game, all first half. Look,
I don't know if they've got the stocks immediately to do it because of a few injuries, but conversations will be had. Do we drop Isaac Tungo? Because he's the only chink that I see in this Penrith armour at the moment. Teams will exploit it and teams will have success unless he turns it around very quickly.
Well, because I'm even seeing, because Toto, he got moved across to that side.
So 3 weeks in a row. I think I said last week he'd only been there for 1 week. It's actually, that was his 3rd game in a row, so they moved it over. You'd think
because Taruva and Tongo were struggling.
Yeah.
So they moved Taruva to the other side. I know he'd been in our first grade, but they moved him to the other side. But even Toto, he made some defensive reads where I was like, wow, Toto doesn't usually do that. And I just think it's that whole edge. They are really struggling to trust each other. Not necessarily in the sense of they don't want to play for each other. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about purely they are not on the same page when it comes to defensive reads. They're not in sync and they are worried is he going to jam in? Is he not going to jam in? And it's becoming a real problem where teams are finding a lot of success down that edge.
Per team, and this is some stats via the Stats Insider website. It has the breakdown of where tries are scored. It's the worst percentage edge per team in the competition. So it's not the worst defensive edge in the competition, but that right edge is conceding 59% of the Panthers' tries compared to 25%. So for context, the Doggies' right edge, it's the second worst at 52%. And then after that, every other team's around 50%. Just to emphasise, it doesn't mean it's the worst defensive edge in the comp. There are teams that have scored more tries or conceded down that edge, but that is where teams target Penrith and have success.
Yeah. And also the fact that Toto got moved over there suggests that the Panthers are aware of it.
Oh, yeah.
And they're really struggling to find that trust. Now, granted, I trust in their systems that they will, but I tell you what, if you're going into a grand final, I know where I'd be attacking. And also, where did all the tries come last year in that grand final?
Yeah. See,
Then right edge.
I'm not convinced, like long term, that they'll sort it out because his confidence is shot, and it's not a 3 or 4 game sample size. It's been all season.
So you think that by the time finals rolls around, that might still be a concern?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He's been poor defensively all season. Like it doesn't just turn on a.
I think that whether it's someone else has put in there or whatever, I think Ivan will fix it before finals footy comes around.
Could that be without Isaac Tungo?
Maybe. Whatever it is, I believe Ivan will fix it. You reckon he won't?
I'm just looking at the options to. It's the Penrith Panthers. It's Ivan Clear. He probably does, but he's a huge area of concern because it's not an easy fix unless Tungo sorts himself out. Because I look at the replacements. Paul Alamoti's injured. He's due back maybe around 25 something. Not a good defensive centre either. Tyrone Peachey is playing centre in New South Wales Cup. Could it be one last hurrah for Tyrone Peachey if he comes in? I don't know how he's been defensively, but a pretty good defender. Maybe he slots in there. They've got from the Tigers Asu Capeo, who's been playing on the wing. Again, probably a risky one to bring in this time. Look, I think they'll just back Isaac Tungo, who, funnily enough, was excellent in attack. He had some really good moments.
Yeah.
They probably persist with him till the end of the season. They'll probably give him another week or two. But if the poor reads, and it's not just poor reads, like there's poor misses as well. If they continue, I just don't think there's an easy fix for them.
It's so strange because like Tungo for me defensively used to be a monster.
He was
a monster. Is he shoulder? Does he have shoulder injuries or? Yeah, because that right side's been a real concern, and I don't think it's just for me personally. It's not just Tungo. I think Nathan also does have tendency to lapse sometimes in defence with his reads, where I think we saw that in the Dolphins game. Granted, first game back with Cleary.
Yeah.
I think if there is one weakness in Cleary's game, it is sometimes his reads in defence. As I said, you go back to that grand final, there is actually 2 or 3 times where he got done by Reece Walsh and just sometimes shooting out of the line. I think I understand where your concern is coming from. I reckon by the time finals rolls around, whatever the solution is, I reckon they find it somehow, some way.
Does your gut tell you that Tungo will come good?
I think so. I think surely. But I think that Ivan is such a good coach, he'll find a way to fix it.
Yeah.
Plug that hole. Now, I don't mean necessarily it's going to be like the best defensive edge, but not one that's constantly leaking points.
I'm just very intrigued to revisit this come week 1 of finals and has he solved it or not.
It'll be interesting to see that it'll get fairly well tested on Thursday when they play the Storm. You bet Bellamy and the team will be working out some ways to isolate that edge.
Ironically, who also had issues with Meany for a while defending.
Right edge.
Yeah. But hey, they still got the win. Can't complain too much, with that. They managed to peel it back. And there's probably, it's obviously a team effort, but probably 2 or 3 guys that really moved their arse when the game was there to be won and got it going. Toto is one of them, as we discussed in the green room. Obviously got that try and secured the ball at the end as well. Very, very important. Cleary, of course, won there as well. I was very impressed with Dane Laurie's last 10 minutes of the game. I know he had a couple of errors early in the game, but when they got those 3 tries in the last 10 minutes, he had a hand in just about all 3 of those. I thought I've been very impressed with how he's just slipped in. No Dill Edwards for the last couple of weeks. I think he's been really impressive.
Yeah, he's I tell you what, like another guy that went to the Tigers, couldn't get a crack, comes back and gets put in a good system, and all of a sudden you're going, he could. There's a lot of clubs that would love to have Dane Laurie, and it's just we always talk about on this show about how yes, it is always the players' responsibility how they play for sure, but geez, the coaching they receive and the environment they're in has a huge say, because there are so many clubs right now that 12 months ago would have said Dane Laurie, he's New South Wales Cup level, all of a sudden would be like, we would love to have a chat to Dane Laurie.
He's like, obviously, it's the, as you said, Cam, it's the environment you're in, but he was literally a New South Wales Cup player at the Tigers, who's like, all right, yeah, depth in a squad, if that's you. Playing fullback for this Gun Panthers outfit. Granted, like they've even had some injuries in the squad, and he's playing like a $900,000 a year fullback. He's not worth that, but that's what he's playing like.
Oh, he's playing incredibly well. Yeah, the problem for the Panthers as well is Taruva also has some really poor reads on the other wing. And so that is the big question going forward is their edge defence. Like, because you move Taruva away from Tungwall because both of them really struggled to click. But now you've kind of weakened both sides to a degree. Yep. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see because that really is their Achilles heel. Everything else about their game, they are just phenomenal. But that edge defence is going to be interesting to see how they go. In regards to the good things they did, Brian To'o. So DeJean Arce puts in a very silly, in my opinion, third tackle grubber. To'o, it's a third tackle as well on a short side. To'o somehow knows that grubber's coming in, breaks 2 tackles, gets out of his own end, and if he gets caught in his in goal, I think there was like 7 minutes to go or something. It is game over. If he gets caught in the in goal, it's a repeat set. Eels go on, keep pressure on, and there's not enough time to score the tries that the Penrith Panthers do. Not only does he get the ball out of the in goal area, runs it, makes a few metres, gets a quick play the ball. He then goes up the other end, essentially in the same set, if I recall correctly. If not, it was a 6 again or something, and basically just gets the ball on the wing, steps 2 or 3 people, scores near the post, and completely turns the game around. That is the moment that went from us getting up here and going, that was probably the worst Panthers performance we've seen in a very long time, to one of the most incredible comebacks we've ever seen. And it's all on the back of, not all on the back of, but the moment happened with, in my opinion, one of the greatest wingers of all time, Brian To'o.
Well, we talk about like one of the biggest big-time players in the competition in the outside backs is former Penrith teammate in Stephen Crichton, who comes up big moments in big games. Not to say this was a big game, but Brian To'o on the wing for the Panthers, mate, he does it time and time again as well, doesn't he? Like when they need someone to stand up and it's just not happening for them, To'o just finds a way.
Yeah, every time. And like, I feel like sometimes, and look, maybe we're guilty of it too, but we talk about To'o as like, you know, starts your set so well and the meter readers and the tackle breaks. And almost the one, if you're comparing him against the greats, the one knock you have, he doesn't have the big play in him like Wendell Saylor. Like he doesn't have the... But like, no, he actually does have the big play on him. It's just because he's so good in other areas that it kind of, we almost convince ourselves, well, because he's so good here, he can't be just great here. Yeah. He's so good in every area. Every single area he is so good at. Yeah.
Mate, one of their talking points that I'm sure Parramatta Eels fans didn't miss, but I feel like it did go somewhat overlooked. I don't think the match winner was a try from Isaac Tungo.
It was an obstruction.
It was an obstruction.
Yeah.
It was... Liam Martin going into the line and took out Dejan Arce. It wasn't a try.
Yeah, I know. It's just, what can you say? You know, the problem is that, yes, it wasn't a try, but at the same time, like, you leaked 3 tries in 6 minutes.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But it wasn't a try. And the reffing, and also, like, there was some tough calls on Panthers as well, but there's, like, the call where Mitch Kenny drives back RCG, there is a clear strip. Like, you can see the ball getting stripped out of RCG's hand. And they just go, no, drop the ball. And you're just like, what? What's so? Look, the reffing over the weekend, unfortunately, we try not to focus too much on it, but I've got real concerns, if I'm being honest, really some real concerns.
Yep.
But yeah, incredible from the Panthers. What a comeback. I'm just looking at any other, obviously Sorensen, hamstring injury. Jeez.
2 back rolls down this week.
Yep.
Liam Martin suspension. Scotty, Hammy.
It's tough. And the Scotty Sorensen, he's actually been in and out this year. And like, look, can they win a comp without him? For sure. I think they can. But geez, he is a big part of their footy.
Luke Garner, who normally comes in and slots him when one of the edges are down and does a terrific job, he's also out injured at the moment. Hasn't been playing, listed as an indefinite return. I don't know how long, but they could be running out with edges of like Liam Henry, who missed the game on the weekend due to illness, and might be like Maverick Geyer.
Yep. For
a big game against Penrith, it's, I mean, good opportunity for them boys to stand up.
Yeah. Huge game. So, like, Penny Panthers, they're not, like, I think in a few weeks they'll start to kick into gear and we'll go, okay, like, they're all good. And we saw even in this game to kick into gear. But it hasn't really gone all their way this year. They've had injuries to key players and it's starting to go like, oh, okay, everything's not falling into place. Whereas I feel like the last 3 years, whatever they do off the field in regards to injury management, it is like I've never seen anything like it. Because usually they might have one key player that's playing through injury, but outside of that, they're pretty good, like of getting people on the field. But at the moment, they're actually struggling to kind of get blokes on the field in not in key positions, but key players. So that is a challenge that they're facing this year. It's I think that because it looks like it comes so easy to the Panthers, they don't get appreciation for. Sometimes it comes a lot harder than you'd think. But yeah, look, outside of the negatives that we're talking about, I just cannot reiterate. I've never seen a team be able to go, holy shit, the game's on the line, we need to turn the tempo up here, and then just go, boom, we're too good.
It's terrifying. They're
crazy.
so good.
They're so good at it. Like, I mean, it was basically a repeat of the grand final, but they scored more tries in less minutes. Just because they said, holy shit, we're about to lose, let's lift the intensity, and no one can go with them. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Alrighty. Now, onto the Eels. Jeez. It's half loss. Just some silly errors at some key moments where you're just going, oh. We talked about it, DeJourn doing that grubber at the end there, like silly on the third. Then there was an Offengow offload that was silly. Look, yeah, they played so well, and I understand that it's a super tough call. Not even a tough call. It was the wrong call. That was, for the whole season, that has been an obstruction. So, yeah, I get the frustration from the Eels, but, geez, they made some silly decisions when they were 34, I think it was 34-20 up. And, like, Gutho had played so well. He'd worked his absolute backside off to get this credible lead. And then they just make these really poor errors in his key moments. And that's what happens when you're a team that has struggled to win games. When you get into these moments, you don't have much experience that year of knowing what to do in those moments. And I feel like if this had been the Eels that was playing top 8 footy, that was in finals at the moment, they would have known how to shut that game out. But because they hadn't been in that situation for quite a while in a big game like this, they lost their heads to a degree. Instead of just, we're 34-20 up, let's get through our sets and then just defend our asses off.
Well, that's his experience. And I actually thought up to that late kick in mind the line, Dion Arcee, I thought he had a really good game.
So good.
So promising. And I've only got predominantly good things to say about him, but if you've got Mitchell Moses there, he closes out that game and he does it with his kicking game and he kicks long and he takes the right options. But it was just a lack of experience there from Arcee. And I'm so gutted for Parramatta fans and obviously the team themselves, because on what's been a really tough year, this would have been a fantastic moment for them in front at home to knock off arch rivals, ladder or second on the ladder. I was devastated for them.
I was too, because I obviously had tipped the Panthers, but they'd just done so well, and they'd done it in such a unique fashion. Like, if the Eels were to beat the Panthers, especially in that first half, you would have looked at the stat sheet and it would have said Eels have 10 offloads. It was actually the Panthers that had 4 or 5 offloads, and the Eels had essentially 1. But they just, it must be frustrating for Eels fans because they just probably sitting there going, where's this been? Where has this been? This is without Mitchell Moses against the Panthers, and we're out playing them across the park.
They had a good crack at them. And the one thing about the Eels, I think I was having a look before this game. Since 2020, they played the Panthers 12 times. They've won 5 of those games. That's a pretty good record against a team that's won 3 comps in a row.
Well, I think it's the best in the NRL over the last 5 years.
I think it would have been. They gave it to them again. So, look, I mean, disappointing. You just touched on, like, they probably should have closed the game out. But if you had have told the Eels fans going to the game, you're going to go down 34-36 to Penrith Panthers, like, you're right. Where's it been? But it's a pretty respectable kind of effort from the Eels.
Geez, I feel sorry for Gutho too. He gets that kick at the end. He's not their first kicker.
Yeah.
He's not a great kicker. I'm sure he would admit that himself. And, like, he misses that kick, so everyone, wants to put shit on Gutho. Mate, he was incredible for him. And, look, I'm sure people will disagree with me. I thought Gutho was outstanding. And for me personally, it was a reminder, like, this guy's a bloody good fullback. Don't move him on. He's got another year or 2 in him, in my opinion. And I think it'd be crazy to move him on with how good he can play.
People putting the boot into him for missing the kick late. As I said, he's not their first choice kicker. He's never been a first choice NRL kicker. He's never been like a noted great backup kicker. I mean, first and foremost, it's a little bit concerning for Parramatta. You need to have a number 2 kicker who's, I don't know what his career percentage is, to be fair, Gutho, but I've never thought of him and gone.
I honestly reckon he's taking those kicks because he's captain and he wants to shield his other backup kickers that aren't that great. That put it this way, if there was someone in that side that was saying, I'm a good kicker and I want to kick, I reckon Gutho goes, yep, for sure. But I reckon what we're finding is he's looking around and everyone's going, like, no, we're had one of our worst years in a long time. There's no confidence in the locker room. So he's going, you know what? I'll put myself out there to get absolutely pizzled in the comment sections and by the media, because at the moment there's no one confident enough to take these shots.
71.5%. So
he's not too bad. But I would be shocked, because when you go across the roster, like, who else in that roster really can kick?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You would have thought, like, maybe Dill looks like a decent
Maybe
enough.
Dill, yeah.
Maybe
I've
Dill.
never seen Dill kick.
I've never seen him kick. But
I'm guessing there's not one there. I just said that's what Gutho's taking.
I think he is genuinely just like, because no one else will, I'll do it because I'm the captain and it's my job to.
Dill's none from 2 in his career.
Yeah, so I know that, he's, for some, I don't know why, bizarre reason, he's polarising. I am such a fan of Gutho. I think he's got so much more to offer. And to play like that, and when his club needs him, I thought he was outstanding.
Yeah. And to be fair, in the modern game, I don't know if there's someone injured that maybe otherwise would have been backup goal kicker. But with the importance of it in today's game, and this, I'm sure they've worked relentlessly with Gutho with his goal kicking. You can't just click your fingers and have a great backup goal kicker, but in this day and age, it means so much. You have to have a better backup goal kicker. Exactly, I was about to say Warriors as well, who they've cost themselves a finals crack in recent weeks because of goal kicking.
Yeah, so I know he's copped a bit of flack over the weekend, but as I said, I thought Gutho was outstanding.
Footy-wise, he was outstanding.
2 tries and a try assist against Penrith.
Yeah, like, I thought he was outstanding, and, I understand, I get it. Like, he's just chosen to take the kick, so you should nail those, or at the very least get close to nail them. I get it, and you can be critical of that, but I personally think, don't conflate that with his actual performance, because without him, there's no way they're even in that position.
A real interesting one, and I don't want to be negative about Parrott because what they did was such a tremendous effort for 74 minutes, but the curious case of their bench rotations, like Brad Arthur's gone, they used 6 of their 8 interchanges. Penrith only used 7, so they had one up sleeve, but it's hard to look at this when they ran out of steam with 6 minutes to go with 3 tries in 6 minutes or whatever it was, or not even that. But Lussick didn't get on.
Well, when you're 34-10 up, surely you go and say, Lussick, get on there
bodies.
and tackle your ass off.
Lussick didn't get on. Doherty played 7 minutes. We remember Greg started and played 24 minutes. And then, yes, Penrith turned on the afterburners late, but Parramatta ran out of steam.
Yeah.
Why do they use 6 interchange? It perplexes me.
It's genuinely, like, especially, like, it's not like Lussick is the Appy Coruscant of hookers that's an attacking hooker. It's Lussick, the tackle machine. Like, that's what he does well. And you're 34-20 up. Mate, if I'm 34-20 up, I'm sending on the... Whoever is the best defender is getting on the field.
Yeah.
34-20 up. And just going,
fresh
boys...
body in the middle would work.
Literally, one off the ruck, kick, tackle, defend. That's it. So anyway, disappointing for the Eels, but a lot of promising signs for next year. The good thing is there was periods there this year for the Eels where I was sitting there going, I think they might need to clean half the roster out. I think the good thing is they're showing signs that similar-ish to the Rabbitohs. I think the Rabbitohs are a tier above. That it's not going to have to be a full clean-out. I think it's just a few tweaks here or there. Good
signs against Melbourne down there. A really good win against the Warriors, playing for top 8 spot in New Zealand, and then almost beat Penrith. It's 3 really good weeks from the Eels.
Absolutely. Okay, on to the next game. But before we get into beer shout-outs, we are now available in all Mr. Liquor and Liquor Stack stores. If you're in the store and don't see bloke on the shelf, just let them know and they can order it in for you. Harrigan's in Cameron Park with their footy and a fade on during Thursday night game. $30 will get you a schooner of bloke and a haircut. And Liquor Emporium St. Peter's, Tate is running a competition where if you can correctly predict the grand final teams and score, you'll win free cartons of bloke beer. That's the Liquor Emporium St. Peter's. Get down there. They've been supporters since day one. Get in your local, grab a case of bloke beer. Beer for blokes that turn up for family, mates, and a good time. Aussie spirit in a can. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Manly defeat the Raiders 46-24. So really bizarre one, this one, because I'm watching it going, DCE was almost not on the field in the first half. And I'm going, what? Has he been told by Seabold to just stand out on his edge and like not cross that middle line? And Brooks was really good for him on the first half. Anyway, second half rolls out and DCE goes, basically the first run he has, he's on the other side of the field. So he comes on the left side, like to the post, left post. Scores that try. That was his first run of the game. And I'm just like, so bizarre because I'm going, where was this the first half? And is that a game plan? Is Seabold intentionally saying, just chill the first half and then you'll come over the top in the second half? The positive is, though, is when he did click into gear, this Manly side, as long as they can sort the first 20 out, because they got absolutely blown out by the Roosters the first 20, the Raiders came out, beat them as well in the first 20. If this Manly side can sort out that start, they're scary.
Yeah, the sun was shining in the capital. It was Old Boys Day. I think they had the 1994 Premiership team there. It was the celebration of Big Papa's 300 from last week, the home celebration. Big Papa goes over for the first try. You just thought the stars are aligning. Something special here.
$36 for Big Papa too.
36. All of that. And then, unfortunately, more so the second half rolled around. And the Raiders have never matched up, in recent years, matched up well against Manly. We're a side who, we back our forward pack. We want to get into a grind, into an arm wrestle, and Manly just uses the ball so well, and they are not a team that gets in an arm wrestle, and they move the ball side to side so well. Their attack is outstanding on their edges. They've got speed, and our edges defensively, they can be pretty leaky more often than not. We've just never matched up with them well, and way too powerful for us. And you look at Manly as premiership dark horses. As I said with Melbourne before, they don't have to have the best pack in the competition, but if they can even thereabout match the best teams in the competition, the better packs, they've got so many points in them. I don't see them winning finals games 12-8. We know premierships won on the back of defence. I'm not convinced Manly have that, but they can win finals games 30-26 because their attack is outstanding.
Yeah, when their ability, and I think in the first half they struggled a little bit with the completion rate. So balls were going to ground and they risk that. They're almost willing to risk that because they're so expensive. But when they land it, when they actually, they play expensive footy and don't make errors, they are so hard to defend because they're just moving. They're moving teams so much across the field. Their spacing becomes, instead of it being a 2 metre spacing, it's a 3 metre spacing. And then all of a sudden, the timing's off. So people are shooting out of the line, people are staying back. And before you know it, it's much easier for a team. It's almost like in boxing, sometimes and I'm not saying that the Manly are lesser skilled, but you can have a really highly skilled boxer that's really good at fighting conventionally, and there's almost a rhythm to the fight. And then some novice boxer comes in, and he doesn't go on those rhythms that you're normally used to, and all of a sudden, the really highly skilled boxer's going I don't know how to handle the timing of this. And the thing about the Manly's game plan is that because they are so willing to just go side to side, it is very hard for a defensive side to get into their rhythms. Whereas, if you play against Penrith, how often do we see teams play Penrith and they go with them the first 30 or even 50? It's because it's a very conventional rhythm and understanding, but it's just because the Penrith Panthers are so fit and so strong, eventually they just squeeze you out of the game. Whereas Manly, how do you get in the rhythm of side-to-side footy? It's a tough thing to defend.
The other, when they do complete it as a decent click, sort of 75-80%, and they are moving it side to side, you're forcing the opposition to work so hard to get across and cover and go one side to the other, one side to the other. Then the fatigue sets in the back half, and then you bring in the speedsters in the game, in Saab, in Kohler, who's obviously out injured. Tommy Trbojevic looks back, he's fit, he's healthy. You can't stop them.
Yeah, it's so good to watch.
Brooks, the other one, in there
Brooksy.
as well. He was great again on the weekend, and another one of those guys with probably not over 100 metres, but over 15, 20 metres. He can really get through and create some headaches. I think obviously one of the big... Was the game over? Was not over? It was probably put to bed when Tarpanay got sent to the sin bin for arguing with the ref after somebody got sent to the bunker for a review on a dangerous tackle. The bunker deemed that it wasn't dangerous.
Tell me how that isn't a penalty compared to other penalties we've seen this year. What are we doing?
Well, when they talked through it, they said he got dropped on his bum.
So you're telling me Roger Tuivasa gets sent 10 in the bin for his tackle against the Titans.
Yeah.
But that tackle, where he genuinely did pass horizontal and has been a penalty every day of the week, maybe even sin bin if you're comparing to RTS, it's not even a penalty and it's getting reviewed.
Yeah.
I'd get it. Look, if you missed it in the flow of the game and it just kept, whatever, it's getting reviewed, and all of a sudden it's not a penalty. Of course, Tarpanay would be frustrated.
Yep.
And granted, I'm not excusing any dissent. I don't think that should happen. But surely you can understand why Tarpanay is going, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I just can't believe it.
And I'll double down on that one while we're on that topic. First and foremost, it did impact the game, but I don't think it impacted the result. But the Adam Cook try that went through the line.
Let it play out.
It was about another 2 seconds worth to let it play out. Caught it straight away. Not only was it not a try, but because there'd been a line break and all that, it went back to where the play started, which was 50 metres upfield. It had stopped the game. All the momentum was lost. It was like, that should have been a try, game on.
And then guess what? Sunday's game, Knights.
Same thing.
KP, exactly the same thing. They let it play out, and it's a try.
Anyway.
And the Tigers lose again. So, but back onto this one. Tarpanay put in the bin. And then in that, while he was off the field, 3 tries, Paseka, Trbojevic, Brooks.
Yeah.
That was that, basically,
There you
wasn't it? So,
Look, I think Manly still, and I think you're alluding to this too, I think Manly still win the game.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, I don't get it. I don't understand how we can be, and then you go to the Dolphins game with those two situations. So RTS, they said, was a head high, and they get 2 points from it. Literally didn't touch his head. And then Dylan Walker head highs Nichols because he got jammed from these legs. So the drop happened like instantly. And that's 10 in the bin, but other ones aren't. Then you've got in that same game with the Raiders versus Manly, Tarpanay gets hit in the jaw. Yes, does he stay down to get the penalty and get them to do the replay? You can see him getting hit, and the ref's just like, nah, keep playing. Like, where is the consistency?
The key to it is, Kempy, without sounding like whingers, and you say it time and time again, when it's in the flow of play and in the heat of the moment it's missed, I can cop it. But when play stops and the video ref looks at it and they weigh it up, like if it's a review or whatever, that's where, or with like sin bins, and you're like, that's not in that. You've got time to make an informed decision on this. What's going on?
Like, and the amount of times I've seen over the last few weeks, players literally don't get hit in the head. Like, it's across here, it's whatever. And they're getting penalties for it. Like, anyway, this is frustrating. So, I'm not excusing dissent. You know, we have to protect our referees. Like, I totally am not saying that it's okay that you say negative things to a referee like that so much that you get 10 in the bin. But boy, I tell you what, you can understand Tarpanay's frustration.
Yeah.
Because it just, come on. Anyway, back to Manly. What's your thoughts on Manly?
No, I thought they were great. I was with Timmy there as well. A lot of speed. I thought Brooks was just great. And, I mean, look, credit to him. He's had a tough run of it for quite a while. He's going to get a crack at finals footy, which is great for him. But I thought, particularly in that he took full advantage when Tarpanay was off the field. He got busy then. Obviously got the try himself. But I thought he had a really good game, Luke Brooks. So, yeah.
Another one for me, Lehigh Hopewadi. I can't believe how strong and how good he is for his size. Like, his ability to find offloads and in contact and just his strength in contact. He's a special player, Lehigh. Like, he is almost like everything that Manly have been waiting for since Tom Trbojevic. Obviously, it's incredible. We want Tommy on the field. It's been amazing seeing him get back to his best form, for sure. But Lehigh Hopewadi is what Manly have been praying for so long. A guy that can play wing, that if he goes back to fullback, is he on Tommy's level? Maybe not. Maybe eventually he could get to his level. But I tell you what, he's a damn good fullback. He is truly the answer to Manly's prayers. Like, I can't express that enough.
Just their outside back depth. Like, I thought Taitau Kola was the answer of like back up to when Tommy Turbo goes down, how good he is. Then they pick Hopewadi over him. We now see why, because he's a freak. You're like, Ruben Garrett can go back to fullback and play there at a top-notch rate. But like an outside back goes down, their coverage of players coming up, you could argue are like outperforming the blokes they're replacing.
Yeah, and also their coverage of guys that can play centre and wing, wing and fullback, centre and fullback. Like, you've got Tommy Talau, can play centre, can play wing. You've got Lehigh Hopewadi, can play wing, can play fullback. Garrett can play basically anywhere. Cooler can play anywhere. Like, this is, as I said, like, Manly fans would have been praying, like, we want to keep Tommy, but can we just get someone that's a bloody good fullback when he goes down? If he goes down, Lehigh's the man. And
that can also play wing, which not all fullbacks can do,
and play wing really well.
So that they, you don't have a gun. Let's say like Trey Fuller, for example, where you're like, mate, the only time you're really playing is when the fullback's out. But at least,
and keeping him at the club is easier because you're like you're playing NRL. Whereas if Lehigh was an out-and-out fullback, there's no way he's going to sit behind Tom Trbojevic. I mean, I'm sure that Manly, the curse has been they've lost a bunch of fullbacks because Tommy's so dominant. It's just, honestly, as I said, like Lehigh for me, like he is silky. Like there is a je ne sais quoi to Lehigh.
Well said.
That there is a class of rugby league that he plays that you can't, it's intangible. There's not going to be a stat. There's not going to be, a way to measure it. But he creates extra time for himself. He wins contact. He moves his body in certain ways that are almost second nature that gives him the ability to offload. So Lehigh for me was special. He had a try assist, 16 runs, 196 metres, 63 post-contact, 3 tackle breaks, a line break. And think about it. Like he had from the wing, 16 runs, 196 metres. He's not a big boy. Like he is not a big body. You very rarely see that.
Imagine not being able to pronounce Tane Milne, but then you can just flawlessly produce Jenna Senqua. In what world?
Enigma. I'm an enigma, Timmy.
Trey Van. And he's only 19 as well.
Super young. Little, nitpicky. There was a try between Sipley and Jake Trbojevic where it's just purely like 2 big forwards that were slow laterally. I think they've fixed it to a degree, but the question I have for Manly, if they are to be a dark horse, and it's the same question I have for the Bulldogs to a degree, but Bulldogs are a little bit different, is when they get up against those big forward packs, like what happened with the Roosters. I know that they fought their way back into the game. The Roosters are really gritty, but will they have the ability to go with the top-tier forward packs come finals time? Because I believe their outside backs and their halves can. It's great that Lachlan Croker's back as well, but that'll be my question for them.
That's absolutely a question mark. That's what I'm saying. They only need to not even necessarily match, be thereabouts oppositions.
Hang in there.
But are they good enough to match them? I wonder if, we've spoken at nauseum, do it literally every week, about the doggies pack and the smaller, more mobile pack and the impact that's having. They're starting Nathan Brown now. So they're starting both Nathan Brown and Jake Trbojevic.
Which we called for quite a while ago.
Yeah, which we're seeing now. It is because between Paseka and Sipley, there's some big boppers out there. So I wonder if that looks like the play there, trying to adapt a little bit on the fly.
Which is, we said, well, mate, it would have been maybe like round 8 or 9 where we were saying they were putting too many big boppers on at once and let's try and get a smaller body on. Then the resurgence of Brown comes, and I really like Brown getting as many minutes as possible because, he's got to have the best comeback story of 2024, surely. Him and Bronson. But Brown has been a revelation for this Manly forward pack. Without Brown, I honestly reckon that they would have lost maybe 2 or 3 more games than they've lost this year.
Yeah, absolutely has. And another one you can throw in from the same pack, if we're talking redemption stories, just Carl Lawton staying on the field.
Oh, yeah.
He's won the starting edge role over Ben Trbojevic, who's been pretty good this year in his time there, playing big minutes, and he's a bloke who he's always played between, edge and then hooker and then middle and all over the shop. And he spent a fair bit of time as that sort of secondary number 9 in the team. But he seems to have won the starting edge role, and he's made a fist of it because he's playing great footy.
Yep. Okay, on to the Raiders. Just one of those games that got away from them. I think a mixture of 2 things. Obviously, their own fault, but tough calls go again. Everything that needed to bounce their way against the red-hot Manly side just didn't. And they did a really good job of hanging in there and fighting and, went in at half-time and it was looking like, okay, there's a game on here. But as I said, everything that needed to kind of bounce their way just didn't. Just wasn't their day. It started out like it looked like it was with Papali'i going over. Looked like almost an ambush. But then it got to basically DCE came back on and decided to inject himself and control the game. And from that point on, they just never really looked in it. Yeah, and they had a crack. Bloody oath, they had a crack. They completed at 88%, which is outstanding. You sort of look at that and go, fire. Completed at 88% and lost by, 22 points or something. They lost Rapana as well. Lost Rapana. Obviously, the taps in the sin bin had a big impact on that. Hammy mentioned 3 tries in that period. I said it before, we just don't match up with Manly. And I don't know what our record is against them in the last 4 to 5 years, but I'd imagine pretty damn bleak. Every time we play them, Tommy Turbo just has field days against us. Yeah. I watched pretty closely on the weekend, and I did think some of your younger forwards, when they came on the field, just a little bit sloppy through the middle. For example, that try where was it Tommy that came under, and he basically, it looked like it was such a big gap that even the commentators were like, I think there's been an obstruction. And then you watched the replay and it was like, no obstruction.
I think it was his second try of the game, wasn't it? It was enormous.
And he just came like, so I think it was Fogarty tried to tackle him. He broke Fogarty's tackle and he just went bang, bang, back on the inside. And a few of the younger boys.
Smithies might not have got across.
Yeah, I think Smithies, fell off it. And I just think that some of when you lose Papali'i and Tarpanair, when either Papali'i goes off or some of the younger boys, sometimes just those little 1%ers that you learn as you get older, that's what I noticed on the weekend. I felt like that was where the Manly really exploited the middle. I
think it was Sasangi. I hope I haven't got that wrong, but I'm pretty sure Sasangi came on late. And I think it was Luke Brooks went straight to him with a pretty ordinary missed tackle, a few little things there.
Yeah, and then I think you go back to the Travojevic one as well. It wasn't Papali'i or Tarpanair that missed those tackles. So
I think the one through the gut, Smithies. I think Smithies didn't get across, but honestly, the gut was that big. You could have pointed a finger at 4 or 5 different players for that.
There was a few times where I thought Trey Mooney got caught out a little bit in the middle. But like the thing that I love about the Raiders, you can never knock their effort. Like you really can't. In regards to performance, I thought Fogarty started really well. Fogarty has a tendency to fade in and out of games sometimes where, you can look everything's going really well. You're almost dominating, and it's basically a Fogarty, masterclass. And then he might just have 10 minutes or so where it might be a kick out in the full or an error here, and I think he just needs. And granted, he's been out for a long time, so maybe that's the rustiness coming in. But I did kind of notice that on the weekend. Yeah. There's
a lot of responsibility in this team, playing with Ethan Strange in the halves, who it's not unusual, but he's a really out and out 5'8" and a ball runner. For us to win games, Fogarty can't really afford to fade out, and he's been so good for us this season. But there's a lot of responsibility on him in this team
because he had 2 errors, kicked for 475 metres, which actually is on the low end for him as well. Strange ended up moving to the centres, didn't he? Later in the game, and they actually
it was when Rapana went off and Cookie came on.
I'll tell you what, I still believe Strange can be a good 6, and I think he's a 6. I didn't mind him at centre though. I did feel like just that simplicity of running the ball. He did have some moments where I was like, fuck, I could see it happening.
That was a talk earlier in the year when we were talking about before pre-season, where was he going to play? There was a bit of chat about him going straight into the centres, wasn't
I'm still more than happy to see him end up at centre. Like we've got young Sanders coming down from the Eels who,
Colonel.
Maybe, the Colonel. The Colonel's coming down. Really touted for the future. I think he's been good in Wells Cup from what I've seen statistically. What we saw him in a brief stint in the NRL, he looks really good. So I think sort of probably him to partner, and he's such a good defender as well, Ethan Strange. I said we're a bit leaky on the edge. I think long term he could still be a centre for us. Wouldn't shock me one bit. He's doing fine at 5'8", but he's just such a great ball runner. Yeah. And I think you can simplify it for him.
Well, he ended up running for 120 metres off 12 runs. That's an average of 10 metres a run.
It's really, really fascinating how that spine's going to look in 1 to 2 years' time because, we've got Chevy Stewart who's maybe the fullback round 1 next year, and then Ko Weeks.
I think Ko Weeks has been
He's been one of our best players for well over a month now. And
he's quick too, one for the sprint.
Yeah.
And also imagine him with a full preseason at fullback.
Yeah. So I'm sceptical that KO can play in the halves. I really like him at fullback. Then what do you do with Chevy? And then what do you do with Sanders coming down? But maybe KO Weeks if Chevy is the answer at number 1, maybe next to a Jamal Fogarty and a good organising half, maybe KO can play in the line. But mate, he's been terrific. Everything good we did in attack came off the back of KO Weeks just about.
Yeah.
And you're right, good shout. In that 100 metres, he is super underrated for how quick he is. Especially that first 20. Holy.
Just around that game out, I know we're moving on, just a little stat around Turbo and Manly. So in Manly's last 35 wins, Turbo has 50 tries. How good's that? So if you're looking at back in Manly...
35 wins, 50 tries.
Yep.
It's free.
It's unbelievable how those two are joined, but he's another double on the weekend. He's on fire.
Jesus, that's a great stat to post. 35 wins, 50 tries.
The prospect... Please stay fit, please stay fit. The prospect of Tom Trbojevic in finals football, you salivate.
It's the best. All righty, it's time for our great mate, Dwayne Bennett. How are you going after the weekend? What's the question?
Oh, it's tense. Okay, the question comes from Pete. He's a Roosters supporter. Good question. Who do you think has been the best signing of the past 10 years?
Ooh, who has been
Who is
the
it?
best signing of the past 10 years? I'm going a bit left field. Well, this isn't left field, and I think once I say it, boys, I think you're going to be in agreement. Ivan Cleary back to the Panthers.
Whoa.
Ivan Cleary back to the Panthers because they don't, they had relatively the same roster under Anthony Griffin. And Anthony Griffin, he was let go by the Panthers when they were sitting in fourth. And don't we all recall, any rugby league fan will tell you, we're scratching our heads going, getting let go at fourth. And then I think they fell out of the finals that year. Ivan Cleary comes. Even the first year wasn't great. They started in terribly, and then they went on to run the last 4 games. But little did we know that run was the beginning of the most dominant rugby league team, arguably, of all time, because they kicked on the next year and obviously made the grand final, 3 premierships in a row. Ivan Cleary, there's an even argument to be made, Ivan Cleary, greatest signing of all time. That's how the impact that he's had.
Yeah, I don't know if I can agree with it. Just because he left the Tigers, like a lot of people have, and a lot of names that are probably going to come up on your greatest signings, were at the Tigers, left the Tigers, and went on to have great success. So for that reason, I can't agree.
Okay.
The question comes from Pete, a Roosters fan. Now, Pete is a Roosters fan, is spoiled for choice with great signings. The one that stands out for me, that's probably got to be Cooper Cronk. Signed for 2 years, won 2 premierships, 100% strike rate. Very tough to argue that Cooper Cronk, had the most impact that he possibly could have had.
Yep.
Even played in a grand final, wasn't able to play at his physical best.
Yep.
But just by having him there, I think, got done what he needed to get done. So I reckon Cooper Cronk for me is the best of the last decade.
Yeah, look, your response rattled me a little bit, Campy, because you've nailed it. Ivan Cleary, how do you beat that? But my head went straight to players, and same club, same era, James Tedesco. Signed from the Canberra Raiders, we know infamously. And big loss for the Raiders to let Teddy
I can't believe you released him.
Yeah, I know. Idiots. What was Ricky thinking? But Teddy Watt went on there, won a few premierships, 5 Player of the Years on the trot, probably about to add another one to his tally this season, and what he's done there has just been breathtaking. So, James Tedesco.
All right, Dwayne, mate, let's remind people, how do you become a Finlander? The boys got the win on the weekend. They could make the 8.
Mate, the boys, I'm so excited. We keep our top 8 dreams alive, and swimming. It's easy to become a Finlander. And, I've been out there trying to recruit more people. And if your team isn't where they should be at the end of this season, that's when you come and you sign up for a second team to barrack for. And who better to barrack for as your second team than the Dolphins? All you have to do is go to finland.com.au and download your digital passport onto your smartphone. Don't forget new Finlanders out there. Get the iconic, the magnificent Budget Direct Fin sent to their home address. That's how easy it is, Den.
Oh, mate, I love it. I love it. So easy as, everyone, head to finland.com.au and sign up to be an official Finlander. Get your digital Finland passport and, like me, become an official Finlander. Thanks for joining us, big fella. Alrighty, time for Broncos versus the Cowboys. Broncos defeating the Cowboys 42-18. I don't think, most people didn't see this coming. Absolute shock. Cowboys, it looked like they'd turned a corner, looked like they'd saw their defence out. Broncos almost looking like they'd bowed out to a degree for the season. And look, was it pretty? No, it wasn't pretty. It's still rough around the edges. But what I love so much about this performance by the Broncos was just the ticker, just the fight. Reece Walsh, a perfect example. We spoke about it last week how I almost felt a bit sorry for Reece Walsh because you could tell that the team was basically giving him the ball and saying, Reece, just get us out of this mess. Just score points for us, somehow win us this game. We're talking about a 21-year-old kid. And what I loved about his performance to the Cowboys is that he just gave everything. He's got his hands strapped up, wrists strapped up, he's vomiting. He is genuinely out on his feet. And I don't think he gets enough appreciation for how much he does keep just trucking on. He tried his heart out for the team. There are certain things that as a team the Broncos can definitely smooth out and rough around the edges, but it was just ticker. It was just ripping and tearing for your mates, and they got the job done. I was so proud of the boys, and I don't really mind. Like, obviously, I'm disappointed if we do or we don't play finals footy, for sure. Like, they're still in the running, so that's awesome. But all I really want to see is just ripping and tearing like that each week. Regardless of whether they win or lose, if they go out and play like that each week, I think most Broncos fans will be happy. I think that this doesn't gloss over the fact that some really incisive and honest conversations need to be had about training and coaching and different positions in regards to the coaching, so all that kind of stuff. and what is going on week in, week out with such a bloody great squad, that shouldn't gloss over that fact. I think we should still make sure that we focus on the fact that, this team is much better than what they have performed throughout the season. But what's great is they're still playing for their coach and they're still playing for each other, and they showed a ton of ticker. It's an incredible win.
Huge win. Yeah, mate, trying to predict the NRL at the moment is just tough yards. But as I said, like the Cowboys came out early, 3 tries in the first 24 minutes, and you just sort of went, here we go. Broncos, same that have shown up in recent weeks. They're about to get blown off the park. And to not only get back into the game, but like it's what they were doing last year. In games, and then just the class would prevail against fatigue and the attacking weapons that they had, namely Reece Walsh, would blow the game open late. And that's what happened. Like it was a fight for 60 minutes, and then they went 4 tries in 12 minutes or 15 minutes or something. It was an awesome performance from the Broncos, and it now sits them like, you essentially put a line through them last week. You look at it now, they've got the bye this week. 3 games to go after that, all at Suncorp Stadium. One of them's against the Dolphins, who, that'll be decisive. Whether or not the Broncos have turned a corner, I'm far from convinced, but gives them a sniff.
Yeah, and I all of those things we can get to at the end of the year of looking into what went wrong. But at the end of the day, the one thing you always want from a fan is a team that's willing to turn up and rip and tear. And I think they did that on the weekend.
And if I'm the Broncos and Kevy Walters, it's not hard to get this team up. You go, boys, we came within a whisker of a grand final win last year. We've been ordinary this year. There's a bit of news now that Payne Haas potentially not done for the year. He's a sniff at coming back later on, particularly if they do have that finals push. And they go, if we make finals, why can't we win the comp this year? Why can't it be 2020? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're going to, but if you're trying to G them up, that's how you do it.
It's nothing to lose.
No.
They've already been through the period of everyone ripping them in headlines and all the negativity. They've already been through that. They've experienced it. That's done. So whether that happens again after, let's say they lose next week and it happens again, they're like, we've already we know what this is like. So I was just really, really proud of them. Really proud of them. And it wasn't squeaky clean. Like at one point, the Cowboys in the first 20 had 90% completion rate. The Broncos had 69%. There was errors and it wasn't going all their way. But what you saw is when they got a sniff, you could see the confidence and the intensity change. As soon as that 60-minute mark, rolled around and a few bounces of the ball went their way, they looked like a whole new side. Well, they looked like the Broncos of last year, where they were super intense, too big, too powerful, too strong, and just too classy. And it just shows you, boys, it's there. If you, for a second, thought, maybe we aren't who we thought we were, it's no, it's there. You just need to bring it out in you. You need to bring that for the first 20 minutes. Really, really proud of the boys. Bloody great win. And as I said, I know Reece Walsh, because he's such a star and everyone knows his name and he's got the looks and all that, he doesn't get enough credit. He's a bloody competitor. And if there are parts of his game he definitely needs to work on. For example, I think heading in next year, one thing he could really improve is his match fitness, just becoming really fit like Billy Slater did. But he ripped and he left everything on the field, and you can't ask for much more than that from a player.
Well, that's it with Reece Walsh. He had an up and down year all over the shop, but it's never been through lack of effort. And particularly over the last month when they've been scrapping and battling, he's been a shining light. Yes, there's been errors, but that's Reece Walsh's game, and that's where he's at in his career at the moment. I look at it, and we mentioned last week that the Broncos this year have just looked, as we've said, complacent and relying on the stars to get him out of jail and waiting on the stars to have big plays. Does this performance with Payne Haas out, does that almost double down on that? They go, shit, Payne Haas is out now, we have to get up and we have to perform, because they lifted big time without Payne Haas? Or is it just a natural case of Haas is out? We saw the front rowers,
Wilson and Jensen.
They were terrific. Did they just step up naturally because Haas was out, or are we seeing no, they've relied on him throughout the year?
To a degree, I think that they rely on Carrigan, they rely on Haas, and they rely on Reece Walsh. I think it's a mixture of both. For sure, I think they were told from the get-go, Jensen and Willison, boys, no more worrying about Big Brother to take care of you. It's on your shoulders. But I also think it was just a few things bounced their way and they just reacted to it. A few things that this year, last year, every bounce of the ball that could go away went our way. Some of the tries, you'd just be sitting there going, do they have a string? How did that happen? Whereas this year, it's been the opposite. Everything could bounce the wrong way, went the wrong way. And I think that they just reacted to, oh shit, we can dominate this. We can be better. We can be faster, stronger, more intense, everything. Because, for 60 minutes, the game was there on the line. And so it's a really good example of the confidence that they can build of Ezra Mam and Haas out, and they can go up and beat a top 6 side. Just a bloody good effort. Bloody good effort. What do you think?
Yeah, agree. And you've spoken a bit about Ticker. It was ticker.com for the Broncos. The other day.
You or just .com?
All of the above. .net, .gov, everything. It was all
.gov?
All on display. I think one of the guys that showed a lot of Ticker and has done through a lot of the season, you just touched on him, was Jensen.
Yeah.
I mean, joins the 200-metre club once again for this season. He's done that a couple of times this year in the front row. 78 post-contact as well. But he just... I don't know. For me, he sums up exactly what you're saying. Like a bloke that really just rips and tears. And this week there was a couple of them, obviously, that joined him. Carrigan as well. Similar numbers. We spoke about Walsh, but I thought Corey Jensen had an unreal game. Obviously, got off the nudie run as well, so a lot to celebrate for him. But the way that he kind of went about it, I think, was sort of contagious through the team. You know, a lot of guys ripped in and probably had their best games in, if not the season, certainly the last couple of weeks. Great win.
Yeah, and as I said, like there's so many little, like there was forward passes off scrums. Tapa'u was offloading silly part. Like it wasn't like they didn't go out there and it just clicked for them. It was a messy win, but they just hung in there, and just the intensity. So really, really impressive. I think like a guy like Dean Mariner is a really good example of where I feel like that's where you can look at like almost an image of where maybe we went wrong this year, of where maybe are we doing the right things at training and development, because you watch him in attack and some of the stuff he does, you're just like, this kid is a freak. But then other times defensively, or drop ball here or drop ball there. Like for example, there was one where the ball went up for a kick and all the Broncos boys just stood around and watched it bounce. And like, I'm sure at training they've been telling him, mate, when the ball goes up, you go up no matter what. Don't be too scared to drop it. If you drop it, you drop it. That's what it is. And I think that have they been strong enough, like peppering him that message of, mate, when the ball goes up, you have to be there. Because it was only like, I don't know, a few minutes later, the exact same play happened. Dean Mariner goes up. So he knows to do it. And the reason why I point out Dean Mariner is because like I think we can all agree, like talent-wise, this guy is special. It's just about making sure he's getting the right training, the right training during the week to bring the best out of him. And this game was such a perfect example because he did some incredible things and then some stuff that I think if you're getting the best training and the best things happening during the week, that doesn't happen.
Do you think his best position is at centre or on the wing?
Probably at the wing for now. I think defensively he needs a little work. Yeah. And like again, if he was a year older and he came into the grade last year, because whatever they were doing during the week last year defensively, they were one of the best teams in the comp, arguably the best defensive team in the competition. If he was doing that training, I think his defence is further along than where it is right now. But because he's come in this year and played a lot more footy, I think that all across the board, the Broncos have been worse defenders.
Yeah.
And so that's where the season review comes in of like what changed in our training this year compared to last year. So even though we won this game, it's incredible, we still need to make sure identify what we did different this year to last year. But let's stick on the positives. Jensen, outstanding, and there's been probably 2 or 3 games where he's been a little bit quiet. Outside of that, he has been truly like the rock of the pack, like just rocking up, getting the ball under his wing and just running as hard and as fast as he can. I thought Willison took a big step forward this as well for him this week. Carrigan as well. Like I feel like the last month or so he's looked a little bit tired or a bit flat energetic wise, but he still manages to find a way to put in a big knock.
Well, and you look at the bench of like Blake Moser, who's a number 9.
He's getting
Tristan
better.
Saylor at fullback, and you look at that and go, with Payne Haas out, who you'd think you could afford to carry those two, Martin Tapa'u, who doesn't play massive minutes either. With Payne Haas out, it was a dangerous bench to run with. Like they had to lift, and it was those two, the two starters in Jensen and Willison. I'm confident Jensen goes back to back and he'll be big for the rest of the season. It's been tremendous for you, but he played 60 minutes and ran for over 200 metres. The test for Willison, young in his career, is all right, mate. We're still a chance at making a charge of the finals. Let's do it again and do it again because we need it for more than 1 week. But they were tremendous.
I don't like the carrying Tristan Saylor on the bench.
Weird.
I don't like it at all. And if I'm being honest, I don't think his form has warranted it either. I can understand if he was killing it and you put him there because he's so good that he's a game breaker. he came on and he did some good things, but I think we could be much better served by having a forward there.
So odd. Like, especially when you've got Moser there, who's...
Moser has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
He is improving every time he gets on the field.
Yeah, well, you got a... I thought the one who would have got a sniff when Payne Haas got injured was Big Ben Takura. He was 19th or 18th man in this game. So is he...
Very strange.
How's he been? Do we know Queensland?
I think he was injured for quite a while, but he's been playing Queensland. But like, surely he's on the bench over Sailor. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
No sense. And I hope they don't continue to run with a small outside back on the... We just can't afford
I
it.
guess they're just looking at, to Kevy's credit, like coverage in the back line. You don't really have forwards who can cover anywhere
I would rather... I don't feel like we have the luxury as a team to do that. I would rather just go, you know what?
All out.
All out. If we have to stick a wide running forward like Ricky or... Piakora or Ricky, like they're pretty mobile back rowers.
Piakora is very mobile.
Like they can go to the centres out there. I know Piakora spent some time there and they struggled, but it is what it is. Like if we lose a match because we weren't carrying an outside back on the bench, I can live with that. It's the opposite that I'm like.
You're not consolidating a top 8 position. You're throwing everything at it and going, you know what, we probably do need a few things to go away, and one of those things might be, all right, we need to avoid in-game injuries, but we'll have a 4-forward bench. We'll be dominant through there.
Yep. So just really proud of the
Takura,
boys.
he hasn't played since round 9.
There you go.
Even in Q Cup.
Yeah.
Oh well, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
But even still, I would surely there's another. Maybe they're decimated with injury. I do know the Broncos. Like I try not to talk about it too much because it sounds like excuses, but I do know they're smashed with injury. So Fletcher Baker been out for ages. Decora's been out for ages.
Goz.
Sorry.
Gajewski.
Yeah, he's also out for the season. But surely there's another forward you could chuck on the bench. Surely.
There's got to be something somewhere.
There's got to be just a Q Cup battler. Just bring him in. What about, I've forgotten his name, but he actually played earlier in the year. Was it Rogers? Not Rogers. There's another bloke that played earlier in the year on the edge. Hunt.
Oh, yeah. So much harder with the Queensland clubs to just like New South Wales clubs, you go straight to New South Wales Cup and you go to their feeder team and all that, whereas the Queensland sides are scattered across them. It's a bit harder to do.
But yeah, really proud of it. And we've already spoken about him, but Stags, just an incredible match. Absolutely incredible. And just proud of all the boys across the board, whether they had any error or not an error. That's what it's about. It's just about ripping in for your mate, silence the critics. And yes, it hasn't been the perfect season, but I tell you what, playing good towards the end of the year is going to make the off-season much more bearable than just getting absolutely pounded out of the competition and finishing in the bottom 3 or whatever.
Sure.
And yeah, I just want to reiterate, just so proud of Reece Walsh. Like, he worked, he gave everything. He literally gave everything. And how often do we see young superstars, they have their incredible year, and because they have their incredible year, they're like, yeah, I'll just be lazy. I'll do whatever I want. And as I said, he's not perfect. Like, defensively, he can get caught out at times. And I actually do think that's because of his match fitness is so focused around speed rather than fitness. And that's one area where I think he needs to work on. But you can't tell me Reece Walsh doesn't go out there and give absolutely everything every game. Yeah.
Literally played his guts out.
Literally. Yeah. And like, you saw his hand. His hand was bloody friggin'.
By the first half.
So, yeah, just so proud of the boys. So, just in a tremendous win. And I don't care what happens from here on out. I've already had to deal with the disappointment of potentially not making the 8. If they rock up and rip and tear, that's all that matters to me.
Do you dare to dream? Bye this weekend, 3 more games.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the squad to.
Yeah, why not?
Why not, for sure. Like, I just think that even if they do make the 8, we need to make sure that it doesn't gloss over. Let's just not forget of where we should be as a club. And look, it sounds like that is going to happen, like the review is going to happen and the deep dive into everything. But I just proud of the boys, the ticker that they showed. Like Paddy Carrigan, like he's looked super tired this last month, but he still puts in big shifts. Just so good. Okay, now on to the Cowboys. This is the last thing the Cowboys needed. Like genuinely, like if they got pipped by the Broncos, you'd be like, you know what? Yes, the Broncos are currently in the bottom 4 or wherever they were, but this is this Broncos side. Look at what they got on paper. It's a local derby. Anything can happen. But to get beaten after leading the game and looking like you had it in the bag after the first 20 or 30, couldn't be more disappointing. Peyton hasn't ruled out potentially making changes for next week, but the concern I have for the Cowboys is that they have no reason to be complacent. And this is a big match. And so I don't know for the life of me how they could come into this game thinking, oh, you know what, the Broncos are just going to roll over and we're just going to beat them. Like, it's a derby. Very, very concerning for the Cowboys, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Panthers have reason to be complacent.
Yeah.
The Storm have reason to be complacent. The Cowboys don't. And, a week ago they're fighting for a top 4 spot. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, you got a bye to come, but you're not locked into the 8. Like, you've still got to win a few games to ensure it. It's just a weird one. Like, they were in it for a long time. They led at half time, and it was just a late capitulation.
Like a clinic. Dearden was playing incredible. They just looked like in control.
Yeah, and just that last, I think it was 4 tries in 14 minutes. Just capitulated late on, and it doesn't probably no need to sugarcoat too much for them, because it was a very disappointing last 20 minutes. But they were playing against a desperate Broncos side, playing for everything. But as I said, they're a side who should be playing potentially deep into finals footy this year, the Cowboys, and to come up with that back end of the game, it was disappointing.
And the problem is that Cowboys are also playing for everything. Like, they're on 28 points. And yes, it would be like total disaster for them to not make the 8, because they played 21 games, so they've got a game in. So really right now, they're on equal 5th when it comes to points. And to be in the top 8 is 26 points. So they've got 2 games in hand. So they're pretty much going to make the 8. But surely that's not enough for them to be like, what Broncos come up here, we'll get the job done. Like, this team, we speak about this all the time, like, they should be pushing for a premiership. They really should. And there was just some moments where I was quite, like, Jesse McLean had some really poor misses that led to tries. And the fact that they started so well, high completion rate 90%, and they just complete. It's truly bizarre how this team can go from 1 week you're sitting there going, yep, I can see the vision.
Yeah.
It was only last week where I was sitting here going, Peyton deserves all the props. Mid-year I was worrying about whether there'd be pressure on his job. Last week I'm sitting there going, mate, look what Peyton's managed to do as a rookie coach compared to like the Broncos, who are out of the 8. And granted, you'd still rather be the Cowboys than the Broncos, but if you're in the business of winning premierships, you don't want to be doing this coming into finals footy.
Well, you talk about, there's been a few of them this show, but if hard teams to line up, they've got a bye obviously, but like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys come out and lose their next 2 and are fighting to stay in the top 8. I also wouldn't be surprised if they come out and win their next 2 games comfortably and look like world beaters. I can't line them up.
I seriously can't. And we spoke about their game against the Tigers, and that was our worry, was that, like, mate, the Tigers scored how many?
They conceded 4 tries to the Tigers in the second half. And that was with a man down as well.
But also, like, the total points that they lost against, that they got scored against them at the Tigers.
30 they conceded.
They conceded 30 points against the Tigers.
And 4 of those tries were with 12 Tigers on the field.
And so it's hard to judge that, because if you're too critical of the Cowboys, then people will say, come on, mate, like, they got the job done, it's down there, it is what it is, move on to next week. But unfortunately, it reared its ugly head, because at around the 60-minute mark, when was the time that the Tigers scored all those points?
Yep. Like, exact same period.
It's around the same period.
Yeah, 59, 62, 75.
And so you don't want that to become a trend where you just fade out of the back end of the game. But the last couple of games has been like that. Can you get their last 5 results, please, Matty?
Glass half full. The throwback jersey. One of the greats.
At least they looked good.
Yeah.
Incredible. The Carl Webb jersey. Mate, arguably one of the best jerseys of all time. Seriously, that collar. I want that to be their jersey all the time. That is a phenomenal jersey.
It's a deep pool this year. All the retro jerseys have been great.
So it's been them and the Bulldogs.
The Sharkies one is underrated as well.
Sharkies just a tier under, in my opinion.
Yeah, agree.
Matty?
Yes, so lost 42-18 to the Bronx, won 48-30 against the Tigers, won 30-22 against the Sharks, won 20-18 against the Dogs, then lost to Manly and Penrith.
What a strange, like, look at those score lines as well. And I think they're still like 13th worst if you count the start of the season. And we were trying to be quite generous to them, because we were saying if you look at their last 10 games, they're about 6th or 7th defensively. But maybe old habits are starting to creep in. Positives, Dearden I thought was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. He is so bloody good.
Yeah. For all their ups and downs this season, Tommy Dearden has been rock solid every game, hasn't he?
He is truly, like, he'd be up there with maybe like top 5 players you build a club around for me. His age, he's the culture he brings, the attitude he brings. Like, no matter where his club is or team is or how they're playing, he's giving absolutely everything to his jersey.
Awesome solo try, which has become a bit of a staple of his game. He's just that run and show and go. just so deceptively strong, isn't he? Just muscles his way to the line. Such a strong ball runner. Could have had a doubles, called back to a forward pass. Every time they lose, he's the shining light.
Yeah. There's a lot of desperate defence as well. Do we think, what do you reckon? Does he move to 7 next year?
I think so.
I think so as well.
I think so,
and I reckon he's set up to succeed there too. I think he'll do a great job.
Yeah.
I've been really reluctant, and I've actually spoken against this. Chad Townsend. Because, look, you look at where they're at in the table. They're top 5 right now. But there are moments where, if you are to win a premiership, do you need more out of Townsend? Because there are moments in the game where you're just like, as a leader, you probably need to be a bit better than that.
I think attack, he does enough and gets them around well, and they've got a lot of strike weapons, so he doesn't necessarily need to be in everything attack-wise. I think his attack's been right. His defence has been a question mark. Like he was responsible for the first 2 tries last week against the Tigers, and there's just these defensive lapses that just put him under a lot of pressure.
And you've got a guy like Clifford there, but is it too late to try it?
Matty tried out a few results. Beat Bulldogs, beat the Sharks, really good wins. I wouldn't be changing anything right now. Unless he really falls off a cliff the next month, I'd be sticking to what they've got. They've got a combination that they've built over a few years now, Dearden and Townsend. I'd stick by it. Just need a little bit, more defensively.
See, yeah, I would stick by it, but at the moment, they're such a weird side because they're currently 5th on the table. So how can you be too harsh on Townsend when they're 5th? Yeah. But then I see some, defensively, that edge, just a real concern.
Yeah.
I would stick with him.
Yeah.
I'd stick with him. But I tell you what, I will admit, a couple of weeks ago when a lot of fans were talking about it, I was like, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. I do understand that perspective now. Not necessarily that Townsend's the worst player in history, not at all. But I do understand the argument of this inconsistent nature as a leader. I know he's not captain, but he is the older 7 that's steering around. Probably just need a little bit better from Townsend.
And as I said, I don't think points are overly an issue for this Cowboys team. They've got them in them. They've got Tommy Dearden's got plenty, but Scott Drinkwater's one of the best attacking fullbacks in the game, so I think they're fine there.
And Townsend's attack's been great. His price has been incredible.
So it's purely comes back to defence. And Jake Clifford, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, a pretty solid defender. No glaring issues.
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Not so good, but yeah, I would stick with Townsend. But I think that if I'm Peyton, I'd be asking a bit more from him.
Yeah.
Of the understanding of this team can win a comp. On paper it can anyway. But yeah, I agree with you, mate. They've built this, combination for so long. Nanai, did he go off injured?
Yeah.
He did.
And how long's he out for?
That was a concussion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So just a week.
I don't even remember that.
Either does he.
I'm just looking at this here.
A bit of friendly fire, wasn't it? There was a head clash.
Oh, yeah, that was too. Oh. Yeah, tough one. Because you look at Griffin Neame, numbers down, 84 metres. Ruben Cotter worked his ass off, 140 metres. 39 tackles. Sam McIntyre, 74 metres. Hillam Lukey, 39 metres. Jeez. Jordan McLean, 105 metres. So, down quite a bit.
Lukey, 39 metres. Jeez.
Holmes, Valentine, 5 missed tackles. Chad Townsend, 5 missed tackles. McIntyre, 5 missed tackles. Yeah. Anyway, so look, yeah, the positive for the Cowboys is they've put themselves in this position. They're still top 5. They just can't afford to have this inconsistency heading into finals footy because before you know it, boom, gone. Yep. Season's over. Okay. Hopefully they do though, because out of all the Queensland teams, right now they're probably the most likely to make a push. And as a Queensland, obviously, I want a Queensland team to make a push.
I think they'll be okay.
You think so? I think so. I think so. I think so.
The draw's lined up well in that they've got a bye in 2 weeks, which is perfect. You come back, play a bit of a freshen up, then a couple of games before finals. They've got a few tough games to come, so they'll have to earn that run in. They'll have tough games going into finals.
They've got 2 byes to come.
One.
So they played 21 games.
1 bye to come.
They got 1 bye to come?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When's that the last?
2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks. So they've played 21 games, and the Broncos have played 21 games. So Warriors, Tigers, Broncos, and Cowboys are the only ones with buys left. So they'll freshen up, go away.
It's perfect timing for a bye.
Yeah, I'll back him in. Come on, boys. Come on, boys. Let's do it. Okay. On to the Dolphins versus the Warriors. Dogs versus Dragons, my bad. Bulldogs versus the Dragons. Look, to be honest, like, it might sound a little bit boring, but I kind of feel like this is kind of reflective of where both clubs are right now. 28-10. I think the Bulldogs are pretty much an 18-point better team than the Dragons, and I think that the positive for the Dragons is if we had this same match in like another half a year, I feel like they're about half a year behind the Bulldogs in regards to if you're measuring on how much development they've made so far this year and how fast it's happened. You have to remember Serraldo's been there for 2 years. Flanagan's only been there for 1 year. If they are both to continue on this trajectory, I think we may find these clashes get closer and closer over the next year or two because obviously Flanagan's first year. In regards to performances, just like the Bulldogs, they are so fit, so willing to just go all day, all long, never ever stop their feet. They're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that they get the win. Like their attitude across the board, and we say it week in, week out. And Serraldo's already said this, but even when it happened, we spoke about on this podcast, we said a lot of people are focusing on this whole utility thing. It's not about the utility. It's about the type of player that was recruited. And the type of player they were NRL standard, but they were hard workers. They had a good work ethic. They wanted to get part of the tough stuff. Every single player they recruited was someone that you would bring into a club to bring good culture. And that's what and that is what the reward they're getting. It has nothing to do with being a utility, not being a utility. It's about building good culture, and we're seeing the reward. Look, my only question with the Bulldogs is that right now for season level footy, this is working, this like mobile, smaller pack. The question I have is when they get into finals footy against the bigger packs and they take a step up, will they be able to also take a step up with them? I don't know the answer to it, but that's the only question I have, because outside of that, they are like, why can't they finish top four? Why can't they play a prelim? You know, like, it's getting to that point now, whereas like 10 weeks ago, I was like, they should be happy to be in the top 8. Now I'm sitting here saying, like, why? Give me a reason why they can't finish in the top 4.
And that's it. It's convincing them. And look, they're playing with that much spirit at the moment and belief in themselves and their systems. It's getting through their heads like, no, top 8 all of a sudden is not just okay. Like, you've got a team that can genuinely make a run deep into the finals. Do they believe that? From everything we've seen so far, yes, they have. So how's this? They've got the least experienced side in the competition, the Bulldogs. Oof. As of the weekend, they concede the least tries per game in the NRL.
No way.
Just about everyone was tipping them to be bottom 4, including yours truly at the start of the year, and least tries conceded per game in the competition.
What a turnaround from where their defence was last year.
Amazing. And Serraldo, like, his mental fortitude to stick to his guns. Imagine the pressure. Like, you're walking into the office every day and your job's on the line. Like, you're basically walking in and people are starting to say, this guy's not who we all thought he was, and it was all hype, it's all bull crap. And how easy it would have been for him to listen to that and go, okay, you know what I'll do? I'll do the half, like I'll dip my toe in, where I make the changes that everyone tells me to make, so therefore I can always fall back on, well, I made the changes you told me to make. He goes, nah, I'm not listening to anyone. I'm doing it the way I want to do it, and if you don't like it, see you later. We get to this point of the season, and as we just said, it is no longer, oh, how good we made the top 8. It's why not? It's, why, at the start of the season, like, why would they make the 8 too? Why not? Why can't they do it? Because they continue to turn up, and their defence, like, their ability to absorb pressure is, this year, form-wise, the best in the competition, because they don't have the benefit of a Nathan Cleary or a Jerome Luai that can just relieve pressure constantly for them. They have to just go, we are going to withstand so much pressure from you that eventually you make a mistake and then we get the ball up the other end. Like the Kurt Mann try, that was just a bloke running as hard as he could at the line. That's all it was. No skill set involved. It was a bloke running at another front rower that's an out-and-out front rower, traditional front rower, and bumping him and scoring.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win a premiership this season, but we know defence does win premierships, and good defensive sides traditionally for a long, long time, as long as I've been watching, go deep in finals footy. And even on the weekend, like, they're weak to eat the Dragons. We know that, but we know that on their day they've got points in them. Conceded 2 tries. One was off a kick. One was off a really beautiful inside ball from Leilua to Tyrell Sloan. So you just know what you're going to get out of them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the Dogs have got a bad performance in them at the moment.
It's so good. And as I said, the only question I have is that when that step, when people take that step up in finals footy, does that smaller pack just struggle to make that extra step with the momentum that other teams are going to be able to generate?
And if that is a concern for Serraldo and the Bulldogs, Serraldo's already shown himself to be such a crafty coach.
Yeah.
How does he combat it? What's his plan?
Yeah, and I'm sure he does have. I mean, look at what they did Broncos. Oh, you've got a forward pack with Payne Haas and Paddy Carrigan. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to go nowhere near them, and we're just going to smash you down the edges.
Well, I think that's the answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they do. If they start a game and go, look, our mobile pack, we're smaller, but we'll be okay, and it doesn't work 10, 15 minutes in, well, you go to that. Like, they've got the plan B.
Yeah.
If that's happened, we'll go side to side. We've shown we can do it.
Absolutely. It's just such a privilege to watch these doggies go around. And what is just insane to think is the plan hasn't even reached its fruition. Like, we're not even at the end game of what they want, because they have the best young talent in the NRL, arguably Penrith, but like when you look at winning the junior leagues, it's the Bulldogs. They haven't even arrived yet, because you have to remember, this plan from the Bulldogs, it was for them to arrive and then this happened. This is already happening without them arriving. Wait in 2 or 3 years' time, if this continues on this trajectory, when you have the best young 7 in the game, or the best young half, when you have the best young forwards in the game coming through, like, imagine what he's going to be able to do with the best talent in the game. Like, this is what he's managed to do with guys that, the whole joke was the utility joke of like, oh, these just guys are almost journeymen. They're just guys who kind of float around the NRL, and they're good to have in a squad, but they're more backup guys. This is what he's done with them. Imagine what he's going to do with the best talent in the competition.
And with the trajectory that the Dogs are on, they'll start to attract those bigger names.
Who wouldn't want to be a part of the Doggies right
Exactly.
now? Like, who honestly wouldn't want to be a part of that? So much so that they were this close for Stefano to sign there over the Storm. Think about how exciting a place has to be, where it may be preferable over the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
So good. I thought Sexton was outstanding, and they got, is it Haywood? It's Haywood coming through.
Yep.
No, Woods. Sorry, Mitchell Woods.
Mitch Woods is the young fella.
He's the young foot. Mitch Woods, he's the young gun coming through. He was the under-19s half. And so, like, it's getting to the point where, he may be stuck behind Sexton. And then all of a sudden you've got, because he's signed till 2027, so you're heading into a premiership potential window. And I know it sounds mental to say, but why not? Like, why? They only got beaten 16-10 by the Panthers. They got beaten by 2 points, I think, by the Melbourne Storm.
There's nothing, like, they could win it this year.
Sorry?
They could win it this year.
Like, maybe.
Yeah.
I look at it and go, like,
they're a tier below my top tier, but there's no reason. I don't sit here and go, it's outrageous to think that they couldn't do something great.
And the way I view that sort of thing, I go, all right, you've got your top 3 in order for me. Like, Penrith are out on their own. I'd probably have the Roosters just ahead of the Storm, but Storm's beat them, whatever. Same second tier. After that, it's take your pick. So you go, I don't think the Doggies can beat Penrith in a big finals game. What if Penrith get done in the prelim final by the Roosters, by the Storm, by one of these sides, the Dogs on the opposite side of the draw? You don't have to beat Penrith to win the comp necessarily, do you?
Or just like, what if they run out and touch wood? We would never want this to happen. Cleary goes down and Fisher Harris gets a head knock.
Yeah.
In a one-off game. Like,
Or what if they put in a performance like they did against the Eels the other day, and the Dogs are able to just close it out?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing what they're doing at the Doggies. And we spoke about Sexton, like, one of the best things when it comes to premiership pushes or premiership windows is competition for key positions. And if you've got a guy like Sexton that's getting better and better and better, and a young fella like Woods, if Sextons get injured, you have the best young 7 in the competition to come in and play 7 if they need to. Like, even Burton, like, all the chat heading into this year was Burton is not a 6. Not a 6. Hadn't heard a peep about that this year. There hasn't been anyone sitting here going, I think you might need to move Burton to 6. He's been outstanding for him as well.
Well, 3 months ago, we were sitting there going, this Doggies team is playing great footy, ticking so many boxes on the up, but the question mark is that number 7. Joey Hutchinson not quite making his own. Sexton can't get a run, and now all of a sudden you go, Sexton's made it his own. You got Woods coming through. Hutcho's there for depth.
Just such a good spot to be in. But yeah, we spoke about it earlier, but Sexton's game and his kicking game. Jeez, like where Ben Hunt was a bit hit and miss, he'd have one great kick and then one poor kick. Sexton was clinical, absolutely clinical.
For me, it was that pass to Bronson Sherry, that face ball.
Oh, beautiful.
Stop it.
And just people, like the timing and the confidence in each other. Like we spoke about trust in defence. You got to have trust in attack to know that he's going to be there at the right... Because that ball that he threw is intercept heaven. Like if the defence knows it's happening, that is just perfect. Like you're straight in my bread basket, boom, see you later. And like, look... Granted, we'll talk about the Dragons because they did shoot themselves in the foot with some really poor completion rates, which actually I think is a testament for the Dragons to hanging in the game because they had such a poor completion rate. This same Dragons last year gets blown off the park after that.
Well, what's interesting is the Dogs completed at 71, the Dragons were 69, but the Dogs had the defence to back the poor completion rate. The Dragons didn't.
And the start of the game as well, the Dogs were at 80% and the Dragons were at 62%. But again, that defence... just hanging in there all game. Who stood out for you for the Doggies?
I feel like we speak about him every week, but Josh Curran, he just offers such a different modern-day front row. Like, not the biggest body out there, but he's so mobile. He chases every kick.
I don't know how he wins contact all the time.
He does a lot of the clean-up work for them. He's just a coach's dream at the moment. And it's like, I feel like he was very good at the Warriors and maybe underutilised a bit, but I felt like there were areas of his game where he did fall off a few tackles or he was a bit lazy at times, but since he's come to the Dogs, it's like all of that's just falling out of his game.
Yeah. And he's a really good example of sometimes you just need the right coach. Because like when you watch Curran, you could see there was a great player in him, but he would always just be like that little tier below that great player.
Yeah.
And you would almost every week be waiting for the rest of the rugby league community to realise how great he is. He goes to the Bulldogs, and sometimes you just need the right coach in the right environment that just knows how to get the best out of Curran. And now he is truly, the most improved player of the whole season?
Yeah, pretty close. Because that's the thing, it's like it takes the coach and the recruitment managers and the staff with that eye to go, like, he isn't the player that he was at the Warriors by any means. Like, there were reasons why he was playing some New South Wales Cup and limited minutes off the bench and why he chopped him middle and edge. But Serraldo, recruitment, whoever it was that saw it and went, no, I can turn this bloke into an out-and-out, week in, week out gun.
Yeah. So, like, the amount of times he's taken a hit up and I'm like, he's about to get belted.
Yeah.
Never. Another guy I want to talk about, Harry Hayes. Mate, off the bench. So, in 33 minutes, he had 13 runs, 145 metres, 59 post-contact, only 1 tackle break, 27 tackles, only 2 misses, no errors. In 33 minutes. Like, he's in his third game or something.
He's got cult hero stats written all over him.
100%.
He comes out and just
rips.
Goes like a bat out of hell. Gee, he has a crack, doesn't he?
Looks like the Gigachag meme. You know the Gigachad meme?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Google the Gigachad meme, you'll see it. You know what? You keep talking, I'll show you what the Gigachag meme looks like. Who stood out for you?
Other players that stood out. One that we've spoken about in the last couple of weeks since the Dogs have been hitting their straps. Jacob Kiraz. Another elite performance from him on the weekend. 248 metres, 98 post-contact metres. He does too. Look at that jawline.
That's the Gigachad meme,
Separated at birth.
There's a bit of Mark Nichols about Gigachad as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Apologies.
No. Just talking about Kiraz, another elite performance. Nearly 100 post-contact metres, just giving him so much.
Just sometimes Kiraz, because he's so passionate, just has a silly offload here or there, like where you get. Look, it's a double-edged sword. You don't want Kiraz to change anything. Just sometimes he can have that silly little offload, but you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that any day of the week for how he plays.
Yeah,
he's got to be. When they do that New South Wales camp in the next year, he's got to be in that camp. Surely,
the performances he's been putting in, like Origin player quality for sure. He's been unreal.
So yeah, great win from the Doggies. Now on to the Dragons. For First of all, Hammy taken hospital. Staff detected irregular heartbeat. I think he was crooked in the middle of the week, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, he had flu.
He had the flu. I'm not sure what the update is. He posted on his social media. He said he's still in hospital, but it's just precautionary. Could you check if there's been any updates since then on his story or NRL physio? But we just want to send our wishes out to Hammy. Hopefully he's all good. In regards to the performance, we spoke about it last week, and granted, Sully, he got injured. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember him getting a bath by Stephen Crichton this game. We spoke about last week how he doesn't get enough appreciation for how good of a centre he is, and very, very rarely, I can't even remember a time, where a top tier, Stephen Crichton, who a lot of people think is the best centre in the game, go up against Sully. And although Crichton still played a good game, he didn't have the big moments that he usually has. Now, I'm not saying that was purely because Sully was so great. What I am saying is that very, very, very rarely do you see Sully get done. And once again, he proves that point. I thought he was really, really solid, especially defensively.
I think he's been, I was going to say the second best defensive centre in the NRL this year behind that man, Stephen Crichton, but I'm not convinced that he hasn't been the best defensive centre in the NRL. And as you said, Stephen Crichton, one of the best attacking centres in the NRL, and he just handled him all game. And he averages less than a missed tackle per game, which for a centre is remarkable. Funnily enough, he actually did miss one for a Jacob Preston line break, but they were scrambling. He had to cover across. I saw a headline before that there's a chance he could be gone for the season. Such a big loss for the Dragons. If so,
he's not just defence; he's out of trouble set stuff.
You know what? I think he's been one of the most underappreciated players in the competition this year. The Dragons and the NRL, probably not the Dragons to be fair, onlookers are about to realise how much he means to this team.
Yeah, agreed. He's so bloody good.
He's still in hospital, but it wasn't a irregular heartbeat as first suggested.
Okay, it wasn't a regular heartbeat.
It wasn't.
Okay,
it wasn't.
Good.
Yeah,
that's good. I thought Benny Hunt had a really mixed bag. Some greatness, some really poor errors. He had 4 errors on the weekend, and I wrote it down in the thing I love about Benny Hunt is that he makes an error, he doesn't go into his shell. He keeps trying. But when he's off, though, he can be really off.
I had it down as well. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of off games for Benny Hunt this year. Never doubt his effort, never doubt his importance to this team or his class, but mate, I feel like every second week I sit and go, and Benny had 3 or 4 errors and there's a lot gone wrong. He threw that early, the intercept for the Matty Burton try. He was caught out defensively for Sherry's second one, that face ball. We know how good he is. I don't want to put it on him, but the Dragons season is reminiscent of Ben Hunt's. One week they're up, next week they're down. 1 week they're up, 1 week they're down. When you have as many involvements and as many touches as Ben Hunt does in key attacking areas and such a big role in your team, you're going to have errors. That's fine. You get it. But there's been a lot of these this year.
Yeah. Is that a really up and down year? Because he went down in Melbourne and was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just being one of those. It's funny. It's similar to the Broncos where the years where Benny Hunt's been good, everything that could bounce his way does, and then it's almost like when everything can go wrong, it does go wrong. The kick that usually lands and bounces the right way goes the wrong way. It's an error.
Well, here you go. He's had the most errors of any player this season with 44. Second place is Scotty Drinkwater on 36. Reece Walsh goes down to 32. Fourth is Xavier Savage on 29. So by a margin.
Yeah, wow. And he's in the halves too, whereas the other ones are fullback and both fullbacks. So hopefully he can. The positive is we know Benny Hunt can clean that up because. Yeah. What Flanagan can do is go, hey, Benny, just reel it in a little bit. Because you have to remember, Ben Hunt, for the last 4 or 5 years, he has to have been this guy, trying everything all the time because he's really hasn't got that much support. The good thing with the Dragons now is Flano's built a team around him where he can say to Benny, mate, I don't need you to do that anymore. It's every now and then, try your hand, but if it's not working, just rein it in and we'll find points somewhere else. So
yeah, this time last year, everything had to come off him.
Everything, literally everything. I thought, mate, Jacob Little, 59 tackles and only 1 miss. Ever since he was going well before the Cook signing, but ever since that Cook signing, he has been outstanding.
Yep,
isn't he?
It'll be interesting to see what they do there next year when Cookie gets there. But yeah, the way that he's been playing at the moment, going to be pretty tough to.
I reckon Cookie plays a bit of 13.
Yeah, yep.
And they just go They might start Cook, bring Little on the bench at the
Cook
20-minute mark. Cook goes to 13.
Yep.
And just see how it goes. Yeah,
Cook plays a sort of hot pirate role.
Yeah.
And he's such a good defender as well, Cookie, that I think he can do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you can defend at 9, you can defend at 13.
Yeah. And got appropriate facial hair for the hot pirate role. So. But Little's been unreal this year. This is easily been his best year in first grade.
So and like it's probably because he's been able to keep on the field.
Yeah,
that's 100%. That's it.
Yeah, because he's always been a gun.
Yep.
Yeah, the thing that killed him, I personally think, was that first half, just the errors. It's like 60% or whatever it was. That hurt him. I think if the Dragons can't really afford to be a side that completes 69%, whereas the Bulldogs, 71%, they can afford to do that because their defence is so good. We go back to Broncos last year, one of the best defences in the competition. So they usually came out of games, had like 72, 73% completion rate because you can defend your errors, whereas Dragons aren't there yet. They're not there yet. So I think their completion rate is really what hurt them.
Or your attack's good enough that you can put points on with 70 or 69% possession, but they're not strong enough in either of those areas. Just
No, not at all. I mean, 6 line breaks to 2. They did win the tackle breaks, which is really interesting. Average set distance, they lost that. Kick return meters, they lost that. Won the average play the ball speed. Won the offloads 10-7. So I know it's 28-10, but I don't mind it. What I like from the Dragons is they went out and they beat the Storm last week and they didn't come up and play like absolute bustards this week. Like, yes, they did lose, but the Bulldogs are red hot and they didn't get absolutely blown off the park. And so it's like, I think that's progress for the Dragons. I really do.
So funny that you mentioned most tackle break, like they're beaten for tackle breaks. We mentioned a few weeks back, but the Doggies, best defence in the NRL, but most missed tackles per game. It's such a crazy stat.
They just scramble. Because the thing is, you can miss 0 tackles, just get no line speed and come up together, and you will pretty much 9 times out of 10 never miss a tackle. Missing tackles is because you're usually getting up line speed really quickly and trying to either pull a hit off, stop momentum, and so what I like about the Dogs is they're going, no, we're okay with missing tackles because we'll get heaps of line speed and we'll just keep moving. Okay, on to the next game. The Dolphins v the Warriors, 34-32. Oh, the Dolphins. I think they're running out of steam. I really think, 2 things. I think they're running out of steam, and I think they miss a hard edge. I just don't know whether they have, it's their second year in the NRL, so granted, all of this is still incredible what they're doing. They still got the win, which is great. They showed that ticker that Dwayne Bennett has of even if the momentum's against you, you can still find a way to get the job done. But when they get ahead in games, I think they lack a hard, ruthless edge to just finish teams. And also, as we get further in the season, I think they get into second halves and just start to fatigue a little bit. Still a bloody good win, but the Warriors were probably the better side that just didn't have the kicker to back it up. But they got the job done, which is really good. No matter what happens, it has still been an incredible year for the Dolphins. They've been smashed with injuries. And I think that a guy like Flegler, a guy like Jeremy Marshall-King, Gilbert, they're the ones that are literally signed to give you the hard edge and they haven't been able to play. So got out of jail, but I do think that they're probably going to struggle for the rest of the year. They look a little bit fatigued.
Yeah, and that's how the match played out. If they're tiring at the back end of the year, you're seeing it in games and I'm waiting for the wheels to fall off, but they're finding a way. They're digging in. That last 15 minutes, the Warriors were just killing them through the middle. And I was like, even before they piled on tries, I went, they scored 1 or 2 here, it's game over. They will not stay in this game. They were gone. Somehow found a way, and as you said, Kempy, goal kicking was the difference in this game, and poor old Chanel Harris-Tavita, hitting him all right, but just the big ones that come up. Again, he's a second-string kicker, and then you've got Jermaine Asako.
He's like their 4th-string kicker.
Yeah, it's literally the tail of the game. Jermaine Asako, who's at now, 30 in a row or something, goal conversions, on track to beat the record. And then Harris-Tavita's missed a few in recent weeks that have cost him games, so it was the difference.
Geez, I feel sorry for the Warriors because, let's just say the kicker situation was sorted. They're probably sitting in the 8. Granted, the year hasn't been anywhere near as good as last year. But there's at least 2 or 3 games that they would have got the 2 points if they had a decent kicker.
So it goes, Sean Johnson, Adam Pompey, Metcalf kicker?
I think Metcalf. And
He's fourth.
Yeah, like literally at the fourth choice.
So the Warriors right now, they're on 21 points. They play 21, they got buy in hand, so they're on 23 points. 2 games, if they had have kicked, at the very least we know there's 2 games where they scored more tries, but it's probably 3 games. You're looking at 6 points, they'd be on 27 points, they'd be sitting inside the 8 right now.
It's that important.
So important if you're those, lower tier or even mid-table teams to have a really good goal kicker, isn't it? Because it just goes to show.
Well, it's literally the difference between finals footy. Put it this way, if the Warriors were in finals right now, we wouldn't be saying this has been a disaster season.
No. And like I sit there and go, I'm very aware this is easier said than done, but professional athletes, this day and age, the importance of games, your secondary kicker needs to be minimum 75%. I think they should be an 80% goal kicker. I know you can't just wave a magic wand and make it happen, but they should be putting that much time to this secondary should. You should have a third string kicker that can be hitting it close to 75%. But when the Warriors are up to their fourth, you start going, okay, they're not that much
super unlucky. Yeah, super unlucky. What were they supposed to do?
Exactly. Well, yeah, but as you just mentioned there, it's the difference between right now 14th and 8th spot.
Fuck. And so that's where it's hard to say that this Warriors is just the same Warriors as we've seen for the last 10 years, because if they weren't so unlucky with these injuries in a key position, the kicks, they would literally, at the very least, we know 2 games. Yeah. We know there's 2 games where they've scored more tries and kicked less goals, and those goals have been very kickable. Tough. But yeah, back to the Dolphins. Jeez, Max Psychopath. The Psychopath at number 9.
Yep.
We're talking about a guy who has played all year in 9 or 13. He didn't even come through the grades as that. He came through as a half. The future for this kid, the only worry I have with him is they work him too hard when he's young, because he is the kind of guy that will go out and make 70 tackles a game if you allow him to. And I hope that they just find a way to balance that, mongrel and toughness in him to make sure his career has longevity, because he is an absolute dog in the middle. Yeah.
When he first sort of came through at the start of the year, and Wayne obviously backed him and gave him the starting role, I went, okay, I'm seeing this, and he looks the goods, and he could be a starting NRL player for a long time. What he's doing in the evolution of his game, week in, week out, across, as you said, different positions, he impacts games in attack and defence. He's creative in attack. He's crafty when he plays out a dummy half. He hits that hard in defence and jams blokes and gets turnovers. He's having a big impact on results. Not just your 13 or your middle forward who goes out there and makes the tackles and runs hard. He's really impacting games.
He had 63 tackles on the weekend. 2 offloads, 4 tackle breaks.
In a game with 66 points scored. That's a lot of stoppages.
Wow, yeah. Unbelievable. So I can't wait for them to be full strength so he can play 13. Because I think that in the modern game, we've spoken so much about that mobile middle player and the ability to ball play. He is it.
Perfect.
He is perfect. Gun ball player, got footwork, strong in contact, and he's got a motor like Cam McInnes.
Yeah.
Just perfect. Gun. But as I said, the only thing I hope is they protect him from himself. So monitor his seasons. Don't let him in round 1 be making 70 tackles, and then round 26 or whatever, he's still making 70 tackles. Make sure you monitor his season, because it catches up. It's the same thing with Cam Murray. He's too tough for his own good. Protect him from himself, because he will go out on his shield every week. Yep. But he was outstanding for him. I thought Kafusi was phenomenal. Jeez, just when you think the old dog is gone.
Got to sort that haircut out, though.
No, he doesn't. No, he
sideburns.
Doesn't. No, beautiful haircut. It's the best. That's aerodynamic.
Yeah. He's playing good footy, so the proof's in the pudding. Yeah.
It's beautiful, baby. It's celebration. You don't need it in the front, you just need it in the back, baby. He had a try assist, 124 metres, 45 post contact, tackle break, a line break, 28 tackles, and 3 misses. Jeez, what a good signing he's been for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
You don't talk about it much, but he's been so crucial in the culture that they're building at the club there.
It's very early as well, wasn't he? Bennett just goes, that's my man, you're the bloke who I'm going to build this around. I'll never forget the first 5-10 rounds of last year when everyone was against him, and he just came out and just went, nah, point to prove. You're not going to pick on us.
Yep.
It was him.
You're just snapping blokes.
Literally snapping blokes. I've got to say, I know he's we want to see him do it week in, week out, season after season, and I know he's leaving next year, but Tavita Pangai Jr. doing his job.
Absolutely. Been very good.
Can't make sense of all that. Comes back to the NRL and then he's going over to the Super League. Yeah. It's just like, I'm so confused.
Surely it was because there was, I can't imagine him getting a lifeline in an NRL club and then them offering him to stay and him going, nah, I'm out of here. Surely not.
I'm not sure.
Because there are still plenty of clubs that would take a punt on tipping up hand.
Like I thought it was a gamble to take a punt in even for this season after the exit from the Bulldogs. Bennett did it. He's come back and he's shown straight away he's clearly still an NRL quality player. And then he goes to the Super League. I don't know.
Oh, I hope he writes a book one day because it'll be very
Good
interesting.
read.
Be very interesting. Herbie Farnworth.
Oh.
Holy shit. 2 tries, 20 runs, 84 metres, 86 post contact, 11 tackle breaks, a line break, 4 offloads, 10 tackles, 0 misses, 0 errors. Jeez, he is so good, man. He is so good.
Wouldn't that be a gift to a coach?
Oh.
Like, you talk about the importance of yardage from your back five these days. Is he the best yardage centre in the NRL?
I think so.
I don't think anyone will be better.
Yep.
He's a bloke you really miss at the
Broncos miss him so much. And he's just been building to this as well. It's not like, all of a sudden he started playing good footy. If you watch him at the Broncos, he just was getting better and better and better. And now he has this standard where his quiet games is still 170 metres. That's a quiet game for him.
He's 24 years old.
So good.
He's listed on the Dolphins side 106 kilos.
Yeah, surely he's not that big.
Surely not.
He's pretty ripped and 6'2", I reckon. Nah, he'd be closer to 100 kilos. 98, 99, surely.
I would have thought so as well.
Yeah. And also Cody Nikorima, in attack especially, a try, 2 try assists. Some of his, I feel like the Dolphins are a team of redemption. The amount of players that have gone there and just completely revived their career, not necessarily revived, but reminded the level at which they can play. Nikorima has always been a bloody good player, but a couple of years ago it was okay, is he going to almost be like a utility that bounces around a few clubs? And he did do that to a degree. At the start of this year when he was saying, no, I think I want to be the number 6 for this, I think we were all sitting there going, mate, that might be a little bit past you this year. He's been one of their best players all year. 15
tries, his 20 line assists this season. Could have easily been our team of the week. He was outstanding. Him and Herbie were probably the difference for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And, mate, at the start of the year when he said 5'8", I'm like, you're too small to defend in the front line.
And you're the perfect utility.
Yeah. And he's just defensively he's done a job. He's not even the worst defensive half in his team. Isaiah Katoa gets all the traffic because Cody... He's always going to be a target with his size, but teams are going at Isaiah Katoa because that's been the troublesome area. He's had a good year.
Yeah, it's been so good. And Katoa's had a bloody good year too, but on the weekend I thought just a few errors, I think it was kicks out in the full. So just got to find a way to realign himself a little bit. Katoa was really bloody good a couple of weeks ago. Still so young though, being a halfback in this day and age of the game and being that young, 20 years old or whatever. Jeez. Onto the Warriors. We've already spoken about it, but it's just the kicking. It's just one of those things where, as a coach, geez, it must be hard. Webster, he's sitting up in the box, he's seeing all the headlines about same old Warriors, and sure, he's probably sitting back and going, I'd be in the top 8 right now if we could just sort this kicking out. And yet, unfortunately, that's how we judge teams, is how they finish at the end. Look, I know we've still got a few weeks to go, but I land somewhere in the middle between same old Warriors and they've turned a corner. I think their biggest concern heading into next year is they've waited this long for Sean Johnson to retire. They've wasted time getting a half. Now, the question is, was that the reason why they signed Jet Cleary? Were they already kind of aware of this and Jet Cleary is the next man up? Because outside of that, Tamate Martin, unless he works on his kicking game dramatically in the off-season, that's going to be a concern. I feel like they've kind of left themselves in a bit of a tough spot because now you've got $1 million in your salary cap that you haven't spent. Unless they have, I don't know.
Your main concern, kicking all around, or is it the long kicking?
What's everything? You got a salary cap, $1 million to Sean Johnson that you haven't spent.
I can't imagine the Sean Johnson decision would have been known for a while because there's the replacement, but
Well, how come they haven't brought anyone? You reckon they're just like, no, we reckon Tomato Martin's the guy?
Yes.
Okay.
But I just think just repeated injuries to Sean Johnson. He almost won a Dally M medal last year. I can't imagine him early this season going, this is my last year. Not the form he was in. And then just repeated injuries this year, he's gone, okay, I'm throwing it in. I think Tamari can be the 7 long term. Kicking is the issue. He can definitely develop the short. Does Luke Metcalf have a decent long kicking game or not? Really? Sean Johnson took it all. It's going to be the concern. Can you develop it? It's a tough thing to develop a long kicking
Where do
game.
you reckon they spend that $1 million then?
I don't know, but they're also going to have big money from Adam Fennell-Blake. So there's got to be money in the
You
cap
have to
there
assume
somewhere.
Fisher-Harris probably just took that.
Yeah, but okay, yeah, true, sideways.
Yep.
So Sean Johnson money, looking at their team, still a pretty well-rounded team. Like they've got a lot of forwards coming through the juniors to fill out there. Maybe another outside back.
It's a lot of money to not go after a big half.
Yeah.
So I would have thought they would have been aggressive in the halves up to get someone over Johnson, but it's going to be interesting. In regards to performance, we'll be remiss if we didn't speak about it from the Dolphins. Apologies for forgetting. O'Sullivan's field goal.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't even speak about it.
Oh, my goodness.
Holy shit, what a field goal. 2-pointer. Brought off the bench.
Especially like Asako just had a crack at one and
Hit it pretty well.
smoked it about as ever I've seen a ball hit. Not quite straight enough, obviously, but and then O'Sullivan steps in and goes, no, I'll take it. Because when they did it, it was on 4th tackle and they went out to the right wing. I'm like, you've butchered it.
Yeah,
what are you
totally
doing?
butchered it.
Went back to O'Sullivan and just went whack.
And also, like, the Warriors, I'm sure they weren't looking at O'Sullivan as the guy that's going to do the kick as well. He'd come off
It
the
had
bench.
to be Asako, you thought.
Yeah, he came on the 82nd minute, and 31 seconds later, he pumped a field goal.
And also, well, I think so. He would have. That means he came back on. I think he'd already done a stint.
Yeah, so he came on during golden
Yeah.
point because you get an extra interchange.
And he listen to this. He had 2 kicks for 96 meters. That's friggin' huge. 40-meter kick each kick. More.
I tell you
45.
what, I've seen him have some moments like that in reserve grade throughout the years. He's in a final. He kicked a conversion from the sideline. He's popped field goals for Wyong and Penrith and all the teams he's played for. He's done it a lot in reserve grade. So to see him do it in the NRL was great to watch.
In regards to back to the Warriors, geez, when they got their tail up, geez, they looked hard to stop. So much momentum. Some of the young fellows coming through. Sifakula, geez, it just looks like a ball of muscle, quite compact. Very like the try that he scored. That was all off the quick play that he got the play before. So he gets the ball, the game's on the line, gets a massive, like a really quick play of the ball. They are making a half break, then an offload back inside, then he scores. And what's crazy is like, what's really disappointing for the Warriors as well is that like, the bomb try as well from the young fella, the young centre, like there was so many opportunities to win it. So it's just like, it's got to be frustrating as a Warriors fan because you're looking at all these, just these little parts of the game, the kicking or the drop ball over the try, like all these little things. If you just nail them, you win. Like, and it feels like it almost reflects their season. You go back to the start of the year, they had all these really tight games, and we're all sitting here around 1-4 going, we know they've lost, 3 from 4 or whatever, but the way they're playing is top 8 footy, top 4 footy even. We said they were premiership threats. And yet, like, for the Warriors, so close yet so far, it's almost irrelevant. Like, you might be so close, but you're the same amount of distance away from the teams that are so far away. So it must be frustrating as to be a Warriors fan. I will 100% stick to it though. They have some bloody good young forwards coming through. Like don't. As I said earlier, I land somewhere in the middle. It's not the same old Warriors for me, but at the same time, they're not as far ahead as I thought they were.
Yeah, well, that's it. And we look at all the sides that have made runs in recent years to finals, like Cowboys, the Sharks that have managed to not do it again the year after, the Broncos last year, well, not done yet, but in strife. The Warriors are another one of that list. So they're still not the same old Warriors. One thing I will give them, firstly, can't concede 34 points and expect to win a game of football. But because their defence has been a bit leaky, they've had so many different combinations in their back line and they're just getting torn to pieces. Like, their middles have been pretty good a lot of the time, but you feel like they've had a new bloody halves combination each and every week. Like, Sean Johnson came back for, 1 week and then missed out again. Their outside backs, they change every single week just about. So that's probably the one leeway I give them, but there's still good signs.
Well, there's good signs, but this is where I'm a bit concerned about the halves situation, because at one point, the Dolphins were up. They had 6 tackles in the Warriors 20, and the Warriors had 20 tackles in the Dolphins 20, and they had 4 line. And the Dolphins had 4 line breaks to 0 Warriors. And what that says to me is that the Warriors are laying a really good platform. They're winning the field position, but they're not taking advantage of it. And it just concerns me heading into next year. Is like, are we going to be seeing the same kind of repeated this year, where they get all this field position, they dominate certain areas, and they just cannot get across the line?
They're just the polar opposite to last year, because they had one of the best attacking sides in the competition, and they just ran that same shape from left to right with Sean Johnson, Chancellor Cookstad. Teams knew it was coming. They could not stop it. I'm very aware that Sean Johnson was a key cog in this, but Johnson's played games this year, and it's pretty much the same combination of players. Well, it is. When it's Egan to Sean Johnson to Nickel Cookstad to Dallin, you'd have Rocco Berry was key. He'd run a good line there, but they've got now Roger Tuivasa-Sheck doing that, and they just can't penetrate them.
Yeah.
And they don't look like doing it either.
I will say, in their defence, bullshit call on the 2 points in the conversion, nonsense. I cannot believe. The only way I feel like that's a penalty is if you're looking for a penalty. If you're so scared about a head high that it gets even close, you go boom immediately and you give the rather than allowing the play to unfold and then going, oh, okay, there was a head high there. And then the 10 in the bin. Look, I know some people might disagree. In my opinion, that wasn't 10 in the bin. His legs got chopped from under him. He fell into his shoulder. A penalty is absolutely sufficient in that case, in my opinion.
I think because, as you said, chopped and he was falling, it just changes everything to me.
Oh, 100%. That's the key for me.
Chopped, you look at the actual contact standalone, you're all right, that's a sin bin. But when you're falling and everything's been thrown out of whack.
You get 10 in the bin, what could have Dylan Walker done differently in that situation?
Yeah.
I just don't know.
I don't feel like there's any intent there or anything like that.
Yeah, that's why penalty is sufficient in my opinion. So we'll see. Alrighty, last game of the round. Knights defeat the Tigers 34-18. I mean, this was the sharpshooter.
It was. And how? On fire. 4 tries, no answer for him. Absolutely tore it up. Sharpie, smashed us.
It just, he was outstanding. What do you think of the Tigers' performance, mate?
Disappointing performance from the Tigers, but look, I mean, hasn't been a hell of a lot to cheer about recently from the boys. There's a few little moments where I was like, here we go. A few little, I thought Jareem Buller's little jump over the top of...
it was outstanding.
Kalen Pong. I was like, that's sort of the Jareem Buller from last year that we're a little bit used to, but I don't know. I really don't know what to say. Just very disappointing. I think it almost feels like there's not a lot more, even though there's still a chance they can avoid a spoon. Just the gulf between us and some of these other teams is just too big now.
Yeah.
They found a formula with Sharp. We didn't have an answer for it on that wing, and they just kept going there. Just a disappointing performance.
What do you reckon the Tigers, mate?
They just frustrate me. I cannot fathom what it'd be like to be a Tigers fan, because
not great.
Because they completed it at 92%.
They genuinely show good signs almost every week, but then manage to concede 30+ points every week. They get into games and they show some decent attack and the defence holds up. And I think there are 2 instances in this game where they scored tries, they had their set off the kick-off, and then they just gave away dumb piggyback penalties to allow the Knights out of their own end. The Knights would go upfield, then they'd score, and it was just get through your set and don't give away a penalty. But they're just so dumb. But they've played some, there's been good signs for you, Hammy.
Yeah.
You played some good footy. You scored 18 points. The Penrith Panthers struggled to get through the Knights last week. They really did, and they threw a lot at them. You just put 3 tries on them, like.
And the Cowboys, you score bloody 30 points or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
Mate, I just think, for me personally with the Tigers, I'd almost throw the friggin' ball away and I would just be defending. Like, my whole preseason would be based around defence.
Yeah.
Like, and I would just make them the most hard-nosed, best defensive side in the competition because you've got Api Coruscant, you've got Jerome Luai, you've got
Galvin.
you've got Galvin,
Buller.
you've got Buller. It's just your ability to defend errors is just non-existent. And I just think that if I'm Benji heading into next year, the whole off-season is purely defence. And if you win the spoon again, but you're losing games 10-6, I'll cop that. It's just the defence just needs to get sorted.
Coaches just say from under 6s up, they go like, you just cannot compound. This is any sport in the world. You cannot compound errors with errors or penalties with penalties. And I just feel like the Tigers more than anyone do that. They give away one and say, all right, lift your chin, you'll be all right. You know, bounce back from this. The Tigers do that and give away another penalty or another error, like whatever it might be.
So their points against is 648. And the closest to them is the Eels with 582. So you're looking at about a 60-point gap. As I said, you've actually scored more points than the Knights this year.
Yep.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, so mate, I would just be, if I'm the Tigers, that's all I'd be focused on. Just a gritty, tough, hard underbelly.
Some positives, no sin bins, no send-offs this week.
Positives?
We have had the most sin bins / send-offs in the NRL era this season.
Wow.
We've had 17.
17?
Yeah. So record-breaking year for the boys, which is good.
Holy shit.
At least we didn't have one of them yesterday. That obviously makes it very hard. And, you know, you speak about defence, like we've spent a big chunk of the season with only 12 blokes out there defending because of that. So that's another issue we've obviously got to sort out. But, at least we didn't have anyone sent off this game.
It's just defence for you guys. Defending your errors is just, it's that. I say it's that simple, but it's not. Defence is the most honest part of rugby league because it's the hardest. It's the hardest.
Yeah.
God, Jerome Luai's going to help that next year. 3-man D, one of the best defensive halves in the comp.
Yeah.
That'll be a blessing.
Just the attitude that he's going to bring.
Hoping he's got a similar impact. Obviously, it'll be tough to have quite as big of an impact, but a similar impact to Critter at the Dogs. You know,
My concern in the comparison is that Serraldo and Critter.
Yep.
Whereas Benji, unfortunately, still untested, and we still don't know whether he is an NRL standard coach.
Yep.
And I don't say that disrespectfully. It's just, in my opinion, a fact of the matter. And that's not me saying that he shouldn't continue to be coach. It's just a matter of he needs more time for us to decide, like for us to have an opinion as to is he an NRL standard coach? Because I think it would be unfair for him to take over the absolute rubble that he's taken over, which has been a disaster for years and years and years. I think you need to give Benji at least 2 to 3 years because it's not like other clubs where he's come in and is a bit of a disaster. He's taken over like a basket case.
Yep.
And so the difference I have with the Serraldo, the Critter situation is at the very least we knew Serraldo, he'd coached younger grades and also he'd been a really good assistant coach. Whereas with Benji, we just don't know. Incredible player, but he hasn't really coached that much. So that's my only... I actually do feel Luai will bring a similar lift as Critter.
Yep.
But he doesn't have he may not have the same partner in crime as in Benji and Dingo.
Yep.
Because Benji is also a rookie. Like Benji in 5 years might be that, but maybe next year he might not be.
Yep.
Still a question. I don't have an answer either way. And I think if you're already judging whether Benji's an NRL coach or not, I think you're being super unfair. But I also think if you're sitting here saying he is an NRL standard coach, that is also incorrect. We don't know yet, in my opinion.
Agree.
So hopefully, the good thing is that Luai will be able to teach Benji a lot of things. And I know that sounds condescending. It's not at all. But Luai is coming from a system that wins premierships. And Benji obviously has won a premiership, but A, that was in a different era of rugby league, and B, it's not 3 premierships in a row.
Yep.
So there will be things I think that Benji will learn quite a lot off Luai, and also vice versa. I think that as a ball player, there's a lot that Luai can learn off Benji. Mm-hmm. Okay, on to the Knights. Fletcher Sharp, outstanding, and he may not be Dom Young, he may not be the barnstorming down the wing and blah blah blah, but I tell you what he could be is his own version. he may not have these kind of moments in a game that only Dom Young's physique can offer. But what he might have is electric speed and be able to put away points with pinpoint passing from Kalen Ponga. Ponga pinpoint passing. Ponga pinpoint passing. Ponga pinpoint passing. Ponga pinpoint passing.
Who's playing ping pong?
Because, sometimes that's all you need. Like, you look at a guy like Alex Johnston, he's going to probably go down as second highest, if not the highest try scorer of all time. What? Just a really bloody good finisher. Sharp obviously got many, many years to reach Johnston's level. But, if you've got a super fast winger that can take advantage of the small spaces that Ponga creates, that's a really good thing for the Knights, who attacking-wise have been, I think they're the worst in the competition, points for. Whereas you finally get a sharp, no pun intended, winger on the edge there. Maybe he is the little boost that the Knights need to score more points.
Yeah, well, I think they found their man, haven't they? They've sort of been looking for that bloke to replace Dom Young this year, and Tuala's sort of been in and out and had injuries.
Good solid winger, but he's not necessarily a crazy finisher.
Yeah. Tommy Jenkins had a few runs earlier in the year, and it's landed on Fletcher Sharp, who he just looks perfect for them, doesn't he? Especially when your opposite winger is Greg Marju, who just eats the medias coming out of yardage. Between sort of Ponga and Fletcher Sharp, smaller back three, but to have Marju there, he's your man. So Dane Gagai as well at centre, who runs for big meters. Bradman Best when available. Yeah, he just looks the man for the job. Fletcher Sharp, he was electric. And what it also does is, not to say they couldn't do this when it was, an Enari Tuala, who actually, I quite like him as a footballer, but
Same.
They're so, for a long time, have been very left edge dominant, the Knights in attack, and it's always gone down the left and gone down that channel of, I think Ponga plays his best footy right to left. In fact, I know he does with his footwork. But through Best and through Marju, everything they did was down the right edge yesterday, and I wanted to be critical of it and go, boys, you're not utilising Marju, you're not utilising Kalen in his best spot. But they put 34 points on and tore him to shreds, so hard to argue.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what I like for the Knights. 34 points. Yes, it was against the Tigers, who defence isn't great, but 34 points is 34 points. They have, right now, for points for, they've got 366 points. You compare to, the lowest in the top 8 is the Bulldogs with 437, which is still, 80 or 90 points above them. And the Bulldogs in the last 4 to 6 weeks their average would be quite much higher than that. Everyone else in the top 8 is essentially 500, with Panthers being 488. And so if you want to be in the top 8, you probably want to land around the 400, I'd say. So the good thing is they scored 34 points, and I'd have to say, they scored 34 points, and I thought KP's hand, his eye wasn't in. He actually had a drop ball here, and that little bit of a fluky kick. I mean, it was a great kick that he did. He actually had a few moments where I don't know, just for some reason I wrote in my notes his just eye wasn't in. So when KP does kind of kick back into gear, who knows? That extra speedster on the wing, he might be just what they need to get the points that to make the top 8. Because right now the Knights are sitting. They've played 20. They're on 24 points. They are a genuine shot to make the 8.
Absolutely, it's a soft run home, and again they scored 34 points, but it was also the Tigers.
Yeah,
I've seen them do it before with Ponga. Mate, he had no interest in playing and setting up down the left side of the field. Everything just went down the right edge, and I'm like, as you said, Kemp, he was clunky a lot of times. He threw one Harbour Bridge pass for a sharp try, which was a ripper, but he's better down the left. And it's almost like he hears any critique over it and goes, stuff you, I'll do it down the right, I'll be just as lethal. Mate, your left side, you're nearly untouchable.
One of the best all time.
I don't know what. There was no intent to go down the left. It was weird. But as I said, look, they scored 34 points. Sharp had 4 tries, so can't be too critical. It was the Tigers. Let's see how that goes against stronger sides on the run home.
Look, he's not everyone's cup of tea. I love Tyson Gamble. That kick he put in was phenomenal. Just perfect pinpoint. We've got to give credit. These two blokes that have come in, very easy for everything to just fall apart. Tyson Gamble comes in. They have a win, and Phoenix Crossan, so Gamble, Crossan come in. These are two guys that for many years were fringe first graders. They go down, they play Penrith, they squeeze out a tight loss, but they hang in the game. Their season is on track, and they literally just brought in a new halves pairing. Like, that deserves credit. Like, imagine being Crossland, who hasn't played 7 in years, just goes, oh, by the way, mate, we need you to do a job. And they just get the job done. And so, like, what I love about the Knights is that they haven't been great. They've been chopping and changing. I don't agree with some of the decisions Adam O'Brien makes, but they just make it work. They just somehow make it work, and they could play finals footy this year, which is, I hope that they can find a spot heading into next year where we're not chopping and changing halves literally every month. But at the end of the day, the players at the very least, the environment, it's not the best to a degree with all the chopping and changing, but they find a way to make it work.
Tell you what, AOB, Adam O'Brien, I've been pretty critical of him. I think a lot of people have around selections and whatnot this year. To pull that trigger before the Penrith game, to go Gamble and Crossland. Gamble, I think, back from injury. Crossland, that was a big move to shift him into the halves.
Huge.
I thought that was actually one of their best games of the season against Penrith, and because they didn't win, it sort of lost in it. Mate, who goes to Penrith and gets that close to winning? They could have won that game. And then to do it on the weekend, if they make a charge of the finals and O'Brien's pulled that trigger on the halves and that is the one that worked, you got to applaud it. And we'll see how it plays out over the next month, but the draw's there to do it.
Yeah, the draw's there to do it. They've put themselves in a position to do it. It's just a matter of, like, with Adam O'Brien, like, just stick with it now. Like, please, like, find some kind of spine and just give them time to work together.
Tell you what I loved about the Knights' performance yesterday, just the interchanging of short passes between forwards. I speak about it with different sides a lot, when they are doing it, when they aren't. It sounds so simple and stupid, but I think it's the most underutilised thing in the game. The Knights doing it yesterday, the Tigers had no answers for them. Like, Adam Elliott was at the heart of it, just going to the line at speed with a partner on your left or your right and just tipping on the line. They tore them to shreds. And it's like, it doesn't have to be high-risk footy. It's just little tip-ons. The amount of times they broke the line or scored close to the line, or at the very worst, if you do it, the bloke next just getting a quick play of the ball. It's asking questions. I thought it was really impressive.
Yeah. And look, you look at these stats, like Phoenix Crossland, 14 runs, 143 metres. Like, we really are finding that the modern day 7 is running for like 140, 150 metres.
I will say, I've mentioned it before.
And Cogger comes on and he goes into the...
Well, no. The NRL.com stats, they're largely good. They add running meters. I think it's basically if, like, the half goes over the advantage line and then passes it, they add them as their running meters. It's like, I think it's very misleading.
I agree, but it's all relative for me. So if you compare that his meters to other meters on NRL.com, they're pretty.
It's still impressive to see.
To see those meters. So, for example, we'll go back.
I just don't feel like they're running meters. Like, Nathan Cleary will go for like close to 300 metres at times, or 250 metres on NRL.com, and it's just because he goes to the line and because he's playing off the back of a forward pack, he gets over the advantage line every time, brings someone under, and he's racked up 10 metres. Like, well,
but so for example, Hughes 112 metres, Cam Munster 126 metres. Like, relatively speaking, it's actually it's decent.
Yeah.
And I just wonder whether Adam O'Brien has identified that and said, you know what, KP is such a good ball player. We just need bloody good defenders and guys that either have decent enough ball playing to get KP the ball and he can take care of it, or big enough bodies to actually take the line on.
Yeah.
I hate how they'd have different stats, so it does
so
piss me
annoying.
off. You got to applaud the Knights. They've been, like, I'm being honest, they've been quite ugly to watch as a team, and they've been very, very conservative. I even think Kai Pearce-Paul I've been really impressed with his ability to follow the game plan of being conservative, but I actually think it's hurt him a bit where he hasn't been able to show what he can do.
He's way too conservative.
He's so conservative, but that has to be directive. Like, the amount of times they put kicks up and they don't even chat. Like, I personally believe Adam O'Brien is a super conservative coach. Because Kai Pearce-Paul, outside of that, 17 runs, 165 metres, 67 post contact, 2 tackle breaks, 30 tackles and 3 misses. Tyson Frizzell was also great. I thought Leo Thompson had a better game as well. So there's a lot to give credit for. Where we look at the Warriors and see how far they've fallen, and the Broncos, although the Knights haven't set the world alight, they're doing better.
They're thereabouts every year.
They're doing better than the Broncos, and they're doing better than the Warriors. Like, with a roster that, you could argue is not as good. You could argue it, at the very least, not as good as the Broncos one. You got to give them credit. They're in the box seat to fight for some finals footy. It's a lot better than a lot of other clubs are doing. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. And it's also the way they've gone about it. They've scored the least points, and yet they're still in finals contention, which shows you how gritty they've had to do it. It's all just been pure grit, really. Pure grit.
And they've made, as you touched on, the most changes, probably. Most instability.
Heaps of changes.
Yeah.
You got to wonder, like, if they had where would they be if they had have started, this selection and kept it all the way through? You just got to wonder. I tell you what, though, on the bingo card, Gamble, Crossland was not the people that I thought would be the starting. With Cogger at 14 coming off the bench, that was not the rotation.
No, Hastings not even in the team.
Okay, so great stuff in the Knights. Good, solid win. They keep in the fight. And we always love when the Knights are going well. Alrighty, time to face a bit of music tips for this upcoming week.
Round 24. All right, Panthers Storm. Thursday night, Panthers $1.54. Storm $2.47. 5.5 is the line.
Panthers.
Yeah, those edge back rolls out are concerning, but I'm going to go Panthers.
Panthers Storm.
Panthers Storm for me as well. Friday night, Manly $1.17. Host the Warriors $5.10.
Oh, I have 10.
14.5 is the line at 4 Pines.
Manly Warriors.
Yep.
5-10.
Big, isn't it?
Yeah, Manly Warriors.
Manly Warriors,
I think, as well.
5-10 is juicy as though.
Yeah.
Especially, obviously you heard his quad, but if Sean Johnson comes back, that's a lot of motivation for these boys.
Massive.
Yeah. The plus 14.5, definitely pretty interesting as well. All right, then we got the Roosters $1.18 take on Parramatta. $4.95. Winner gets Mitch Moses. 15.5 is the line. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think Roosters. I think that broke that. I think that might be the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe not for the rest of the season, but I think they'll be really disappointed after last week.
Okay.
The Eels.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. Para we busted from that game. Roosters off the bye. Roosters.
Yeah, Roosters.
I'll go Roosters. I'll go Eels with the start plus 15.5. Saturday we've got the Doggies $1.47. Dolphins $2.68. 5.5 is the line.
Doggies.
It's up in Bundaberg.
Yep.
I'll go Doggies.
Yeah. Doggies 13 plus for me. North Queensland $1.47. Host the Raiders $2.70. 6.5 is the line.
This is a tough one. Shit.
That is a tough one.
Cowboys Raiders.
Yeah, lottery, but I'll go Cowboys Raiders.
I'm going to tip. Yeah, Cowboys Raiders. Yep.
I'm going to go the Raiders.
I don't mind.
Boy.
That.
Yeah.
Go up there
I nearly just did then
knock
too.
them off at 2.70. Big game this one, the Goodman-Buxton Cup at Campbelltown. The ninth wonder of the world will be there. 7:35 on Saturday night. Tigers 2.77. South's $1.45. 6.5 is the line.
South.
We'll go South Tigers.
South Tigers.
Tigers head-to-head for me. Dragons $1.51 host the Titans $2.58 down at Wollongong Stadium.
The inconsistent cup.
Oh god, this one's a nightmare. 5.5 is the line.
You know what? Titans. Because if they don't turn up and fucking rip after what happened last week, like heads are rolling.
I have no idea. I'm going to go Dragons and Titans.
I reckon Titans 2.58 is better of the week.
Wow.
They've got to respond. That was
The bounce back, it has to happen.
diabolical last week.
Yeah.
Dragons will be missing Sully and Flanagan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go Dragons, Titans with the plus 5.5. And then to bring us home, the Sharks, $1.37, Knights, 3.14, 8.5 is the line at Shark.
Jeez, that's good. 3.14. Knights and Sharks always, not always, but like.
Season on the line for the Knights.
Oh. Knights with the start.
I will go, where are we? 8.5. Shit. It's a tough week.
It is.
I'm going to go, I might go an upset. I'll go the Knights.
Knights head-to-head?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sharks, Knights with the start.
I'm going to go Sharks, Knights with the start as well. That's it, round 24. And don't forget, UFC same game multi, aka same fight multi.
Same fight multi.
Follow Dennon on the feed. He's going to have a couple up there. From Perth, Mr. 305, Pitbull in Perth.
Pitbull in Perth.
Forward to the content.
Give us a follow. Give Hammy a follow. Make sure to subscribe to the SC Playbook podcast. Don't forget, Monday, 2 Mondays from now, 6 p.m, the OG drop. It's happening, and trust me, you're going to want to be there. And as usual, I'll go and fuck myself. Thank you.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.